said something was wrong, and this time, his instincts were terrifyingly right. A 9-year-old vanished overnight, leaving behind a trail of fear, confusion, and devastating questions. On November 9, 2007, in Missouri, the child had not been seen or heard from in a few days. On November 3rd, a 9-year-old girl disappeared from her bedroom. The small town of Stella, where she was last seen, was worried crazy. There were a lot of dead ends, and no one knew where she was or what had happened until someone gave them a tip. People told the police to go to Fox Cave in McDonald County. Fox Cave was said to be more like a pit than a cave. It was about 30 feet from the road and in a very wooded area. Sheriff's Deputy Mike Hall and Jake Bees went over to look. 20 feet below, they found a child's body on a ledge. Before we dive deeper, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I always love hearing from viewers around the world. And if you're into true crime stories like this one, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an upload. All right, let's get back to the case. In Stella, Missouri, there were not more than 200 people living. Rowan Ford was one of those who decided to call it home. Rowan was born on April 11, 1998, in the 9th year of her life. In 4th grade, she worked hard and was happy. She enjoyed reading, drawing, and riding her bike outside. She thoroughly enjoyed going to church and would often rise early to assist the pastor in setting up. When she came home, she was always sitting on the steps and smiling. In addition to Angel Food Ministries, she went to Sunday school. She was crazy about Barbie, and her pink bedroom showed it. But things weren't always easy for Rowan. She often had lice. Her hair would get tangled. And even though it was cold in Missouri in the winter, she sometimes went to school without socks on. Even so, she worked very hard in school, and teachers loved having her in their class. She always did her best, even when she was having trouble with something like math. One teacher said of her, "She is a little sunshine and the sweetest girl you could ever meet." 2 older brothers and 1 younger sister raised Rowan because she was shy. She would sometimes hide behind her bigger sister, but when she finally spoke up, her sister said the room lit up. Rowan, she was very special. No one didn't like her. Rowan lived with her 44-year-old mother, Colleen, and her 25-year-old stepfather, David Spears. In addition to being a husband, David was also a father. He was supposed to pay $29 in child support in 2005, but it wasn't clear if he ever saw his kid. Rowan would always be ready for Colleen when she got home from work. She would run out into the driveway to see how her shift had gone. Nevertheless, Rowan wasn't there on November 3rd, 2007. When Colleen went inside, she thought that Rowan might be in her bedroom reading, as she often did. Although she wasn't there, she wasn't even on the land. While David was sleeping on the couch, she asked him where she was. He disclosed that she was at the home of a friend, but he did not specify which friend. David told Colleen she had to be at a friend's house when she called the cops. Colleen waited with David for a few hours for a phone call that would let her know she was there. It was very quiet. They weren't getting the call. After that, they looked all over the area but couldn't find her. There was a tip that Rowan was missing. At 6:50 p.m., there was an Amber Alert, and very quickly a huge search began. Many people in Stella came to help. A lot of people from the neighborhood came out to look for her. There is a lot of time running out when a child goes missing. So they could find Rowan, they had to first figure out where she was the night before, with whom, and most importantly, who was the last person or people to see her. Rowan had been with her stepfather, David, while her mother worked the overnight shift at Walmart. David told the police that he had been out on the night of November 2nd with his friends, Christopher and Nathan. He had left her there by herself while she slept on the floor of her bedroom. After getting home around midnight, he said he didn't check on Rowan, but things would change in the end. He told police that he had gone out a second time around 1:30 a.m. In an attempt to take her SUV, he called his mom. He said she didn't join Rowan while she waited for him to come back. She just watched TV. There was one thing that the police didn't like about David. He wouldn't say where he had been that night or why he had been gone for hours. He admitted that he should not have left her alone and said he hadn't told the police at first because he was afraid they would think he was involved. Newton County Sheriff Chris Jennings said it was very strange that he didn't report missing until 8 or 10 hours after she was last seen. They needed to talk to Nathan and Christopher to see if their stories matched in order to get a better idea of what had happened. The police talked to Nathan, and he told them that he, Christopher, and David had met that night at a farm where they were all working. After going to a booze store, they went home to play pool. Around 8:30 p.m., Colleen went to work. Later that night, Christopher asked Nathan to drive him home, and David went with them. Rowan stayed at the house alone. They continued to drink and smoke pot. When they got to Christopher's caravan, they had bought more alcohol on the way there. After about an hour, Nathan and David left to go home. Nathan didn't want to get pulled over for driving while drunk, so he took the back roads instead of the highway. After dropping David off, Nathan got home by midnight. Christopher Collings, David's friend, who was with Rowan the night she was last seen, told officers the same thing Nathan did, but he left out the part about smoking pot. This happened on November 4th, the next day. He went to sleep in his caravan and said he stayed there. David and he hadn't talked, and he didn't know that Rowan was missing. Stella's neighborhood kept looking for her after the FBI joined the investigation the next day. A lot of police officers from 3 different counties, 50 experts, the Missouri State Highway Patrol, and FBI agents all worked together to find her. While David was still being questioned by deputies, FBI agents took his car and his mother's car, which he had borrowed that night. Around the same time, Newton County officers went to Christopher's workplace and asked him to answer a few more questions. He stated his agreement and went to the sheriff's office by car. He also agreed to take a polygraph test and a computer voice stress analysis, which checks someone's voice to see if they are telling the truth. He told him he had no idea where Rowan was and offered to help find her. Wheaton Police Chief Clinton Clark was out on a regular patrol afternoon. Commissioner Clark had known Christopher 17 years. Christopher believed in him and would ask for help and support even after his mother died. Christopher pulled him over and told him that Rowan had gone missing and that he was helping to look for her. Clark, the chief, said Christopher wasn't himself and was excited. That's when Chief Clark told the FBI that Christopher had told him Rowan was lost. He thought Christopher might know something. The FBI told him to keep talking to Christopher because he said he would help in any way he could. In addition, Christopher told the FBI that he thought David had something to do with Rowan's disappearance and offered to wear a wire to help with the probe. In fact, he told them where they could look for Rowan. The loss of her hit this small town very hard, and many people were scared and confused, which was only natural. The day Rowan disappeared was the last time Tammy Marshall, a teacher at the school, saw her. She saw Rowan's hair needed to be brushed, so they brushed it and put it in a neat knot for 30 minutes before class. Rowan was still there when Tammy went to check on her hair later that day. When she was by herself, she just skipped by. She went by me skipping and looked so happy, like everything was fine with her. People were interested in David, Christopher, and Nathan because they were the last ones to see her. Investigators said that Christopher was helpful, worried, and polite. In the evening, he went to see Colleen to offer his help and find out how the search was going. Christopher and David had been friends for a long time. Chris had actually lived in the basement with the family for a few months that year. Rowan asked him to help her with her schoolwork and even called him Chris. Christopher was also a dad. He had 3 kids under 10 years old who lived in Arkansas with their mom. Christopher went to his family's farm in October 2007 and lived in a caravan there. The search for Rowan was refocused on David Spears on November 6th, 3 days after she was reported missing. A lot of people had talked to him and searched his house. Chris went to Chief Clark's office in the early evening, telling the FBI had talked to him and asked for suggestions on where to look. Captain Clark thought Christopher was thinking about something and said he looked scared. It was odd that Christopher wouldn't look him in the eyes. When Chief Clark called the FBI, he told them about the talk. If Christopher was guilty and needed to confess, the FBI thought he would probably tell Chief Clark. That's why they asked Chief Clark to help with the investigation, and Chief Clark agreed. Christopher met with the FBI at the Newton County Sheriff's Department on November 7th and agreed to give a swab or saliva sample for DNA testing. He also gave permission for his house and a safe he had at David's house to be checked. The man told the FBI that David's story about having something else to do the night Rowan went missing was not true. Christopher kept getting nervous and emotional when he was asked about the missing child during the conversation. He told the agent he would not be willing to talk to them anymore if they were going to say he had something to do with her. The interview ended there. Afterward, he went to see Chief Clark and was upset at the interview. If it came to anything else, he said he would call and added that he might need to take legal action. Chief Clark told him that he could do what he wanted, but also told him that he could do everything he could to help find Rowan. He had no reason to stop helping with the problem. Chief Clark ensured to tell Christopher his Miranda rights because he knew how important it was to follow the rules. Christopher said, "If I have anything else to say, talk to you." Christopher agreed to the terms of the lease and kept talking. Clark was dumb, so Chief Clark asked him if he knew anything about what had happened. Christopher began to cry all of a sudden. It was his word that he would not have hurt her and that he loved her. Someone came in and cut the talk off. At this point, Chris quickly got up and left again. Chief Clark told the FBI what had happened and said he thought Christopher was about to lose it. He thought he would soon hire her. Chief Clark talked to the FBI in more detail than about Christopher Collins, his family, and his connection with him. Christopher might know something about what happened, he said, but they should first find her body. When Rowan's body was found, the FBI said they wanted to be the one to talk to Christopher. Another big break would come the next day, confirming Rowan's worst fears. David and Christopher both worked in the business Mark, the coroner of Newton County. Christopher worked as a mechanic, and David had some experience with cars and sold things. Bridges referred to himself as a jack of all trades. Mark said that David had called him for the first time while he was on duty. Reporting, "I guess he first thought I used to be the sheriff," said he. David told me over and over that she might be a friend's house. They looked for Rowan with David on November 8th. According to reports, the FBI had wired up and followed him. It was David who went outside to look for her, as if Christopher was to blame for everything. He asked David to be devil's advocate. "I said I would suspect Chris might be involved with this. And if you were Chris, what would you do with her body?" He pondered a bit. It was my suggestion that they go look, and they did. The first place he took me to the hole in the ground, where the hole in spotted fox. "I saw some items that brought some suspicions to me," said Mark. "I wasn't sure what they were. David and I had a conversation about it. I thought, I definitely wanted to cave, and I think subconsciously that David did too. He took me to cave for a reason." After that, the FBI contacted the McDonald County Sheriff's Department. On November 9th, around 8 a.m., deputies Mike Hall and Jake B.S. went to search. They discovered the child's body on a ledge 20 feet below the surface. Chris Jennings, Sheriff of Newton County, said, "I wasn't there when the body was found, but I don't think anyone had any doubt it was her. Rowan had been raped, which was proven by the autopsy reports. She had died from being strangled. There were small cuts and bruises on her body that showed they had been hurt before she died. They also found serious wounds on her face, most likely from being hit." Chief Clark heard that Rowan's body had been found when he turned on the news on November 9th. Later, his office told him that Christopher had been there and wanted to talk to him. The FBI told Chief Clark to find Christopher and tell him that they had found Rowan right away. But Chief Clark couldn't find her. His phone rang, and it was the man he was looking for. Chief Clark told him he didn't know anything about spying when he asked if police were following him in a gray minivan. Christopher said he felt scared and threatened and had been driving all over the area to his feeling. Christopher wanted to meet him, but Chief Clark told him to go to the police station. He agreed to drive Chief Clark to the police station in his patrol car when they met. "Well, son, it's over. We found Rowan's body this morning." Just hearing those words made Christopher's eyes well up and his head dropped. Christopher did done, and that the main person was thinking. "Please tell the truth," he begged him. Christopher was surprised by what he saw. Because there were so many people in the department, Christopher didn't want to talk to anyone else, so they went to Money Bridge, which is only a few miles from Wheaton. It was important for Chief Clark to let the police know where they were going. Christopher held out his hands when they got to the bridge, ready to be handcuffed. People told him that wasn't necessary, so he said, "Because of what I'm about to tell you, you will." As they sat on the bridge, Christopher told the story he'd been telling all week until Nathan and David left his caravan. They had used the back roads to avoid getting caught driving drunk. He said he informed her that he could quickly assist her in leaving the area before Nathan and David returned. He got to land quickly by driving down the highway, which was the fastest way to get there. After going to the toilet, he went into Rowan's room. He picked her up from the ground, took her outside, and put her in his truck while she slept there. She was sleeping when he got to his caravan, in case she recognized his voice. He didn't say anything as he led her inside. He raped her and said he was going to take Rowan home. As she walked, he held her arms and turned her face away from him so she wouldn't see him. While shooting, she turned around to his face. They used her with her home as she knew him and called him Chris. He said he freaked out and there was rope in a pickup truck near the property. By using this, he killed Rowan Ford by strangling her. In the bed of the truck, he put her body, saying he was in trouble. He said that he was going to throw her body off the Money Bridge, but changed his mind because he was afraid she'd be found there quickly. He drove around the body until he decided on Fox Cave. He threw her body into the sinkhole and tried to hide the hole's opening with branches, but the hole was too big. Later, he drove home. Upon his arrival, he discovered blood on his bed. He put pants, pajamas, rope, and his own clothes in a wood stove to burn them and give the proof. His plan was to roll the mattress up and put it in a drum. "I got to thinking, now that's going to make a hell of a fire. Somebody's going to see that burning," he stated. Following this, he took the drum to the barn and lit it on fire. The story was awful, and finding out how much Rowan had been hurt made it even worse to think about. Christopher Chief Clark went back to the police station so that other officers could hear what he had to say. He was ready again, and he told the detectives from Barry County and Newton County who were there with the FBI his story again. Also, he signed a paper saying that his property could be checked. After that, he was taken to the Barry County Sheriff's Department and gave his statement again. This time, it was recorded on video. It was his fault, he said, and he had been crying like a baby all afternoon. The police were shocked when they heard this statement because they thought Christopher knew that David had killed Rowan. After learning more, they talked to David again, and this time he admitted guilt, which made things even more confusing. David said he checked Rowan and found that she was not there when he went in. He told Copeland that he knew Chris had taken her to the house. She was being raped by Chris back there. She was also raped by him. Afterward, they believed they were in danger, so they killed her and threw her in a hole. He said at first that he was just driving around, but now we know that they were taking her body away from the scene of the crime. David told the cops that Christopher gave him the rope and that he used it to kill Rowan. "I choked her with it. I realized she's gone," said he. The transcript shows that they talked to Christopher again and told him what David had said, but Christopher was sure that David had nothing to do with the crime or the events that followed. It involved two people, one of whom denied that the other had anything to do with it. This already difficult case was becoming even harder to understand. The document Barry County Sheriff Mick Epperly said the lawyer said that both of them had raped her, but it wasn't clear who had choked her. It was partly based on what Christopher had said. Stephen Collings and David Spears were both charged with first-degree murder, statutory rape, and forced rape. Epperly thought that Christopher would be charged with kidnapping, but not David, because David was her formal guardian. The Barry County Jail held them both without bond. Over time, David's mother would talk to her son while he was in jail. He told her that he had been involved in the crime again, but that he had passed out and was only now remembering what had happened. She broke down in tears and said, "He's my one and only son." His brother Greg said he couldn't believe it. He's so upset. He loved her so much. "I don't believe he could do something like this. He's got 3 kids of his own." The two were in court in Cassville in Berry County, Missouri. The two were arrested on Monday, 3 days after Rowan Ford's body was found 10 miles from home. According to investigators, both men have admitted taking part in the crime, but today in court entered pleas of not guilty. Today, Spears and Collings were heavily guarded, wearing both wrist and leg shackles. Ford's mother, Colleen Spears, was also in court today, joined by several families. While many communities did not attend court proceedings this morning, "I want to, but my heart wouldn't let me," Colleen said. "I didn't go over there and look at those 2 guys." Colleen asked David for a divorce on November 27th. Bill, the mayor of the town, said she was too upset to talk to the press. "She's not feeling anything. She has nothing to do. She's in there right now using the sewing machine to make something for the funeral of her baby." Some people from Rowan's school planted a pink dogwood tree in her honor the morning before her funeral, and her friends sent balloons with notes attached to them. There was also an angel there to mark her birthday and the day she was found. She was buried at Gospel Lighthouse Church, where her favorite song, "The Old Rugged Cross," was sung. More than 300 people were there. In the wake of Rowan's death, the minister told people to put their hate and anger aside. Chris Collings and David Spears would say not guilty, which means that the court thought there was a good reason to bring the case to the trial court. David's lawyers asked that the trial be moved from Berry County to Pulaski County because of all the attention from the media. This was agreed upon. The court could be changed because he and Christopher were being tried separately. Because this case is so complicated, they won't go to court for a few years. Then there was some bad news. The charge of statutory rape, forcible, and first-degree murder against Spears were dropped after he talked to and consulted with the Attorney General's office. And new proof came in from an outside lab. Johnny Cox, the prosecuting attorney for Berry County, and David came to an agreement on a plea deal. David was given 4 years in prison for injustice and 10 years for endangering the safety of a child. Both punishments were harsh to be given for those crimes. That was not an easy choice, the prosecuting attorney said, pointing out that David had admitted to rape and murder soon after he was first. "This case has almost consumed the resources of my office for the last 4 years and 10 months. He noted it has been that long since his case was last heard. It's with the murder and rape of Ford. Evidence other than his word has been sought. Since then, no new proof linking Mr. Spears to the crime has been found. He said that the testing and analysis proof did not show that David was guilty, and the results did not match what he had said before. A rape test kit was part of this evidence. It was taken during the autopsy and afterward looked at by the independent lab, state police lab, and the FBI lab. It matched what Christopher said had happened that night, what the results from this lab showed. Cox also pointed out that David's claim that he had killed Rowan didn't make sense. The fact that there is no physical evidence that could be used in court raises major concerns and questions about David Spears told police. He said Christopher had always denied that anyone else was involved in killing Rowan. This is what he said in both his first and last years. Cox said that Christopher Collings admitted to strangling Rowan Ford every time he talked to police. Cox was worried that he would have to defend Christopher's account of what happened that night, while also defending David's account, which went against Christopher's. Another worry was that it could have made it possible for David's case to be thrown out if he was found guilty of the most crimes, and for Christopher's case to be thrown out, too. Cox said that the state would not accept either result. "This type of crime should outrage everyone," he stated. "I felt terrible when I first heard about it." He said, as a prosecutor, "I am a minister of justice, and follow the law, the truth, and what is fair and just." Robert Evanson, the sheriff, thought Cox had made the right choice. "There was no physical evidence that would have supported convicting David Spears," said the judge. "So even though it was hard for him, the prosecutor did what he had to do," he said, adding that he swore he did it by himself. The evidence pointed to Collings as the killer. Similar things were said in Spears' confession, but there were some problems with the proof that Collings did it, but it solved all the questions. Evanson asked, "Why would someone say they did such a terrible thing?" The public wants to know, and there's no good answer for that either. I agree with what the lawyer said. I'm not sure if he was guilty. I was sure the case would be bad. He could have found guilty. Chris Collings later put in a move to suppress, which meant that the evidence from all of his statements to police during the investigation, as well as the evidence from his property, trailer, truck, and bike, should not be used in the trial. He told no. It would take a week to try Christopher Collings. Christopher's lawyers said that he had a lot of problems and couldn't connect emotionally with other people because his parents neglected him a lot, and he was traumatized by being in foster care. Christopher was the sixth kid and the youngest. All of his siblings ended up in foster care because their parents were criminals and drug addicts. He would become a father later on. His drug and alcohol troubles caused him a lot of trouble. His lawyers told the judge that he had no plans. They asked the jury to ignore horrible crimes shown in the autopsy photographs and wound age, his effect on the law and the facts, which they said showed that he had no plans to do this. She was taken back outside, still no clothing on from the waist down. How painful would that injury have been? Very painful, they noted. Colleen, Rowan's mother, the people who would testify that they learned she had been killed. What impact did that have on you at the time? Asked the judge. Totally devastated myself and my other children, she told him. Rowan's sister said that she fell to the floor when she heard that her sister had been killed. She said that the whole family became very sad. At last, this dramatic trial was over. On March 20th, the jury gave their decision. We, the jury, find the defendant Chris Collings guilty of murder in the first degree. It was possible to give the death sentence in this case, so the penalty phase would be very important. During the punishment part of the case, the state showed comments about how the crime affected the victims. Christopher's team brought in two witnesses who said David might involve killing Rowan. A person who studies human development also said that he had not been mentally cared for at all for the first 6 months of his life, which has his growth. Experts said Christopher was figuring out how to connect with other people. Because of this, he was diagnosed with disorganized associated disorder and intermittent explosive personality disorders. After the part was over, the jury suggested that the person would death. After that, there were a number of challenges. On July 23, 2012, Christopher's lawyers sent a letter to the Missouri Supreme Court that they were appealing the death sentence. When it comes to a death penalty case in Missouri, these kinds of appeals are automatically made. In 2014, the petition was turned down. Another appeal was made by Christopher, this time to get his term cut down to life in prison. This was turned down. He asked the Missouri Supreme Court for an order of habeas corpus. If this was approved, he would be able to show proof that the government didn't tell them that one of their main witnesses, Chief Clark, had a criminal record from when he was in Vietnam. The government said that Chief Clark's record being made public. What was going on with David Spears while he went on? He was in 2015 for more than 7 years. He got the Missouri State Public Defender Office to the husband of his person after he got out of jail. Before the end of his probation, he had to work there 18 months before his probation. Both Christopher and David had lawyers from the Defender Office. Lawyers for Christopher said that David's job as a public defender created a conflict of interest that made it impossible for their client to plead guilty to low charges. His lawyers said in their papers that there would be a conflict because the Collings were afraid of how Mr. Collings would react to the conflict. They didn't tell the court or Mr. Collings about it. Mr. Collings himself didn't know about the claim until after his post-conviction processes were over because it wasn't shared with him. Christopher's case for clemency was based on the fact that he had a disorder that made it hard for him to be aware, make decisions, and things. It also said that he had been sexually abused as a kid. The letter said this left the person hurt without any instructions on how to be a useful adult. The plea for clemency said David Spears had admitted to killing Rowan. The transcript of his police interview showed he told police that Christopher gave him the rope and that he killed Rowan. The Missouri Supreme Court set an execution date for a man accused of murdering a 9-year-old girl in southwest Missouri. In 2012, a jury convicted Christopher of 2007 abduction and murder from Missouri. Investigators threw the body into a sinkhole in McDonald County. The Supreme Court today set his execution for December 3rd. Christopher Collings was doomed from the start when his appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court was turned down. His request for clemency was turned down by Mike Parson. Parson used to be a sheriff and had been in charge of 12 kills. He had commuted the sentences of anyone. Christopher was said to have been put to sleep with pentobarbital on December 3rd, 24, and killed. Newton County Sheriff Chris Jennings was one of the people who worked on the investigation and said he thought the killing had been coming for a long time. I hoped the state would come while I was in charge. I asked to be present at the execution. I thought it was the best thing for Rowan to do. He also told her that she would never get full justice. I'd like to have seen more done and some of the other charges dropped. This is how it turned out. It's been a long time. I'm glad the date has finally been set. Christopher was going to be put to death on December 3rd, 2024. At 5:54, the people who were on the execution stand moved into place. Among them were 4 members of his defense team, 4 members of the media, 8 state witnesses, and 2 members of Rowan. Andrew Bailey, who is the Attorney General of Missouri, told the Department of Corrections at 6 p.m. that there were no legal problems with ending the execution. Christopher Collings, 49, was pronounced dead 9 minutes after that. Christopher wrote in a letter that was read out loud after he was put to death. Right or wrong, I take this situation for what it is. I'm sorry to anyone I've hurt in this life. I hope it's behind you and move on. No matter what side you're on, know that I pray for you and look forward to seeing you in heaven one day. It's after Christopher Collings was put to death that Sheriff Jennings said he thought the system was going down. It's too bad that the police never called, even though there were a lot of warning signs about her. If we knew about that, I'd like to think we would have taken her out of this. I guess that the end of this case brings some peace of mind. There is justice, but it's only a little. I'll take that. It's one of those cases that you forget. It says the case sent shockwaves through southwest Missouri. Just terrible. And someone to take a life and throw them down into a cave like a piece of art. It's terrible. You feel like justice has served this? I think it has. She didn't deserve any of this. It'll give some satisfaction to the family that maybe he got what he deserved. There are so many people who were involved in this case that it will never go away. Sheriff said it was a terrible crime. In his 44-year job, he had worked a lot of murders. This one hit him the hardest. This is Rowan's school ID, and I've had it in my pocket ever since that happened. After this, I'll still keep it in my pocket. He said the case had changed how they looked into crimes against children. In Newton County, we deal with cases of child abuse and neglect. Of course, we always put the safety of children first. We hate taking kids from their homes, but we have to make no choice. This event is always on here. Rowan's death still had an effect on many people in her neighborhood. A juror named Paul, who had testified at trial, said he couldn't rest for a while after she died. I think every teacher would want that kind of kid. She did go to school, but it was all about work. It was all about what Rowan could do in life. Tyler was Rowan's best friend. Tyler's mom would talk about the times together and how Rowan's shyness helped keep her noisy son calm. It's the most like losing my own child in a long time. He still talks about her, sometimes by himself. Her big sister will always remember and love Rowan. I'm so proud of the woman she became. When my sister died, a piece of me died. Thanks for watching. If this case was shocked or heartbroken, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts and comments below. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware. Detective's gut said something was wrong, and this time, the instincts were terrifyingly right. A 9-year-old vanished overnight, leaving behind a trail of confusion and devastating questions. On November 3rd in Missouri, the child had not been seen or heard from the case. On November 3rd, a 9-year-old girl disappeared from her small town Stella, where she was last seen, was worried crazy. There were a lot of dead ends, and no one knew where she was or what happened until someone gave them a tip. People told the police to go to Fox Cave in McDonald County. Fox Cave was said to be more like a pit cave. It was 30 from the road and in a very wooded area. Just Michael and Chase went over to look. Below, they found a child's body on a ledge. Before we dive deeper, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I always love your people in the world. And if you're into true crime stories like this one, make sure to like, subscribe, and bell so you never miss an upload. Alright, let's get back to the case. In Stella, Missouri, there were not more than 200 people living. Rowan Ford was one of those who decided to call home. Rowan was born on April 11, 1998, in the 9th year of her life. In 4th grade, she worked hard and was happy. She enjoyed reading and riding her bike outside. She thoroughly enjoyed going to church and would rise early to assist the pastor in setting up. When she came home, she was always sitting on the steps and smiling. In addition to angel food, she went to Sunday school. She was crazy about Barbie, and people showed it. Things were easy for Rowan. She often had lice, her hair would get tangled, and even though it was cold in Missouri in the winter, she sometimes went to school with someone. Even though she worked hard at school, and teachers loving her in their class. She always did her best, even when she was having trouble with something like math. One teacher said of her, "She is sunshine, the sweetest girl you could ever meet." Two older and one younger sister rated Rowan because she was shy. She would sometimes hide under her sister, but when she finally spoke up, her sister said the room lit up. Rowan, she was very special. No one didn't like her. Rowan lived with her 44-year-old mother, Colleen, and her 25-year-old stepfather, David. In addition to being a husband, David was also a father. He was supposed to pay $29 in child support in 2005, but it wasn't clear. Rowan would always be ready for Colleen when she got home from work. She would run out into the driveway to see how her shift had gone. Nevertheless, Rowan wasn't there on November 3rd, 2007. When Colleen went inside, she thought that Rowan might be in her bedroom reading, as she often did. Although she wasn't there, she wasn't even alone. While David was sleeping on the couch, she asked him where she was. He disclosed that she was at the home of a friend, but he did not say which friend. They told Colleen she had to be at a friend's house when she called the cops. Colleen waited with David for a few hours for a phone call that would let her know she was there. It was very quiet. They weren't getting a call. After that, the whole area couldn't find her. It was tipped that Rowan was missing. At 6:50 p.m., there was an Amber Alert, and very quickly a search began. Many people came to help. A lot of people from the neighborhood came out to look for her. There's a lot of time running out when a child goes missing. So they could find Rowan, they had to first figure out who was the night before, with whom, and most importantly, who was the last person to see her. Rowan had been her stepfather, David, while her mother worked the overnight shift at Walmart. They told police that he had been out on the night of November 2nd with his friends. Nathan, he had left her there by herself while she slept on the floor of her bedroom. After getting home around midnight, he said he didn't check on Rowan, but things would change in the end. He told the police he got a sip around 30 a.m. in an attempt to take her SUV. He called his mom. His mom said she didn't check on Rowan while she waited for him to come back. She just watched TV. There was one thing that the police didn't like about David. He wasn't where he had been that night, or why he had been gone for hours. He admitted that he should not have left her alone, and said he hadn't told police at first, because he was afraid they would think he was involved. Newton County Sheriff Chris Jennings said it was very strange that he didn't report her missing until 8 or 10 hours after she was last seen. They needed to talk to Nathan and Christopher to see if their stories matched in order to get a better idea of what had happened. The police talked to Nathan, and he told them that he, Christopher, and David had met that night at a farm where they were all working. After going to a booze store, they went home to play pool. Around 8:30 p.m., Colleen went to work. Later that night, Christopher asked Nathan to drive home, and David went with them. Rowan stayed at the house alone. They continued to drink and smoke pot. When they got to Christopher's caravan, they bought more alcohol on the way there. After about an hour, Nathan left to go home. Nathan would get pulled over for driving while drunk, so he took the back roads instead of the highway. After dropping Dave off, Nathan got home by midnight. Christopher, David's friend, who was Rowan the night she was last seen, told officers the same thing Nathan did. He left out the part about smoking pot. This happened on November 4th, the next day. He went to sleep in his caravan and said he stayed there. David hadn't talked, and he didn't know that Rowan was missing. Stella's neighborhood looking for the FBI joined investigation the next day. A lot of officers from 3 counties, 50 experts, and Missouri State Highway Patrol, FBI agents all worked to find her. David was still being questioned by deputies. FBI agents took his car and his mother's car, which he had borrowed that night. Around the same time, Newton County officers went to Christopher's workplace and asked him to answer a few questions. He stated his agreement with the sheriff's car. He also agreed to do a polygraph test and a computer voice stress analysis to check someone's voice to see if they are telling the truth. He told him he had no idea where Rowan was and offered to help find her. Wheaton Police Chief Clinton Clark was out on a regular patrol that afternoon. Commissioner Clark had known Christopher for 17 years. Christopher believed in him and would ask for help and support even after he died. Christopher pulled him over and told him that Rowan had gone missing and he was helping to look for her. Clark, the chief, said Christopher wasn't himself and was excited. That's when Chief Clark told the FBI that Christopher had told him Rowan was lost. He thought Christopher might know something. The FBI told him to keep talking to Christopher because he said he would help in any way he could. In addition, Christopher told the FBI that he thought David had something to do with Rowan's disappearance and offered a wire to help with both. In fact, he told them where to look for Rowan. The disaster hit this small town very hard, and many people were scared and confused, which was only now. The day Rowan disappeared was the last time Marshall, a teacher at the school, saw her. She saw Rowan's hair needed to be brushed, so they brushed it and put it in a neat knot for 30 minutes before class. Rowan was still there when Tammy went to check on her hair later that day. When she was by herself, she just smiled. She went by me skipping and so happy, like everything was fine with her. People were interested in David, Christopher, and Nathan because they were the last ones to see her. Investigators said that Christopher was helpful, worried, and polite. In the evening, he went to see Colleen to offer his help and find out how the search was going. Christopher and David had been friends a long time. Chris had lived in the basement with the family for a few months a year. Rowan asked him to help her with her schoolwork and even called him Uncle Chris. Christopher was also dad. He had 3 kids under 10 years old who lived in Arkansas with their mom. Christopher went to his family's farm in 2007 and lived in a caravan there. The search for Rowan was refocused on David Spears on November 6th, 3 days after he was reported missing. A lot of people talked to him and searched his house. Chris went to Chief Clark's office in the early evening to tell him that the FBI had talked to him and asked for suggestions on where to look. Captain Clark thought Christopher was thinking about something and said he looked scared. It's odd that Christopher wouldn't look him in the eyes. When Chief Clark called the FBI, he told him about the talk. If Christopher was guilty and needed to confess, the FBI thought he would probably tell Chief Clark. That's why they asked Clark to help the investigation, and Chief Clark agreed. Christopher met with the FBI at the Newton County Sheriff's Department on November 7th and agreed to give a swab or saliva sample for DNA testing. He also gave permission for his house and a safe he had at David's house to be checked. Then told the FBI it's about having something else to do with the night Rowan went missing was not true. Chris kept getting nervous and emotional when he was asked about the missing child during conversation. He told the agent he would not be letting go any more than going to say he had something to do with her going missing. The interview ended there. Afterward, he went to see Chief Clark and was very upset about the interview. If it came to anything else, he would clam up and added that he might need to take legal action. Chief Clark told him that he could do what he wanted, but also told him that Christopher should do everything he could to help find one. He had no reason to stop helping with the probe. Chief Clark made sure to tell Christopher of his rights because he knew how important it was to follow rules. Christopher said, "If I have anything else to say, I'll talk to you." Christopher agreed to the terms of the release and kept talking. Chris Clark was feeling down, so Chief Clark asked him if he knew anything about what happened to Rowan. Christopher began to cry all of a sudden. It was his word that he would not have hurt her and that he loved her. Someone came in and cut the talk off. At this point, Chris quickly got up and left him. Chief Clark told the FBI what happened and said that he thought Christopher was about to. He thought he would soon hire a lawyer. Chief Clark talked to the FBI in more detail the next day about Christopher Combs, his family, and his connection with him. Christopher knew something about what happened, he said, but they should find her body. When Rowan's body was found, the FBI said they wanted him to be the one who talked to Christopher. Another big break would come the next day, confirming everyone's worst fears. Dave and Christopher both worked in the car business for Mark Bridges, the coroner of Newton County. Christopher worked in mechanic, and David had some experience with cars and things. Bridges referred to himself as a jack of all trades. Mark said that David had called him for the first time while he was on duty the day she was reported missing. "I guess he thought I used to be the sheriff and could help," said he. They told her over that she might be at a friend's house. Mark said he looked Rowan with David on November 8th. According to reports, the FBI had him wired up and a plane following him. David went outside to look for him, as if Christopher was to blame for everything. He asked David to be the devil's advocate. "I said I would suspect Chris might be involved with this. And if you were Chris, what would you do with my body?" He pondered a bit. "It was my suggestion they go look, and they did. First place he took me was to the hole in the ground." "What did the hole in the ground mean?" Spotted Fox. "I saw some items that brought suspicion to me. I wasn't sure what they were." David had a conversation about it at the time. "I definitely wanted to search the cave, and I think subconsciously that David did too. He took me to the cave for a reason." After that, the FBI contacted the McDonald Sheriff's Department. On November 9th, around 8 a.m., Deputy J.S. went there to search. They discovered a child's body on a ledge 20 feet below the surface. Chris Jennings, sheriff of Newton County, said, "I wasn't there when the body was found. I don't think anyone ended up it was a murder. Rowan had been raped, which was proven by the autopsy reports. She died from being strangled. There were small cuts and bruises on her body that showed they had been hurt before she died." They also had serious wounds on her face, most likely from being thrown into the pit. Chief Clark Rowan's body had found when he turned on the news on November 9th. Later, his office told him Christopher had been there and wanted to talk to him. The FBI told Chief Clark to find Christopher and tell him that they had found Rowan right away. Chief Clark couldn't find Christopher. His phone rang, and it was the man he was looking for. Chief Clark told him he didn't know anything about spying when he asked if police were following him in a gray minivan. Christopher said he felt scared and threatened and had been driving all over the area to get rid of the feeling. Christopher wanted to meet him, but Chief Clark told him to go to the police station. He agreed to Chief Clark to the police station in his patrol car when they met. "Well, son, it's over. We found Rowan's body this morning." Just hearing those words made Christopher's eyes well up. Christopher knew what David had done, and that was what the main person was thinking. "Please tell the truth," he begged him. Christopher was surprised at what he saw, because there were so many people there. Christopher didn't want to anyone else, so they went to Money Bridge. Only a few miles. It was important for Chief Clark to let the police know where they were going. Christopher held out his hands when they got to the bridge, ready to be handcuffed. People told him it was necessary, so he said, "Because of what I'm about to tell you, you will." As that on the slope of the bridge, Christopher told the same story he had been telling until Nathan and David left Karen. They had used the back roads for getting caught driving drunk. He said he told her that he could quickly assist them in the area before Nathan and David returned. He got to the land quickly, driving the highway, which was the fastest way to get there. After going to the toilet, he went into the room, hit her off the ground, took her outside, and put her in his truck while she was there. She was still sleeping to his caravan. He recognized his voice. He didn't say anything to get her inside. He raped her and was going to take her home. As she walked, he held her arms and turned her face away from him so she could see him. While she was walking, she turned around and saw his face. He was with homework and she was him. The man called Uncle. He said he freaked out, and there was rope in a pickup truck near the property. By using this, he killed Rowan for surrender. In the bed of his truck, he put her body and he knew he was in a lot of trouble. He said that he was going to throw her body off Money Bridge, but changed his mind because he was afraid that she would come there quickly. He drove around thinking about where to bury her body until he decided on Fox Cave. He threw her body in a sinkhole, tried to hide the holes opening the bridge, but the hole was too big. Later, he drove home. Upon his arrival, he discovered blood on his clothing in bed. He put pants, pajamas, rope, and his own clothes in a wood stove to burn them and get rid of the roof. His plan was to roll the mattress up and put it in a drum. "I got to thinking, now it's going to make a fire. Somebody's going to see that burning," he stated. Following this, he took the barn and lit it on fire. The story was awful, and finding out how much Rowan had been hurt, it even worse about. Christopher and Chief Clark went back to the police station so that other officers could hear what he had to say. He was ready to write to him, and he told his Mary County anybody were there with FBI story again. Also, he signed a paper saying his property could be checked. After that, he was taken to the Berry County Sheriff's Department and he stated to him. This time, it was recorded on video. It was his fault, he said, and he'd been crying a baby all afternoon. The police were shocked when they heard his statement because they thought Crystal knew that David had killed Rowan. After learning more, they talked to David and decided to make things more confusing. David said he checked and found she was not there when he went in. He told Copeland and Chris had taken her to his house. She was being raped by Chris when he got there. She was also raped by him. Afterward, they believed they were in danger, so they killed her and threw her in a hole. He said at first that he was just driving, but now we know that they were taking her body away from the scene of the crime. He told the cops that and that he used it to kill Rowan. He choked with it. "I realize she's gone. She's really gone," said he. The transcript shows that they talked to Christopher again and told him what David had said. Christopher was sure that David had nothing to do with the crime or the events that followed. It involved two people, one who denied that the other had anything to do with it. This already case was becoming even harder to understand. The document Berry County Sheriff McAbbott sent to Lowry said that both of them were. It wasn't clear which one. It was based on what Christopher said. Steve Collins and David Sears were charged with murder, sexual rape, forcible rape. Really thought Christopher would be charged with kidnapping, but not David, because David was her former buddy. The Berry jail held both without bond. Over time, Hazel talked to her while he was in jail. He told her that he had been involved in the crime again, but that he had passed out and was only remembering what had happened. She broke down in tears and said he's the one and only son. His brother Big said he couldn't believe it. He's so upset. He loved her so much. I don't believe he'd do something like this. He's got 3 kids of his own. The two appeared in court in Cassville in Berry County. The two were arrested on Monday, 3 days after Rowan Ford's body was found about 10 miles from home. According to investigators, both men admitted taking part in the crime, but they in court entered pleas of guilty. Today, Sears' callings were heavily guarded by both wrist and shackles. Ford's mother, Clean Sears, was also in court today, joined by some family members. While me and the community sought continued to grieve and hope for justice, they did not attend court proceedings this morning. I wanted to, but my heart wouldn't let me, Clean said. I went over there and look at those two eyes. Clean asked David on November 27th. Bill Mayer said she's too upset to talk to the press. She's not feeling anything. She has things to do. She's in there right now with a sewing machine to make something for the funeral of her baby. Some from the school placed a pink apple tree in her honor for her funeral, and her balloons with notes attached to them. There was also a there to mark her birthday and the day she was found. She was buried at the Lighthouse Church, where there was the old cross. So, more than 300 people were there. In a wake of Rowan's death, the minister told people to put their hate and anger aside. Chris Collins and David Spears said they were not guilty. Christopher was bound over for trial, which means the court thought there was a good reason to break the trial. David's lawyers asked to move from Bay County to Pulaski County, but all the attention in the media. This was agreed upon. The court could be changed because he and Christopher were being separately. Because this case was so complicated, it went for a few years. Then it was some bad news. The charges of statutory and first-degree murder against Spears were dropped after he talked to and consulted with the Attorney General's office, and new proof came in from an outside. Johnny was prosecuted for Bay County, and they gave an agreement plea deal. David was given 4 years for justice and 7 years endangering the safety of a child. Both were the harshest that could be given for those crimes. That's not an easy choice, the prosecutor said. Pointing out David intended to rape and murder some people. This case almost consumed resources of my office the last 4 years and 10 months. He made it long this case was last heard. Spears linked to the murder and rape of Rowan Ford, but it's other than his word has been signed. Since then, no new linking Mr. Spears to the crime has been found. He said the testing and proof showed he was guilty, and the results did not match what he had said before. A rape test kit was part of this evidence. It was taken during the autopsy, and after looked at the lab, the state police lab, and the FBI lab, Commissioner said that one results from separate lab showed also doubt that David's claim that he killed Rowan made sense. The fact that there is no physical evidence that could be used raised concerns and questions about Spears' police. He said Christopher had all night anyone else was involved in killing Rowan. This is what he said in both his first and last interviews. Cox said that Christopher Collins admitted to strangling Rowan Ford every time he talked to police. Cox worried that he would have to defend Christopher's account while also defending David's account against Christopher's. Another worry was that it could have made it possible if he was found guilty of the more serious crimes after Christopher's case be found. Too, Cox said the state would not accept the result. This type of crime should outrage everyone, he stated. I heard about it. That being said, I am a minister of justice and must follow the law, the truth, and what's fair and just. The sheriff thought that Cox made the right choice. There was no physical evidence that would support convicting David Spears, said the judge. So though it was hard for him, the prosecutor did what he had to do, he said, and that he swore he did it himself. The evidence pointed to Collins as the killer. Similar things were said in Spears' confession, but there were some proof Collins did, but it didn't solve all questions. Evanson asked, why would someone say they did such a terrible thing? He wants to know, and there's no good answer for that. I agree with what he said. I was not sure if he was ever guilty. I'm sure the case would be bad. He could have been found not guilty. Collins put in a move which meant the evidence from all of his statements to police during the investigation, as well as the evidence of property, trailer, truck, and body, should not be used. He was told no. It would take a week to Christopher Collins. Christopher's lawyer said in court that he had a lot of problems and couldn't connect emotionally with other people, as his parents did a lot, and he was traumatized by being scared. Christopher was the 6th kid, the youngest. All of his siblings ended up in foster care, as their parents were criminals and drug addicts. He became a father later on. His drug and alcohols would cause him trouble. His lawyers told the judge that he was guilty. They asked her to ignore the horrible crime, seen shown in the autopsy photographs, and instead focus on the law and the facts, which said showed that he had no right to do this. She was taken back outside, still no clothing on from the waist down. How painful would that injury have been? Very painful. Colleen, Rowan's mother, was one of the people who would testify in court after being killed. What kind of impact did it have at the time? Asked the judge. I totally devastated myself and my other children, she told him. Rowan's sister said she fell to the floor. Her sister had been killed. She said that the whole family became very sad. At last, this traumatic trial was over. On March 20th, the jury gave their decision. We, the jury, find the defendant Christopher Collins guilty of murder in first degree. It was possible to give the death sentence in this case, so the penalty phase was very important. During the punishment part case, the state showed 6 comments from witnesses about how the crime made the victims. Christopher came on 2 witnesses who said David had been involved in killing one. Christopher also said that he had not been cared for at all for the first 6 months of his life, which had slowed his growth. Experts said Christopher had trouble figuring out how to get other people. Because of this, he was diagnosed with serious organized attachment disorder and injury mixed with personality disorders. After the trial was over, the jury suggested that the person be put to death. After that, there were a number of challenges. On July 23, 2012, Christopher's lawyers sent to the Missouri Supreme Court with a killing death sentence. When it comes to death penalty cases in Missouri, these kinds of appeals are automatically made. In 2014, his decision was down. Another appeal was made by Christopher. This time, he was cut down to life in prison. This was turned down. He asked the Missouri Supreme Court for an order of habeas corpus. If this is approved, he will show proof that the government did that one of their witnesses, Chief Clark, had a criminal record when he was in Vietnam. The government said that Chief Clark's record being public would not change the result. What was going on with David Spears while the arguments went on? He pleaded in 2015 After being locked up for more than 7 years, he got a job in Missouri State Public Defender Office, the husband of his father soon after he got out of jail. But not before the end of his probation. He had to work there for 18 months before his probation ended. Christopher and David, lawyers in the Public Defender Office. Lawyers for Christopher said David's job as a public defender created a conflict of interest, made possible for their client to plead guilty to lower charges. His lawyers said in their papers that there might be conflict. Because they had mixed feelings or were afraid of how Mr. Collins would react to conflict, they told court on Collins about it. Mr. Collins himself didn't know about the claim until after his probation processes were over, because it was shared with him. Christopher's case for clemency was based on the fact that he had a brain disorder that made it hard for him to make decisions and think things through. He also said he had been sexually abused as a kid. Others said this left him without any instructions on how to become a useful adult. The play for clemency said David Sears had admitted to killing Rowan. The transcript of his police interview showed that he told the police Christopher gave him the rope, that he killed Rowan. The Missouri Supreme Court set an execution date for a man accused of raping and murdering a 9-year-old girl in southwest Missouri. In 2012, a jury convicted Christopher Collins of the 2007 murder of Rowan, Missouri. Investigators say Collins threw Ford's body into a sinkhole in McDonald County. The Supreme Court today set his execution for the 3rd. Christopher Collins went from start when his appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court was turned down, and his request for clemency was turned down by Governor Mike Parson. Parson's sheriff had been in charge of 12 things. He had never commuted the sentence of anyone. Christopher was said to have been put into bar on December 3, 2024, and then killed. New County Sheriff Chris Jennings was one of the people who worked on the investigation and said he thought he had been for a long time. I hope the state would know I was still in charge. I asked to be present at the execution. I thought it was the best thing for Rowan to do. He also told her she would get full justice. I'd like to see more done, and some of the other charges dropped, but this is September. It's been a long time. I'm glad the date has finally been set. Christopher will be put to death on December 3, 2024. At 54, the people on the execution's end were moved into place. Among them were 4 members of his team, 4 members of the media, 8 state witnesses, and 2 family members. Edward Bailey, who was the attorney general of the Department of Corrections at 16, and legal problems at the execution. Christopher Collins, 49, pronounced dead 9 minutes after that. Christopher wrote in a letter that was read out loud after he was put to death. Right or wrong, accept this situation for what it is. I'm sorry anyone ever written this stuff. You can put this behind you and move on. No matter what side you're on, know that I pray for seeing you in heaven one day. After Christopher Collins was put to death, the church said he thought the system had let Rowan down. It's too bad things weren't all, even though there are a lot of warning signs about her. If we knew about that, I'd like to think we would have taken her out of that position. I guess that the end of this case brings peace of mind. There is some justice, but it's only a little. I'll take what I can get. One of those cases you never get. Italy said the case of Chavez, South Missouri. It's terrible. Someone took a life and thrown down into a cave like a piece of dirt. It's terrible. You feel like justice has been served with this? I think it has. She didn't deserve this. It'll give satisfaction to the family, maybe what he deserved. There are so many people involved in this case that it will never go away. Sheriff Jennings said it was a terrible crime. It's 24 years on the job. He had worked on murders. But this one hit hardest. This is Rowan's quality. I've had it in my pocket since that happened. After this, I'll still keep it in my pocket. He said her case had changed to into crimes against children. In Newton County, we deal with a lot of cases of child abuse and neglect. Of course, we always put safety first. We hate taking kids from homes, but we have to do it if there's no choice. This event is always a reminder. Rowan death still had effect on many people in the neighborhood. A teacher in Todd Hall, who testified in the trial, said he would clean desk while after she died. I think every teacher would want the kind of kid. She'd go to school, but it's all work. It was all about how to move up in life. Tyler was Rowan's best friend. Tyler's mom would talk about times they spent together, and how shyness helped her son calm. It's almost like losing my own child for a long time. He still talks about her, sometimes couldn't sleep by himself. Her bigger sister will always remember and love him. I'm so proud of the woman she became. When my sister died, a piece of me died. Thanks for watching. If this case left you heartbroken, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your comments below. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware. The detectives got something wrong, and this time, the instincts were terribly right. A 9-year-old vanished overnight, leaving behind a trail of fear, confusion, and investigations. On November 2007, in Missouri, the child had seen word from in a few days. On November 3rd, a 9-year-old girl disappeared from her bedroom. The small town which was last seen was very crazy. There were a lot of dead ends, and no one knew where she was or what happened, until someone gave a tip. People told police to go to Fox Cave in Untold County. Fox Cave was said to be more like a pit than a cave. It was about 30 feet of the road and in a very old area. Sheriff Deputy and Jake Bees went over to look. 20 feet below, they found a child in a ledge. If you dive deeper, let me know comments where you're watching from. I love hearing viewers around the world. If you're into true crimes like this one, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss out below. Alright, let's get back to the case. It's still out there were more than 2 people living. Rowan Ford was beside all alone. Rowan was born on April 11th, 1998, in the 9th year of her life. In 4th grade, she worked hard and typing. She knew reading, drawing, and writing outside. She thoroughly enjoyed going to church and would rise early to assist the pastor in setting up. When she came home, she was always sitting on the steps and smiling. In addition to Angel Food Ministries, she went to Sunday school. She was crazy about Barbie. Her pink bedroom showed it, but things weren't always Rowan. She often had lies. Her hair would get cold, and even though it was cold in the winter, she sometimes went to school outside. Even so, she worked very hard in school, and teachers loved having her in the class. She always did her best, and when she was having trouble like math, one teacher said of her, she is a sunshine and the sweetest girl ever raised. 2 older brothers, and one of them was Rowan, but she was shy. She was hide behind her sister, but when she finally spoke up, her sister said the room bell. Rowan was very special. No one didn't like her. Rowan lived with her 44-year-old mother, Colleen, and her 5-year-old father, H. Pierce. In addition, it was also he was supposed to get $9 in child support. It was clear he never saw his kid. Rowan would always ready for Colleen. She don't work. She would route into the driveway to see how her shift gone. Nevertheless, Rowan was there on November 3rd, 2007. Colleen went inside. She thought it might be a ring. She often did, although she wasn't there. She was on the land. While David was sitting on the couch, she asked him where she was. He disclosed that she was at home with a friend. He did not specify a friend. David told Colleen she had to be at a friend's house when she called the cops. Colleen waited with David for a few hours for a call and let her know she was there. It was very quiet. They were getting a call. After that, they looked all over the area but couldn't find her. It was that Rowan was missing. At 6 p.m., there was an Amber Alert and a huge search began. Many people in Stella came out. A lot of people came up with her. There is a lot of time right now a child goes missing. So they found Rowan. They had first figure out where she was the night before, with whom, and most importantly, who was the last person people to see her. Rowan had been with her stepfather, David. On the phone shift at Walmart, they told police he had on the night of missing with his dress. Christopher, Nathan, he left her by herself while she slept on the floor of her bedroom. After he told her, he said he did check on Rowan. Things changed again. He told the police he'd gone a second time around 1 p.m. and then to take her SUV. He calls mom. His mom said she didn't check on Rowan while she waited to come back. She just watched TV. There was one thing that the police liked. He wouldn't say where he'd been that night or why he had been gone for hours. He admitted they should not have left her alone and said he had told the police first because he was afraid with things involved. Newton County Sheriff's Jennings said that he didn't report her missing 8 or 10 hours after she was last seen. He needed to talk to Nathan to see if this matched in order to get a better idea of what had happened. The police talked to Nathan, and he told them that he, Christopher, and David had met that night at a farm where they were all working. After going to a store, went home to play pool around 8:30 p.m. Colleen went to work. Later that night, Christopher asked Nathan to drive him home, and David went with them. Rowan stayed at the house alone. They continued to drink and smoke pot. Now to Christopher's caravan, they had more alcohol on there. After an hour, Nathan and David left to go home. Nathan wanted to pull over for driving off track, so he took the back roads instead of the highway. After dropping it off, they went by midnight. Christopher Collins, David's friend, who was with Rowan the night she was last seen, told us the same thing Nathan did. They left the park house in pot. This happened on November 4th the next day. He went to sleep in his caravan and said he stayed there. David and he had talked, and he didn't know the wrong thing. Stella's kept looking for her as the FBI joined the investigation the next day. A lot of police officers from 3 counties, 50 experts, the highway patrol, and FBI agents all worked together to find her. While David was still being questioned by deputies, FBI agents saw his car, which he had borrowed that night. On the same time, Newton County officers went to Christopher's workplace and asked him to answer more questions. He said his agreement and the sheriff's car. He also agreed to take a polygraph test and a computer voice stress analysis, which checks on voice to see if the truth. He told him he had no idea where was and offered to help find her. Wheaton Police Chief Clark was out on a regular patrol that afternoon. Commissioner Clark had known Christopher for 15 years. Christopher needed him and would ask for help in sport even after his mother died. Christopher pulled over and told him that Rowan was missing, and he was held over. Clark, the chief, Christopher was himself and was excited. That's when Chief Clark told the FBI that Christopher told him Rowan was lost. He thought Christopher might know something. The FBI told him to keep talking to Christopher because he said he would help any way he could. In addition, Christopher told the FBI he thought it had something to do with Rowan's disappearance and offered to help with the rope. In fact, he told them where they looked for Rowan. The lost in a small town airport. Many people were scared and confused, which was only natural. The day Rowan disappeared was the last time a teacher at school saw her. She saw Rowan's hair neatly pushed. So they pushed and put it in a neat knot for 30 minutes before class. Rowan was still there, and went to check on her hair. Later that day, when she was by herself, she just got by. She went by scared, so happy, like it was fun. People were interested in David, Christopher, and Nathan because they were the last ones to see her. Investigators said that Christopher was helpful, very polite, and they even used Colleen to offer his help and find a search point. Christopher did it for a long time. Chris actually lived in the basement with the family for a few months that year. Rowan asked him to help her with work, and he called him Christopher's also dad. He had 3 kids at 10 years old who lived in Arkansas with their mom. Christopher's family farm in October 2007 and lived in care there. The search for Rowan was focused on tears on November 6th, 2 days after she was reported missing. A lot of people had talked to him and searched his house. Chris went to Chief Clark's office in the evening to tell him the FBI had him and asked for suggestions on look. Captain Clark thought Christopher was thinking about something as he looked scared. It was Christopher looking in the eyes. Chief Clark called the FBI. He told him about the talk. If Christopher was guilty and he confessed, the FBI thought he probably held Chief Clark. That's why they asked Chief Clark to help the investigation, and Chief Clark agreed. Christopher met the FBI at the County Sheriff's on November 7th and agreed to swab a sample for DNA testing. He also permitted his house to safe he had David's house to be checked. Then told the FBI that David started having something else to do the night Rowan was missing was not true. Christopher kept getting nervous and emotional. He was asked to during the conversation. Told the agents that he would be able to talk to them, or if they were going to say they had something to do with her missing. The interview ended there. Afterward, he went to see Chief Clark and was very upset about the interview. If he came to anything else, he said he would come up and added he might need to take legal action. Chief Clark told him that he'd do what he would, but also told him that he would do everything he could to help find Rowan. He had no reason to stop helping Rogue. Chief Clark made sure to tell Christopher of his rights because he knew how important it was to follow the rules. Christopher said, "If I have anything else to say, I'll talk to you." Christopher read the terms of release and can't talk. Chris Clark was feeling down, so Chief Clark asked him if he knew anything about what happened to Rowan. Christopher began to cry all of a sudden. It was his word that he would not have hurt her, that he loved her. Someone began to cut Clark off. At this point, Chris quickly got up again. Chief Clark told the FBI that had said he thought Christopher was not he thought he would smire a lawyer. Chief Clark talked to the FBI in more detail the next day about Christopher Collins' his family and his connection with him. Christopher knows something what happened. He said, "I should find your body." When Rowan's body was found, the FBI said he wanted him to be the one who took Christopher. Another big break on the next day confirmed everyone's worst fears. David and Christopher both worked in the car business from a corner of the county. Christopher was a mechanic, and even cars old things. Bridges referred to himself as a jack of all trades. Mark said that David called him the first time while he was in the ages were witnessing. I thought I used to be the sheriff, say he. David told over and over that she be friends. Mark said he looked for Rowan with David on November 8th. According to reports, he had him where and found him. It was taken outside to look, as if Christopher was to blame for everything. He asked David to be held second. I said I would suspect Chris might be involved with this. And if you were Chris, what would you do with my body? He pondered a bit. It was a suggestion they go look, and he did. The first place he took me was a hole in the ground. What did the hole in the ground mean? Spotted fox. I saw some items that wasn't to me, said her. I was sure they were. David and I had a conversation about it. He definitely wanted to search the cave. And subconsciously, they did too. He took me to the cave for a reason. After that, the FBI came down to the sheriff's department. On November 9th, around 8 a.m., Daddy's my call, and he went there. Discovered a child's body below the surface. Sheriff of the county said I was there when it was found, but I don't think anyone had any doubt it was a murder. Rowan had raped, which was proven by autopsy reports. She had died from being strangled. There were small cuts in her body that showed they had been hurt before she died. They also found serious wounds on her face, most likely being thrown into the pit. Clark heard that Rowan's body had been found when he turned the news on November 9th. Later, his boss told him that Christopher had been there and wanted to. The FBI told Chief Clark to find Christopher and tell him they found Rowan right away, but Chief Clark couldn't find Christopher. His phone rang, and it was looking for. Chief Clark told him he didn't know anything about spying when he asked the police to follow him in a gray minivan. Christopher said he got scared and threatened, and had tried all the area to get rid of the feeling. Christopher wanted to meet him, but Chief Clark told him to go to the police station. He agreed to drive Chief Clark to the police station in his car. They met. Well, son, it's over. He found Rowan's body this morning. Just hearing the words made Christopher's eyes well up and his head dropped. Christopher knew what it had done, and that was what the main person was thinking. Please tell the truth, he begged him. Christopher was surprised by what he saw, because there were so many people in the apartment. Christopher didn't want to talk to anyone else, so to my mission, it was only a few miles away. It was important for Chief Clark to let the police know where they were going. Christopher held out his hand when he got to the bridge, ready to be handcuffed. People told him it wasn't necessary, so he said, because of what I'm about to tell you, you will. As they sat on the slope by the bridge, Christopher told the same story he had been telling all week until he and David left his caravan. They had used back roads to avoid getting caught by the drone. He said he informed her that he quickly used his friend in leaving him before Nathan and return. He got the land quickly. Driving down the highway was the fastest way to get there. Her goal was to get room. He picked her up and run, took her outside, and put her in his truck while she slept there. She was still sleeping to his caravan. In case he recognized his voice, he began his inside. He raped her, and then he was going to take her home. As she walked, he held her arms and turned away from him so she didn't see him. While she was walking, she turned up in his eyes. They used to hold her as she knew it was him. The man called Chris. He said he freaked out and was rowing a pickup truck near the property. By using this, he killed Rowan for a strangler. In the bed of his truck, he put her after saying he knew he was in a lot of trouble. He said he was going to throw her body off Money Bridge, but changed his mind because he was afraid she would be found quickly. He drove her around to her right until he decided to escape. He threw her body at the sinkhole and tried to hide the holes open with branches. The hole was too big. Later, he drove home. On the arrival, he saw blood on his clothing mat. Put pants, pajamas, rope, his own clothes in himself, burn them, and get rid of the roof. His friends rolled the mattress up and put the drum. I got to think about going to make a hell of a fire. Somebody's going to see the he stated. Following this, he took the drum to the bar and lit it on fire. The story is awful, and finding out how much Rowan hurt, and he burst to go. Christopher and Chief Clark went back to the police station, so the other officers heard what he had said. He was right again, and he told this to everybody in Newton County. There, with the FBI story again. Also, he signed papers saying his property would be checked. After that, he was taken to the very sheriff's department and gave a statement again. This time, it was recorded on video. It was his fault, he said, and he had been crying like a baby all afternoon. The police were shocked when they heard the statement. They thought Christopher knew that David killed Rowan. After learning more, they told again, and this time he admitted guilt, which you can see more confusing. David said she checked on Rowan and found that she was not there when he went in. He told Colt that he knew Chris had taken her to his house. She was raped by Chris when he got there. She also raped him. Afterward, they believed they were in danger, so they killed her and threw her in a hole. He said first he was starting on, but now we know that they took her body away from the scene of crime. David told cops that Chris gave him the rope and that he used to kill Rowan. I choked her with it. I realized she's gone. She's gone, said he. The transcript shows they talked to her again. I told him what David said. Christopher was sure that David had nothing to do with the crime or the events that followed. It involved two people. One from 9, the other had anything to do with it. This already difficult case has become even harder to understand. The Documentary County Sheriff McAfee said the lawyer said that both of them had raped her. It was clear and choked her. It was partly based on what Christopher said. T. Youngs and David Spears were both charged with first-degree murder, statutory rape, and forcible rape. Epperly and Christopher were charged with kidnapping, not David, because it was their formal body. The Berry County Jail held them both without bond. Over time, David's mother talked to her son while he was in jail. He told her that he had been involved in crime, but that he had passed out and was only now remembering what had happened. She broke down in tears and said, he's not one and only son. His brother, Greg, said he believed it. He's so upset. He loved her so much. I don't believe he could do something like this. He got 3 kids of his own. 2 appeared in court in Catholic County, Missouri. The 2 were arrested on Monday. 2 days after Ford's bike about 10 miles from home. According to investigators, both men had been taking part in the crime. A day in court entered pleas not guilty. Today, Spears calls her Heather, wearing both wrist and leg shackles. Ford and Colleen Spears was also in court today, joined by some family members. While many in the community of Stock continue to be in hope justice, they had attend court proceedings this morning. I want to, but a heart like Colleen said, I want to go over there and look at those guys. Colleen asked David for a divorce on November 27th. Bill, the mayor of town, said she was upset about the press. She's not feeling anything. She had nothing to do. She's in there right now. He's listening to make something for the funeral of her baby. Some people around school had picked up a tree in her honor the morning before the funeral, and her friends had with message to them. There was an angel there to mark her birthday and the day she was found. She was very gospel house. Her favorite song, The Old Rugged Cross, was sung. More than 300 people were there. In wake of his death, the minister told people to put and aside. Colleen said David Spears would say they were not guilty. Christopher was out for trial, which means that the court thought there was a reason to bring this to the trial court. Its lawyers asked that the trial be moved from very guilty to less guilty because of all the attention from the media. This was agreed upon. The court would be changed because he and Christopher were being tried separately. Because this case is so complicated, it won't go to court for a few years. Then there was some bad news. The charge is statutory, but forcibly first to be against David. Spears were after he talked to him with the Attorney General's office, and proof came from outside lab. Johnny Cox, the prosecuting attorney for Perry County, and David came to an agreement on a deal. David was in 4 years in prison for obstructing justice and 7 years for endangering a child. Both punishments were harsher could be given those crimes. It was not an easy choice, the prosecuting attorney said. Pointing out that David had admitted to murder soon after he was first arrested. This case almost consumed the resources of my office for the last 4 years and 10 months. He noted it has been long since this case was the last heard. David Spears was linked to murder and rape from court, but evidence of this murder is destroyed. Since then, no new proof linking Mr. Spears to the crime has been found. He said that the testing analysis of the proof did not show that David was guilty. It was also not match what he had said before. A rape test was from this event, it was taken during the autopsy, and after looked at the independent lab, the state police lab, and the FBI lab. It matched what Christopher said had happened that night, what the results from the separate lab showed. Cox also pointed out that David's claim that he killed Rowan didn't make sense. The fact that there's no evidence that could be used in court raises new concerns and questions about David Spears' police. He said Christopher had always denied that anyone else was involved in killing Rowan. This is what he said in both his first and last interviews. Cox said that Christopher Collins needed to strangling him on Ford beyond the police. Cox was worried that he would have to defend Christopher's account of what happened that night, while also defending David's account, which went against Christopher's. Another worry was that it could have been possible for David's case to be thrown out if he was found guilty of a serious crime, and for Christopher's case to be thrown out, too. Cox said that the state would not accept either result. This type of crime should outrage everyone. He said, I felt terrible when I first heard about it. He said, prosecutor, the Minister of Justice must follow the law, the truth, and what is fair and just. Robert Madison, the sheriff, felt that Cox had made a choice. There was no physical evidence that would have supported convicting Spears, the judge. So he knew it was for him. The prosecutor did what he had to do. He said, and he solely did it by himself. He had supported Collins as the killer. Similar things were said in Spears' confession, but there were some problems with proof Collins did. But he saw all the questions. Madison asked, why would someone say they did such a terrible thing? The public wants to know. There's no way to answer that either. I agree with what the lawyer said. I was really not sure if he was ever guilty. I was sure the case would be bad. He could have been found guilty. Because Collins later put in a press, which meant that the evidence, all of his statements to police investigation, as well as evidence from his trailer, truck, and body, should be used at trial. He told no. It would take weeks for Collins. Christopher's lawyers said that he had a lot of problems and couldn't act emotionally with the people. His parents neglected a lot, and he was traumatized by being foster care. Christopher, the sixth kid, and the youngest. All of this was headed out of foster care. His parents were criminals and drug addicts. He would become a father later on, but his drug and alcohol would cause him a lot of trouble. His lawyers told the judge he had no plans to kill Rowan. They asked the jury to ignore the crime. Scenes shown in the autopsy photographs of Rowan's age, and instead focus on the facts, which he said showed that he had no plans to do this. She was sitting back outside, still no clothing on, and no waist down. How painful would the injury have been? Very painful, they noted. Colleen, Rowan's mother, was one of the people who would testify in court after they learned she had killed. What kind of impact did that have on you at the time? Asked the judge. Totally devastated myself and my other children, she told him. Rowan's sister said that she fell to the floor when she heard their sister had been killed. She said that the whole family became very sad. At last, this horrific trial was over. On March 20th, the jury gave their decision. We, the jury, find defendant Christopher Collins guilty of murder in first degree. If possible to give that sentence in this case, the penalty phase would be very important. During the punishment part of the case, the state judge comes to witnesses about how the crime affected the victims. Christopher's team brought in 3 witnesses who said David might have been involved in the killing. A person who studies human development also said he had not been mentally cared for at all in the first 6 months of his life, which slowed his growth. Edward said Christopher had trouble figuring out how to connect with other people. Because of this, he was diagnosed with serious disorganized associated with disorder and treatment exploit personality disorders. After the punishment for disorder, the jury suggested that the person be put to death. After that, there were a number of challenges. On July 23rd, 2012, Christopher's lawyers sent to the Missouri Supreme Court. They were appealing the sentence. When it comes to death penalty cases in Missouri, these kinds of appeals are automatically made. In 2014, his decision was turned down. Another appeal made by Christopher. This time, to his term cut down to life in prison. This was turned down. He asked the Missouri Supreme Court for an order of habeas corpus. If this was approved, he would be able to show proof the government didn't tell them in their main witnesses. Wheaton Chief Clinton Clark had a criminal record from when he went in Vietnam. Government and Chief Clark's record being made public would not change the result. What was going on for years while the arguments went on? He was freed in 2015 after being locked up more than 7 years. He got a job at the Missouri State Public Defender Office. He was the husband of his trial lawyer soon after he got out of jail, but not to the end of his mission. He had to work there for 18 months before his probation ended. Both Christopher and David had lawyers in the defender office. Lawyers Christopher said that David's job as public defender needed a conflict of interest that made it impossible for their client to plead with charges. His lawyers said in the papers there might be a conflict because they had mixed feelings or were afraid of how Mr. Collins would react to the conflict. They didn't tell the court Mr. Collins about it. Mr. Collins himself didn't know about the claim, and after his conviction process was over, it wasn't shared with him. Christopher's case clemency was based on the fact that he had a brain disorder that made it hard for him to be here, make decisions, and think things through. He also said that he'd been sexually abused as a kid. Others said it's left the person hurt, and without any instructions on how to become a useful adult. The clemency said David Spears admitted to killing Rowan. The transcript of Spears' interview showed that he told police that Christopher gave him the rope, and that he killed Rowan. The Missouri Supreme Court set an execution date for an accused of raping and murdering a 9-year-old girl in southwest Missouri. In 2012, jury hit Christopher Collins in 2007 murder of Rowan of Stella, Missouri. Investigators Collins Ford's body to a sinkhole in Untold. The Supreme Court today set his execution for December 3rd. Christopher Collins was doomed from the start when his appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court was turned down. His request for clemency was turned down by Governor Mike Martin. Martin used to be a sheriff and had been in charge of 12 killings. He had reviewed the sentence of anyone. Christopher was said to have been distinct at the Marble on December 3rd, 2024, and killed. Newton County Sheriff's Wings was one people running the investigation and said he thought he had been coming for a long time. I hope the state would come out and charge. I asked to be present at the execution. I thought it was the best thing for Rowan to do. He also told her she'd never get full justice. I'd like to see more done and some of the other charges dropped, but this is how it turned out. It's been a long time. I'm glad the date has finally been set. Christopher was going to be put on 3.24. At 5:54, the people who were on the execution stand were moved in place. Among them, 4 members of the defense, 4 members of the media, a witness, and 2 family members of Rowan. Andrew Bailey, who was the Attorney General of Missouri, told the Department of Corrections at 6 p.m. there were legal problems with the execution. Christopher Collins was announced 9 minutes after that. Christopher Rowan was read aloud after his death. Right or wrong, I accept this situation for what it is. For anyone hurt in this life, I hope you put this behind you and move on. No matter what side you're on, know that I pray for you and look forward to seeing you in heaven one day. Was after Christopher Collins was put to death, the sheriff said he thought this let Rowan down. It's too bad that the police were called. Even though there are a lot of points on her position, if we knew about that, I'd like that we would take her out of that position. I guess the end of this case must be signed. There is injustice, but it's a little take I can get. If this case can forget, the police says a shockwave to Southwest Missouri. Just terrible. And someone to take a life and throw down in a cave like a piece of dirt. It's terrible. Do you feel like justice deserves this? I think it has. She didn't deserve this. It'll give some satisfaction to the family. Maybe he got what he deserved. There are so many people who are in this case. It'll never go away. Sheriff Jennings said it was a terrible crime. He's 44 years old. He had worked a lot worse. It's not even the hardest. This is Rowan's school ID, and I've had it in my pocket ever since it happened. After this, I'll still keep it in my pocket. He said the case changed how they looked into crimes against children. In the county, we deal with a lot of cases of child abuse and neglect. Of course, we always save children first. We hate to get from our homes, but we have to do it if there's no other choice. The event is in our minds here. Rowan's death still had an effect on many people in her neighborhood. A teacher named Todd Hall, who had testified at trial, said he wouldn't clean up desk for a while after she died. I think every teacher would want that kind of kid. She'd go to school. It's all work. It was all about what Rowan could do, move on in life. Tyler's Rowan's best friend. Tyler's mom was about the time they spent together, and how Rowan's shyness helped keep Rosie's on call. It's the most losing my own child I felt in a long time. He still talks about her, so I couldn't see myself. Her bigger sister will always remember. I love Rowan. I'm so proud of the woman she became. When my sister died, I died. Thanks for watching. If this is shocked or heartbroken, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware. The detectives said something wrong, and this time, his instincts were finally right. A night vanished overnight, leaving a trail of fear, confusion, and devastating questions. On November 2007, in Missouri, the child had not seen or heard from different days. On November 3rd, a 9-year-old girl disappeared from Meadow. The small town where she was last seen was worried crazy. There were a lot of dead ends, and no one knew where she was or what had happened until someone gave them a People told the police of Fox Cave in Donald County. Fox Cave was said to be one of the cave. It was about 30 feet from the road in a very wooded area. Sheriff Stephanie called and JP went over to look. 20 feet below, they found a child body ledge. Before we got here, let me know if you're watching from. I am loving for viewers around the world. And if you're into true crimes like this one, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a load. Alright, let's get back to the case. In Slum, Missouri, there were not more than 200 people living. Rowan Ford was one of those who decided to hold home. Rowan was born on April 11th, 1998, in 9-year life. In 4th grade, she worked hard and was happy. She enjoyed reading, drawing, and writing her Bible time. She really enjoyed going to church and would often rise early to the pastor and sing up. When she came home, she was always sitting on the steps and smiling. In addition to angel food babies, she went to Sunday school. She was crazy about Barbie and her piano joint, but things weren't always easy for Rowan. She often had lies. Her hair would be tangled, and even though it was cold in the winter, she sometimes went to school without socks on. Even so, she worked very hard in school, and she loved having her in their class. She always did her best, even when she was having trouble in Southern Math. One teacher said of her, she is a little sunshine and the sweetest girl you could ever meet. 2 older brothers and 1 younger sister raised Rowan because she was shy. She would sometimes hide behind her bigger sister. When she finally spoke up, her sister said to Rowan, Rowan, she's very special. No one did like her. Rowan had a 44-year-old mother, Colleen, and her 25-year-old stepfather, 8 years. In addition to being a husband, David was also a father. He was supposed to pay $29 in child support in 2005, but it wasn't clear if he was asleep. Rowan would always be ready for Colleen when she got home from work. She went out into the driveway and saw her shift had gone. Nevertheless, Rowan wasn't there on November 3rd, 2007. When Colleen was inside, she thought Rowan might be in bed reading. She often did. Although she was there, she wasn't even on land. While David was sitting on the couch, she asked him where she was. He disclosed that she was at home friend, but he did not specify which friend. David told Colleen she had to be at a friend's house. He called the cops. Colleen waited with David for a few hours for a phone call. They let her know she was there. It was very quiet, and what didn't call. After that, they called the but couldn't find her. Was it Rowan's missing? It's 5 p.m. It was murdered, and very quickly a huge search began. Many people in Stella came out. A lot of people from the neighborhood came out to look for her. There's a lot of time running out when child goes missing, so to find Rowan, they had to first figure out where she was at for, with whom, and most importantly, who was the last person or people to see her. Rowan had been with her stepfather, David, while they were at the owner shift at Walmart. David told police he had been out the night November 2nd with his friends, Krista and Nathan. He had left her there by herself, while she slept in the front of her bedroom. After getting home around midnight, he said he didn't check Rowan, but things would change in the end. He told the police that he went out sometime around 1:30 a.m. in an attempt to take her SUV. He called his mom. His mom said she didn't check on Rowan while she waited for her to come back. She just watched TV. There was one thing that the police didn't like about David. He wouldn't say where he had been that night, or why he had been gone for hours. He admitted he should not have left her alone, and said he had told police first, because he was afraid they would think he was involved. Newton County Sheriff Jennings said it was very strange that he didn't report her missing until 8 hours after she was last seen. He needed to talk to David and Christopher to see if their stories matched in order to get a better idea of what happened. The police talked to Nathan, and he told them that he, Christopher, and David had met at a farm where they were working. After going to the store, they went home by pool. Around 8:30 p.m. Colleen would work. Later that night, Christopher had Nathan to drive him home, and he went with him. Rowan stayed at the house alone. They continued to drink and smoke pot. When they got to Christopher's caravan, they had bought more alcohol and made there. After about an hour, Nathan and David left to go home. Nathan didn't want to be pulled over for driving while drunk, so he took back roads instead of the highway. After dropping it off, Nathan got home by midnight. Christopher Collins, David's friend, who was with Rowan when she was last seen, told officers the same thing Nathan did, but he left out the park. This happened on November 4th the next day. He went to sleep in his caravan, and he stayed there. David and he hadn't talked, and he didn't know Rowan was missing. Stella's neighborhood kept looking for her till the FBI joined the investigation the next day. A lot of police officers from 3 counties, 5 experts, and Missouri State Highway Patrol, and FBI agents all worked together to find her. While David was still being pursued by deputies, FBI agents took his car and his car, which he had borrowed that night. Around the same time, Newton County officers went to Christopher's workplace and asked him to answer a few more questions. He stated his means, and went to the sheriff's office bar. He also agreed to a polygraph test and a computer voice analysis, which checked someone's voice to see if they're telling the truth. He told them he had no idea where it was and offered to help find her. Wheaton Police Chief Clinton Clark was out on a regular patrol that afternoon. Commissioner Clark had known Christopher for 17 years. Christopher leaved him and would ask for his support even after his mother died. Christopher pulled him over and told him that Rowan had been missing and he was helping to look for her. Clark, the chief, said Christopher was himself and was excited. That's when Chief Clark told the FBI that Christopher had told him Rowan was lost. He thought Christopher might know something. The FBI told him to keep talking to Christopher because he would help make it good. In addition, Christopher told the FBI that he thought David had something to do with Rowan's disappearance and offered to wear a wire to help with the probe. In fact, he told them where they could look for Rowan. The lost rate in a small town very hard, and people were scared and confused if it was only natural. The day Rowan disappeared, the last time Can Marshall, as she read the small saw it. She saw Rowan's hair needed to be brushed, so they brushed it and put it in a neat knot for a 30-minute floor class. Rowan was still there, but Tammy went to check on her. Later that day, when she was by herself, she skipped by. She went by missing and looked so happy, like everything was with her. People were David, Christopher, and Nathan, because they were the last ones to see her. Investors said Christopher was helpful, great, and polite. In the evening, he went to see Colleen, offer his help, and find out Christopher and David had been friends for a long time. Chris actually lived in the basement with family for a few months that year. Rowan asked him to help her with work, and even called him uncles. Christopher was so dead. He had 3 kids. Their 10-year-old lived in Arkansas with their mom. Christopher went to his family's farm in October 2007 and lived in a caravan there. Search for Rowan was refocused on David Spears on November 6th, 3 days after she reported missing. A lot of people had talked to him and searched his house. Chris went to Chief Clark's office in the early evening. The FBI talked to him and asked for suggestions on where to look. Captain Clark thought Christopher was thinking about something and said he looked scared. It was odd that Christopher would look him in the eyes. When Chief Clark called the FBI, he told them about the dog. If Christopher was guilty, he needed to confess. The FBI thought he would probably tell Chief Clark. That's why they asked Chief Clark to help with the investigation, and Chief Clark agreed. Christopher met with the FBI at the Newton County Sheriff's Department on November 7th and agreed to give a swab or saliva sample DNA testing. He also gave Christopher's house and the safe he had a date toss to be checked. The man told the FBI that David's story about something else to do the night Rowan went missing was not true. Christopher kept David in when he was asked about the missing child during the conversation. He told the agents that he would not be willing to talk to them anymore if they would say they had something to do with Rowan missing. The interview ended there. Afterward, but the Chief Clark was very excited about the interview. If it came to anything else, he said he would climb up and have him need to take the collection. Chief Clark told him he would do what he wanted, but also told him Christopher to do everything he could to help find Rowan. He had no reason to stop helping the probe. Chief Clark made sure to tell Christopher was under arrest because he knew how important it was to follow the rules. Christopher said, "If I had anything else to say, I'll talk to you." Christopher read the terms of release and talking. Chris Clark was feeling down, so Chief Clark asked if he knew anything about what had happened to Rowan. Christopher began to cry all of a sudden. It was his birthday, he would not have heard her and he loved her. Someone came and cut the talk off. At this point, Chris quickly got up and left again. Chief Clark told the FBI what had happened and said that he thought Christopher was about to miss him. He thought he would soon hire a lawyer. Chief Clark talked to the FBI in more detail the next day about Christopher Collins' family and his connection with him. Christopher might know something about what happened, he said. They should first find your body. When Rowan's body was found, the FBI said they wanted him to be the one who talked to Christopher. Another big break would come today, confirming about more spheres. David and Christopher both worked in cars for Bridges, coroner in Newton County. Christopher worked at the county, and David had some experience with cars and sold things. Bridges referred to him as a jack of all trades. Mark said David had called him for the first time while he was on duty the day she was reported missing. Like he first thought he used to be the sheriff, he could help see. David told me over and over that she might be at a friend's house. Mark said he phoned with David on November 8th. According to reports, the FBI did him while a plane following him. It was David who went outside for it, as if Christopher was delaying for anything. He asked David to be the outside. I said I would suspect Chris might be involved with this, and if you were Chris, what would you do with Rowan's body? He pondered it. It was my suggestion that they could look. And they did. First they took me to the hole in the ground. What did the hole in the ground mean? Spot I saw items that brought suspicions to me, said Mark. I wasn't sure what they were. David and I had a conversation about it at the time. I definitely want to search the cave. And I think actually that David did too. He took me to the cave for a reason. After that, the FBI contacted the Untold County Sheriff's Department. November 9th, around 8 a.m., deputies Michael and Jake B.S. went there to search. They saw Child's body, alleged 20 feet below the surface. Chris Jennings, sheriff of Newton County, said, I wasn't there when it was found, but I don't think anyone ended up that it was a murder. Rowan had been proven by the autopsy reports. She had died from strangling. There were small cuts and bruises on her body that showed they had hurt before she died. They also found serious wounds on her wrists, most likely thrown in the pit. Chief Clark heard that Rowan's body had been found when he heard the news on November 9th. Later, his son told him Christopher had been there and wanted to do him. The FBI told Chief Clark to find Christopher and told him they found Rowan right away. But Chief Clark couldn't find Christopher. His phone rang, and it was a man he was looking for. Chief Clark told him he didn't know anything about swing. He asked if he was following him and bringing him in. Christopher said he got scared and had been driving all over the area to get rid of the feeling. Christopher lead him, but Chief Clark told him to go to the police station. He agreed to drive Chief Clark to the police station in his patrol car when they met. Wilson is over. He found Rowan on his way. Hearing those words, Christopher's eyes went up and his head dropped. Christopher looked at him, and that was the main person was thinking. Please tell the truth, he begged him. Christopher was surprised at what he saw, because there's so many people in the department. Christopher didn't want to talk to anyone else, so he didn't reach. He was only a few miles from Wheaton. It was important for Chief Clark to let police know where they were going. Christopher held out his hands when they got to the bridge, ready to handcuff. People told him that was necessary, so he said, because of what I'm about to tell you, you will. As they got on the slide bridge, Christopher told the same story they'd been telling all week, and something David looked his heart at. They had used battles to avoid getting caught for trouble. He said he informed her that he could quickly sit and leaving the area before making the David return. He got to land quickly, driving down the highway, which was the fastest way there. After going to the toilet, he went to the Rowan room. He picked her up from the ground, took her outside, and put her in a box up there. She was still asleep when he got to his caravan. In case she recognized his voice, he didn't say anything as he led her inside. He read her, and then he was going to take her home. As she walked, he held her arms and turned her face away from him, so he couldn't see him. While she was walking, she turned around and saw his face. They used to help her home, and she went to him, the man she called Uncle Chris. He said he freaked out and was roped at the truck near the property. By using this, he killed him forward by striking her. In the truck, he provided her saying he was in trouble. He said that he was going to throw her body off the bridge. He changed his mind because he was afraid that she would be found there quickly. He drove around thinking about where to bury her body until he decided on Foxy. He threw her body into the single and tried to hide the hole with rushes. The hole was too big. Later, he drove home. Upon his arrival, he saw her blood was going to bed. He put her pants, pajamas, rope, and some clothes in the stove, and then into the roof. His plan was to roll the mattress up and put the drone. "I think now that's a hell of a fire. Someone see the burning," he stated. Following this, he took the drone to the barn and lit on fire. The story is awful, and finding out that drone had hurt is worse than God. Christopher G. Clark went back to the police station so that other officers knew what he had to say. He was right in. He told the detectives from Beverly County or there the FBI his story again. Also, he signed a paper saying that his body could be checked. After that, he was taken to the Berry County Sheriff's Department and he was seen again. This time, it was recorded on video. It was his fault, he said, and he had been crying like a baby all afternoon. The police were shocked when they heard the statement because they thought they knew that Dave killed Ruin. After learning more, they talked to Dave again, and this time he didn't make things more confusing. They said he found out if she was not there when he went in. He told them that he knew Chris had taken her to his house. She was being prison about him. She was also rebellion. Afterward, they believed they were in danger, so they killed her and threw her in the hole. He said first he just ran out, but now we know that they were taking her body away from the scene of the crime. David told us that Christopher gave her a rope, and he used it to kill her. "I choked with it. I realized she's gone. She's really gone," said he. The transcript shows that they talked to Christopher again. They told him what they had said, but Christopher was sure they had nothing to do with the crime or the events that followed. It involved two people. One denied that they had anything to do with it. This already difficult case would become even harder to understand. The document at Berry County Sheriff's Department said that the lawyer said that both of them had been. It wasn't clear which. It was partly based on what Christopher said. Steve Collins and David Spears were both charged with first-degree murder, statutory rape, and forcible rape. Beverly thought that Christopher would be charged with kidnapping, but if they had several more yet. Berry County Jail held them both without bond. Over time, David's mother would talk to her son while he was in jail. He told her that he had involved in crime again, but he had passed out, so now remember what happened. She broke down tears and said, "He smiled on his only son, his brother Brett, said he couldn't believe it. He's so sad. He loved her so much. I can't believe he'd do something like this. He's got 3 kids of his own." The two appeared in court in Castle, Berry County, Missouri. The two were arrested on Monday, 3 days after Rumford died. It was about 10 months ago, according to investigators. Both men had been convicted of crime, but today in court, entered police immediately. Today, Spears and Collins were held in court, wearing wristbands and shackles. Former mother, Colleen Spears, also in court today, joined by some family members. Colleen and Community Spot continued to be in justice. They did not attend court proceedings this morning. "I wanted to. My heart wouldn't let me," Colleen said. "I want to go over there and look at those two guys." Colleen asked David for divorce on November 27th. Bill, the mayor of the town, said she was too upset to talk to the press. She's not feeling anything. She has a lot of things to do. She's in there right now, in a sewing machine to make something for the funeral of her baby. Some people from Rome School had a pink dogwood tree in her heart the morning before the funeral, and her friends sent balloons with attached to them. There's also an angel there to mark her birthday, and they sung. She was very apostle answered. Her favorite song, the Old Red Cross song. More than 300 people were there in the wake of Rowan's death. The minister told people their hate and anger aside. Chris Collins and David Spears taking guilty. Christopher was going to go over trial. The means that the court thought there was good reason to bring the case to the trial court. David's lawyers asked that the trial be moved from Berry County to Pulaski County because all the attention from India. This was a reason. The court could be changed because he and Christopher being tried separately. Because the case is so complicated, they won't go to court for a few years. Then there was bad news. The charges of statutory rape, forcible rape, and first-degree murder instead. Spears were dropped after he talked to and consulted the Attorney General's office and proved they never outside that. Johnny Cox, the prosecuting attorney from Berry County, and came to an agreement on a plea deal. It was 4 years in prison for justice and 7 years for indemnity he filed. Both plans were harsh could be given for the crimes. That was not an easy choice, the prosecutor said, pointing out that David had admitted rape and murder soon after he was arrested. This case has always consumed the resources of office for the last 4 years and 10 months. He noted it has been that long since this case was last heard. David Spears was linked to the murder in April 4, but evidence of this is up. Since then, no new proof linking to the crime has been found. He said the testing analysis of the proof did not show that David was guilty, and the results did not match what he said anymore. A test gets part of the evidence. It was during the autopsy. Afterward, look at the independent lab, the police lab, and the FBI lab. It matched what Christopher said that night. What results from the separate lab show? Cox also pointed out that David's claim he had killed alone didn't make sense. The fact that there is no physical evidence can be used in court raises your concerns and question about what Spears told police. He said Christopher had always died, and anyone else was involved in the crime. He's what he said in both his first and last interviews. Cox said Christopher Collins didn't the road for everybody talk police. Cox was worried that he would have to defend Christopher's account of what happened that night, but also defend David's account of what against Christopher's. Another worry was that it could be possible for David's case to be thrown out if he was found to be more serious crimes and for Christopher's case to be thrown out. 2. Cox said that the state would not accept the result. This type of crime should outrage everyone. He stated, "I felt terrible when I first heard about it. That being said, as prosecutor, I'm a minister of justice and must follow the law, truth, and what's fair and just." Robert Davidson, the sheriff, thought that Cox had made the right choice. There was always a place that was appointed convicting David Spears, said the judge. So even if it was hard for him, prosecutor did what he had to do. He said, "I think he's trying to get myself." He has put to Collins as the lawyer. Similar things were said in Spears' discussion, but there were some problems with the proof that Collins did, but it did all the questions. Ensign asked, "Why does someone say he did a terrible thing?" The public wants to know. There's no good answer for that either. I agree with what the lawyer said. I was really not sure if he was ever guilty. I was sure the case would be bad. He would have been found guilty. Chris Collins and moved to suppress, which the evidence of all the statements released during the investigation, as well as the evidence on his property, trailer, truck, and bike should not be used in trial. He told no, it would be charged to Collins. Christopher's lawyer said that he had a lot of problems and couldn't connect emotionally with people, as his parents neglected him a lot. He was traumatized, being in foster care. Christopher, the 6th kid and the youngest. All his siblings ended up in foster care because their parents were criminals and drug addicts. He would become a father later on, but his drug and alcohol trouble would cause him a lot of trouble. His lawyer told the judge he had plans to kill Rowan. He asked the jury to go over the crime seen shown in the autopsy photographs at age, instead focus on the facts, but they said showed they had no plans to do this. Just came back outside, still clothing on from the waist down. How painful would that injury be? Very painful. No. Colleen, William's mother, was told to testify in court after they learned she'd been killed. What kind of impact did that have on the plan? Asked judge. Totally devastated myself and my children. Rowan's sister said she fell floor, but she heard their sister had been killed. He said the whole family gave her his head. At last, this dramatic trial was over. I'm not sure they gave their decision. We, the jury, find defendant Christopher Collins, but the murderers agree. They still give death sentences case. So the penalties very important. During the public part of the case, the state showed comments from witnesses about how crime affected the victims. Christopher's team brought 2 witnesses. Said David had been on building wrong. A person facing beyond also said he had not been taken for the first 6 months of his life, which had slowed growth. Edwards said Christopher trouble figuring out how to connect with other people. Because this, he was diagnosed with serious organized dissociative attachment disorder and became explosive personality disorders. After the public part was over, the jury suggested that the person be put to death. After that, there were no charges. On July 23rd, 2012, Christopher's lawyers sent a letter to the Missouri Supreme Court that they were appealing the death sentence. Because of the death penalty in Missouri, these kinds of appeals are automatic in May. In 2014, a petition was turned on. Another appeal was made by Christopher. This time, his term cut down to life in prison. This was down. He asked the Missouri Supreme Court for an order of habeas corpus. If it was approved, he'd be able to show proof that government didn't tell him one of their main witnesses, Wheaton Chief Clinton Clark, had a criminal record when he was in Vietnam. The government said the chief's record being public, not to change results. What going on for 8 years while the argument went on? He was 15 after being locked up for more than 7 years. He got a job at the Missouri State Public Defender Office. The husband of his trial lawyer soon after he got out of jail, but not before the end of his probation. He had worked there for 18 months before his probation ended. Both Christopher and David had lawyers in the public defender office. Lawyers for Christopher said that David's job as a public defender created a conflict of interest that made it impossible for Clark to plead guilty to lower charges. His lawyers said in their papers that there might be a conflict, but because they had mixed feelings or were afraid of how Mr. Collins would react to the conflict, they didn't tell the court or Mr. Collins about it. Mr. Collins himself didn't know what to claim until after his prosecution process were over. He shared with it. Christopher's case was plenty, but the fact that he had a brain disorder made it harder for him to make decisions and think things through. He also said he had been sexually abused as a kid. The letter said that this left the prisoner and without any instructions on how to become a full adult. The plaintiff said that David Spears admitted to killing one. The transcript of police interview showed that he told police that Christopher gave him a rope and he killed Rowan. The Missouri Supreme Court set an execution date for men accused of raping and murdering a 9-year-old girl in Southwest Missouri. In 2012, under Christopher Collins' 2007 action and murder of 1-4 in South Missouri, investigators say Collins moved the body into a single in McDonough County. The Supreme Court today's execution for December 3rd. Christopher Collins was doomed from the start when his appeal to U.S. Supreme Court turned down, and his request for clemency was turned down by Governor Mike Parson, State Sheriff, had been in charge of 12 killings. He had never given the sentence as legal. Christopher said to have been pen department on December 3rd, 2024, and then killed. Newton County Sheriff Chris Jennings was one of the people who worked on the investigation and said he thought he killed him for a long time. I hope the state government is in charge. I asked to investigate the execution. I thought it was the best thing for Rowan to do. He also told her she would never get full justice. I'd like to see more done and some of the other charges dropped, but this is how it turned out. It's been a long time. I'm glad the date has finally been set. Christopher was going to be put to death on December 3rd, 2024. At 5:54, the people were on the execution stand removed his place. Among them were 4 members of the defense team, 4 members of the media, 8 state witnesses, and 2 family members of Rowan. Henry, who was the attorney general of his state, told the Department of Corrections at 6 p.m. that there were no legal problems with any execution. Christopher Collins, 29, was pronounced dead 9 minutes after that. Christopher wrote a letter was read out loud after he was dead. You were wrong. I accept the situation for what it is. I'm sorry to anyone in life. I hope you can look behind you and move on. No matter what side you're on, know that I pray for you and look forward to seeing you in heaven one day. It was after Christopher Collins' good death. Sheriff Jennings said he thought Smith had Rowan down. He's trapped the policeman called, even had a lot of warning signs on her position. If we thought that, I don't think we would take her that position. I guess the end of this case was peace of mind. It's justice, but it's only a little. I'll take what I can get. It's one of the cases that you never forget. Makeup really says the case shocked me to Southwest Missouri. Just terrible. It's somebody take life and throw down into a cave like a piece of dirt. It's terrible. Do you feel like justice deserved this? I think yeah. I think yes. She didn't deserve any of this. It'll give some satisfaction to the family. Maybe he got what he deserved. There are so many people involved in this case that it will never go away. Sheriff Jennings said it was a terrible crime. He's 44 years on the job, he had worked on but this one hit him hardest. This is old school lady, and I've had it in my pocket ever since that happened. After this, I'll still keep it in my pocket. He said the case changed how they did crimes against children. In Newton County, we deal with a lot of cases of child abuse and neglect. Of course, we always put the safety of children first. We hate taking kids from their homes, but we have to do it if there's no choice. This event is always on our minds here. Rowan's death still had an effect on the people in her neighborhood. A teacher named Todd Hall, who attested at the trial, he couldn't clean up mess for a while after she died. I think every teacher would want that kind of kid. She did go to school, did all that work. It was all Rowan could do to move in life. Tyler was Rowan's best friend. Tyler's mom talked about the time spent together and how Rowan's friends keep her noise son calm. It's most likely my own child felt it a long time. He still talks about her, so my son couldn't sleep by himself. Her sister will always remember and love Rowan. I'm so proud of the woman she became. And I said, a piece of me out. Thanks for watching. If this kept you shocked or heartbroken, don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comment below. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware. The detectives got something wrong. This time, his instincts were terrifyingly right. A 9-year-old died overnight, leaving behind a trail of fear, confusion, and death intentions. On November 9th, 2007, in Missouri, a child had not been seen or heard from in a few days. On November 3rd, a 9-year-old girl escaped from her bedroom. The small town of Stella, where she was last seen, was worried crazy. There were a lot of dead ends, and no one knew where she was when it happened until someone gave a tip. Although police go to Fox Cave in County. Fox Cave was said to be more like a pit than a cave. It was not free from the road and in a very wooded area. Sheriff said he left all GPs over to look. 20 feet below, in a child's body on a ledge. Before we got here, let me know in comments where you're watching from. I love hearing from groups around the world. And if you're into true crime stories like this one, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss an upload. Alright, let's get back to the case. In Stella, Missouri, there were no more than 200 people living. Rowan Ford was one of those who decided to call home. Rowan was born April 11, 1998, in the 9th year of life. In 4th grade, she worked hard in society. She enjoyed reading, drawing, and writing her Bible study. She thoroughly enjoyed going to church, but often was early to assist pastors and up. When she came home, she always sitting on steps and silent. In addition to Angel Ministries, she went to Sunday school. She was crazy about Barbie, and her people showed it. But things weren't always easy for Rowan. She often had less. Her hair would get tangled. And even though it was cold in Missouri in the winter, she sometimes went to school without socks on. Even so, she worked very hard in school, and teachers loved having her in the class. She always did her best, even when she was having trouble with something in math. Older ever, she is a little sunshine, and a sweet girl with her mate. Two older brothers, and one younger sister raised wrong because she was shy. She would sometimes hide behind her big sister. But when she finally spoke up, her sister said Rowan up. Rowan, she was very special. No one didn't like her. Rowan lived with her 44-year-old mother, Colleen, and her 25-year-old stepfather, James Spears. In addition to being a husband, David was also a father. He was supposed to pay $9 child support in 2005. It was unclear if he ever saw his kid. Rowan would always be ready for Colleen when she got home from work. She would run out into the driveway to see how her shift had gone. Nevertheless, Rowan wasn't there on November 3rd, 2007. When Colleen went inside, she thought Rowan might be remembering, as she often did. Although she wasn't there, she wasn't even on land. While David was sleeping on the couch, she asked him where she was. He disclosed that she was the home of a friend, but he did not specify which friend. David told Colleen she had to be at a friend's house when she called the cops. Colleen waited with David for a few hours for a phone call and learned no she was there. It was very quiet. They weren't getting a call. After that, they looked the area but couldn't find her. There was a tip that Rowan was missing. At 6:50 p.m., an Amber alert. Very quickly, a huge search began. Many people in Stella came to help. A lot of people from the neighborhood came to look for her. There's a lot of time right now to try was missing, but they could find Rowan. They had first figured out where she was the night before, with whom, and most importantly, who was the last person or people to see her. Rowan had been with her stepfather, David, on work the overnight shift at Walmart. They told the police he had been up on the night of November 2nd, his friends, Christopher and Nathan. He had left her there by herself. She slept on the floor of her room. After getting home around midnight, he said he did shock Rowan, but things were changing then. He told police to get out a second time around the in an attempt to take her to V. He calls his mom. His mom said she didn't shock Rowan while she waited for her to come back. She does watch TV. There was one thing that the police didn't like about David. He wouldn't say where he had been that night, or why he had gone for hours. He admitted he did not enter alone, and said he told police first because he was afraid they would think he was involved. Newton County Sheriff Chris Jennings said it was very strange that he didn't report missing until 8 or 10 hours after the last scene. They needed to talk to Nathan Lucifer to see if the story was met in order to get a better idea of what had happened. The police to Nathan. He told him Christopher, and David met at a farm they were working. After going to a booze bar, they went home to play pool around 8:30 p.m. Colleen went to work. Later that night, Christopher asked David to drive home, and David went with him. Rowan stayed at the house alone. They continued to drink and smoke way out to Christopher, and they had bought more alcohol on the way there. After about an hour, Ann and David left to go home. David didn't want to be pulled over driving broke, so he took that instead of the highway. After dropping David off, Nathan got home by midnight. Christopher calls David's friend, who was Rowan last seen, told us the same thing Nathan did, but he left out about smoking pot. This happened on November 4th next day. He went to sleep in his caravan and said he stayed there. David and he hadn't talked, and he didn't know that Rowan was missing. Still was neighborhood looking for her after the FBI joined the investigation the next day. A lot of police officers from 3 police, 50 experts, and the state highway patrol, and FBI agents all worked together to find her. While David was still being questioned by police, FBI agents took his car and his mother's car, which he had borrowed at night. Around the same time, the county officers went to Christopher's workplace and asked him to answer a few questions. He stayed agreed and went to their office by car. He agreed to polygraph test the computer witness analysis, which checks on ways to see her telling the truth. He told him he had no idea what one was and offered to find her. Wheaton Police Chief Clint Clark was out on a regular patrol one afternoon. Commissioner Clark, known Christopher for 17 years. Christopher believed in him and asked for help and support, even after his mother died. Christopher pulled him over and told him that Rowan had gone missing, and he told him to look for her. Clark, Chief, said Christopher wasn't himself and was sick. So when Chief Clark told the FBI that Christopher told him Rowan was lost, he thought Christopher might know something. The FBI told Chief Clark to Christopher, but he said he would make way good. In addition, Christopher told the FBI that he thought David had something to do with Rowan's disappearance and offered to wire to help with the boat. In fact, he told them where they could look for Rowan. The loss hit the small town very hard, and many people were scared and confused. It was only mental. They Rowan disappeared was lost by Tam Marshall, a teacher at the school. Saw her. She saw his hair and needed to brush. They brushed it and put it in a knot 3 minutes before class. Rowan was still there. When Emma checked her hair later that day, when she by herself, she said, "Hi." She went by me skating and she was so happy, like everything's fine with her. People were David, Christopher, and Evan, because they were the last ones to see her. Investigators said Christopher was off, and polite. In the evening, he went to see Colleen to offer his help and find out how her search was going. Christopher and David had been friends for a long time. Chris had actually lived in the basement, family for a few months that year. Rowan asked him to help him explore, and he called him Uncle Chris. Christopher was also dead. He had 3 kids, 7 years old, who lived in Arkansas with their mom. Christopher went to his family farm in October 2007 and lived in a caravan there. The search for Rowan was focused on David's disappearance November 6th, 3 days after he was reported missing. A lot of people had popped in and searched his house. Chris went to Chief Clark's office in the early evening to tell him the FBI had popped in and asked for questions so to look. Captain Clark thought Christopher was thinking about something and said he was scared. It was odd that Christopher would look in the eyes. When Chief Clark called the FBI, he told them about the talk. Christopher was guilty and did confess. The FBI thought he would bully Chief Clark. That's why they asked Chief Clark to help the investigate, and Chief Clark agreed. Christopher met the FBI and the Sheriff's Department on November 7th and agreed to give a saliva sample DNA testing. He also gave permission for his house as if he had David's house to be checked. The man told the FBI that David's story about having something else to do than not when missing was not true. Christopher became nervous and emotional, and he was asked about the missed child during the competition. He told the agents that he would not be willing to talk to them anymore if they were going to say that he had something to do with her going missing. The interview ended there. Afterward, he went to see Chief Clark, who was very sad on the interview. If it came to anything else, he said he would climb up and added that he might need to take the ocean. Chief Clark told him he would do what he wanted, and also that Christopher should do anything he could to find Rowan. He had reasons to help him with the probe. Chief Clark made sure to tell Christopher his Miranda rights, because he knew how important it was to follow the rules. Christopher said, "If I have anything else to say, I'll talk to you." Christopher read the terms of the release and kept talking. Chris Clark lay down. So Chief Clark asked if he knew anything about what happened to Rowan. Christopher began to cry all of a sudden. It was his word he might have heard and nailed her. Someone began to cut talk off. At this point, Chris quickly got up and left him. Chief Clark told the FBI that happened and said that Christopher was about to lose him. He thought he would soon out loud. Chief Clark talked to the FBI in detail next day about Christopher Cohen's family, his connection with him. Christopher might know something about what happened, he said, but Christopher's found your body. When Moses was found, the FBI said they wanted him to be the one who caught Christopher. Another big break would come the next day, confirming everyone's worst fears. David and Christopher both worked in the car business for Mark Bridges, according to Newton County. Christopher worked as a mechanic and had some experience cautions of things. Bridges referred to himself as Jack of all trades. Mark said David called him for the first time while he was on the day she was reporting him. "I guess he thought I used to be the sheriff. Hell," said he. David told him over and over that she might be at a friend's house. Mark said he looked for Rowan with David on November 8th. According to reports, the FBI had him wired up and a plane followed him. It was David who went outside to look for him. And if Christopher was playing for everything, he asked David to be the other side of it. "I said I would suspect Chris might be involved with this. And if you were Chris, what would you do with Rowan's body?" He pondered it. It was a suggestion that he could look, and he did. First, I see it was on the ground. I did the hole in the ground. I saw some items that brought suspicions to me. I wasn't sure what they were. David had a conversation on it at that time. I definitely wanted to search the cave, and I said cautiously that David did too. He took me to the cave for a reason. After that, the FBI contacted the County Sheriff's Department. On November 9th, or 8 a.m., deputies called KPS and their search. They discovered a child's body alleged to be below the surface. Proceedings, Sheriff of the county said, "I wasn't there in the body found, but I don't think anyone had been murdered. Rowan had been raped, driven by the house boards. She died from strangling. There were small cuts and bruises on her body. It showed the if she died. They also found serious wound on her face, most likely for being thrown into the pit. Chief Clark Rowan's body had found beat during the news on November 9th. Later, his office told him Christopher had been there and just talked to him. The FBI told Chief Clark to find Christopher and tell him they found Rowan right away, but Chief Clark couldn't find Christopher. His phone rang, and it was the man he was looking for. Chief Clark told him he didn't know anything about spying when he asked the police following him in a minivan. Christopher said he got scared and had been driving all the area to get rid of the field. Chris wanted to meet him, but Chief Clark told him to go to the police station. He agreed to drive Chief Clark to the police station in his patrol car with him. "Well, son, over. We found Rowan recently." Just hearing those words made Christopher's eyes well up, and his head dropped. Christopher knew what David had done, and that was what the main person was thinking. "Please tell the truth," he begged him. Christopher was surprised by what he saw. Because there were so many people in the airport, Christopher didn't want to talk to anyone else, so they went to the bridge, which is only a few miles from Wheaton. It was important for Chief Clark, but he's know where they were going. Christopher held out his hands and got to the bridge, ready to be handcuffed. People told him it was necessary, so he said, "Because of what I'm about to tell you, you will." As they sat on the bridge, Christopher told the same story he had been telling all week that Nathan and David left his caravan. They had used back roads to avoid getting caught drunk. He said he informed her that he could quickly assist Rowan in leaving the area before Nathan and David returned. He got to the land quickly by riding on the highway, which was the fastest way to get there. After going to his toilet, he went into Rowan's room. He threw her out on the ground, took her outside, put her in a truck while she slept there. She was still sleeping when he got to the caravan, and she recognized his voice. He didn't say anything as they let her inside. He raped her, and they said he was going to take Rowan home. As she walked, he held her arms and turned her face away from him so she wouldn't see him. While she was walking, she turned around and saw his face. They used to help her with homework, and she would see him, a man she called Chris. He said he freaked out and was going to pick up a truck near the car. By using this, he killed Rowan for by striking her. And then his truck, he put her body up saying he knew they were in a lot of trouble. He said that he was going to throw her body off the Money Bridge. Changed his mind because he was afraid that she would be found quickly. He drove around thinking where to put her body until he decided to escape. He threw her body into the sinkhole and tried to hide holes opening the bridges, but the hole was too big. Later, he drove home. Upon his arrival, he discovered blood was going in bed. He put her pants, pajamas, robe, his own clothes over the stove, put her in them, and he was proof. His plan was to roll the mattress up, put it in wrong. I think now it's going to be a hell of a fire. Somebody's going to see that ring, he said. Following this, took John to the barn and lit on fire. The story was awful. If now my run had made even worse thing on. Chris and Chief Clark went back to the police station so that other officers could hear what he had to say. He was ready to fight again, and he told the detectives Barry and Newton County were there the FBI story again. Also, he signed papers saying his partner could be checked. After that, he was taken to Barry County's apartment and gave a statement again. This time, he recorded a video. It was his fault, he said, and he'd been crying like a big old afternoon. The police were shocked when they heard this statement because they thought Chris had removed David killed Ron. After learning more, they taught David again. This time, he admitted guilt. It made things more confusing. David said he cheated on Ron. Found that she was not there and he went in. He told Copeland that he knew Chris had taken her to his house. She was being raped by Chris when he got there. She also made a plan afterward to leave them in danger, so they killed her and threw her in a hole. He thought at first he was just trying around, but now we know they took her body away and deceived the crime. He told the boss they Christopher in their role, and then he used to go and shoot her with it. I realized she's gone. She's really gone, said he. The record shows they took Christopher in. I told him what David had said, but Christopher was sure that they had nothing to do with the crime or the events that followed. It involved two people, one of whom denied that they could have anything to do with it. This might be the case becoming even harder to understand. The document that Barry County Sheriff McCarthy said to the lawyers and both of them later, but it wasn't clear who had shot her. It was part based on what Christopher had said. Stephen Collins and his sisters were both charged with first-degree murder, statutory, and forcible rape. I believe that Christopher would be charged with kidnapping, and not if David had formed a Barry County Jail held them both without bond. The whole time, David's mom would talk for some while he was in jail. He told that he had been involved in the crime again, but he had passed out and was only now remembering what had happened. She broke down in tears and said, "He's my only son." His brother Greg said he couldn't believe it. He's so upset. He loved her so much. I don't believe he'd do something like this. He's 3 kids of his own. The two appeared in court in Casville and Barry County, Missouri. The two were arrested on Monday, 3 days after Ron Ford's body was found 10 miles from home, according to investigators. Both men admitted to taking part in the crime, but today court issued pleas not guilty. Today, Sears and Collins were pleaded wearing both and the shackles. Ford's mother, Colleen Sears, was also in court today, joined by several family members. While many in the community still continued to believe in hope process, they had not attended court proceedings still. I wanted to, but my heart wouldn't let me. Colleen did. I didn't want to go over there and look at those two guys. Colleen asked David for divorce on November 27th. Bill, Mayor Town, said she was so upset to talk to press. She's not feeling anything. She has a lot of things to do. She's in there now, using sewing machine to make something for the funeral of her baby. Some people know in school planted a pink palm tree in her honor the morning before the funeral, and her friends sent balloons with notes attached to them. There was also an angel there to mark her birthday in the Asian home. She was very gospel house church. Her favorite song, The Old Rugged Cross, was sung. More than 300 people were there. In the wake of Ron's death, the minister told them to put their hate and anger aside. Chris Collins and Abe Spears would say they were not guilty. Christopher was bound over for trial, which means the court found there could be to bring the case to trial court. David's lawyers asked that the trial be moved from Barry County to Pulaski County because all the attention from the This was agreed upon. The court could be changed because he and Christopher were being tried because this is so complicated. They were going to court for a few years. And then it was bad news. Charges of statutory rape, forcible rape, and first-degree murder against David. Spears were dropped after he talked to and consulted the attorney general's office. And proof came in from out of that. Johnny Cox, the prosecutor from County, and David came from agreeing on a deal. David was 4 years in prison for obstructing justice and 7 years for endangering the safety of the child. Both punishments were the hardest to be given for the crimes. That's not an easy choice, the prosecutor said, pointing out that David had admitted rape and murder soon after he was arrested. This case has almost consumed his office for the last 4 years and 10 months. He noted it had been a long since the case was last heard. David Pierce was the murder and rape of her own daughter. Evidence of his murder has been sought. Since then, no new proof linking Spears to the crime had been found. He said that the analysis of proof did not show that David was guilty, and results did not match what he had said before. A witness kit was part of this evidence. It was taken away on autopsy, and after looking at it in the lab, as a police lab, and he had found out, and matched Christopher said had been nothing. What results from the lab showed. Cox also pointed out that David claimed he killed Ron makes sense. The fact that there is no physical evidence that he to court raised concerns and questions about David Spears told police. He said Christopher had always known that anyone was involved in killing Ron. This is what he said in his first and last interviews. Cox said that Christopher Collins admitted to killing Ron Ford every time he talked to police. Cox was ready to defend his account of what happened that night, while also defending David's account, which went against Christopher's. Another theory was that it could be possible for David's case to be thrown out if he was found guilty of the mysterious crimes if Christopher's case thrown out. 2. Cox said that the state would not accept the result. This type of punch should not be jury one. He stated, "I feel terrible and I have first about it." That being said, as prosecutor, I'm a minister of justice and must follow the law, truth, and what is fair and just. Robert Evans, the sheriff, thought that Cox had made the right choice. There was no physical evidence that would support David Pierce as the judge. So even though it was hard for him, prosecutor did what he had to do. He said, adding that he did it by himself. The evidence wanted Collins as the clerk. Similar things were said to Spears' confession, but there were some problems to prove that Collins did, but he didn't solve all the questions. Vincent asked, why would someone say they did such a terrible thing? The whole question, no, there's no good answer for that matter. I agree with what I was not sure of the evidence. I was sure the case would be bad. He could have been found not guilty. Chris Collins later put in a move to express, which meant the evidence were all the same to police during the investigation, as well as the evidence of the story. Trailer truck the body should not be used in trial. He told no, it would take a week to try Chris Collins. Christopher's lawyer said in court he had a lot of problems and couldn't connect emotionally with other people. His parents didn't know law, and he was traumatized by being foster care. Christopher's 6 kids. All his siblings ended up foster care, as their parents were criminals and addicts. He would become a father day one, but his drug and alcohol troubles would cause a lot of trouble. His lawyers told the judge that he had no plans to kill Roman. They asked the jury to ignore the crime seen shown in the photographs and footage, instead focus on law and facts, which is essential. They had no plans to do this. She was taken back outside, still cooling from the waist down. How painful that injury had been. Very painful. They knew it. Colleen, Roman's mother, was one of the people who testified in court. They learned she'd killed. What kind of impact did that have on you at the time? Asked the judge. Totally mistaken myself and my other children, she told. Roman's sister said she fell to the floor when he heard her sister being killed. He said the whole family came to his head. Last, Mr. Night trial was over. On March 20th, the jury gave their decision. We, the jury, find defendant Christopher Collins guilty of murder in the first degree. It was to give the best sentence case, so the penalty phase would be very important. During the punishment part of the case, the state showed 6 comments witnesses about how crime affected the victims. Christopher's team brought in 2 witnesses, which David might have all done one. Urban studies soon all said he had not been able to care for it all for the first 6 months of his life, which slows growth. So it's said was figuring out how to connect with other people. Because this, he was able to cease to not associate with disorder and explosive personality disorders. After the punishment part was over, the jury sentenced the person to death. After that, there were a number of challenges. On July 23rd, 2012, Christopher's lawyers said to the Missouri Supreme Court that they were appealing that sentence. When it comes to the death penalty case in Missouri, these public appeals automatically made. In 2014, his petition was turned down. Another appeal was made by Christopher. This time he had his term cut down to life in prison. This was turned down. He asked Missouri Supreme Court for an order of habeas corpus. If this is proof, he would be able to prove that the government didn't tell them they wanted to remain racist. When Chief Clinton Clark had a criminal record from using Vietnam, the government said that Chief Clark's record being made public would not change the result. Although among the years while the argument was going, he was freed in 2015 after being locked up for more than 7 years. He got a job at the Missouri State Public Defender's Office. 2000 of his trial soon after he got out of jail, but not before the end of his probation. He had worked there for 18 months before his probation ended. Christopher and David, lawyers in the public defender's office. Lawyer Christopher said that David's job as a public defender created a conflict that made it impossible, but a claim he did get charges. His lawyer said in papers that there might be conflict, but because they had mixed feelings or were afraid of Mr. Collins react to the conflict, they didn't tell court or Mr. Collins about it. Mr. Collins himself didn't know about the claim until after his conviction process was over, because it wasn't sure of him. Christopher's case for clemency was based on the fact that he had a brain disorder that made it hard for him to hear, make decisions, and think things through. He also said that he had been sexually abused as a kid. The letter said that this left him hurt and without any instructions on how to become a full adult. The plot for clemency said that David's statement to kill Rowan. The transcript of the police interview showed he told police that Christopher gave him and he killed Rowan. The Missouri Supreme Court set an execution date for a man accused of raping and murdering a 9-year-old girl in southwest Missouri. In 2012, a jury convicted Christopher Collins of the 2007 abduction and murder of Rowan Forest, Missouri. Investigators had Collins threw Ford's body into a single McDonald County. The Supreme Court today set his execution for his murder. Christopher Collins was doomed from the start when his appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court was thrown down, and his revenge clemency was thrown down by Governor Mike Parson. Parson used to be a sheriff and had been charged with 12 killings. He had never committed sins of anyone. Christopher was said to have put to sleep at that barbell on December 3rd, 2024, and then killed. New County Sheriff Chris James was one of the people working on the investigation and said he thought the killing had been coming for a long time. I hope the state become still in charge. I asked to be present at the execution. I thought it was the best thing for Rowan to do. He also told her that she would never get full justice. Glad to see more done, and some of the other charges dropped, but this is how it turned out. It's been a long time. I'm glad the date has finally been set. Christopher was going to be put to death on December 3rd, 2024. 5 people on the execution stand were moved place. Among them were 4 members of the defense team, 4 members of the media, 8 state witnesses, and 2 family members of Ren. Andrew Bailey, who is the Attorney General of Missouri, told the Department of Corrections at 6 p.m. there were no problems ending the execution. Christopher Collins was 29, so dead 9 after that. Christopher Rowan was not allowed after he was to death. Right or wrong, as the situation it is. I'm sorry to anyone hurt in his life. I hope you could let this be how you move on. No matter what side you're on, know that I pray for you and look forward to seeing you again today. It was after Christopher Collins was to death. Sheriff said he thought this man rolled down. It's too bad that the police were never called. He had a lot of warning signs about him. If we knew about that, I'd like to think we would take her out of the position. I guess at the end of this case brings some peace of mind. There's some justice and some little. I'll take what I get. It's one of those cases that you never forget. Maybe says the case in Shockwaves, Southwest Missouri. Just terrible. And somebody took life and thrown down and indicated like a piece of dirt. It's horrible. Do you feel like justice deserved this? I think, yeah. I think it has. She didn't deserve any of this. It'll give some satisfaction to the family. Maybe he got what he deserved. There are so many people who are involved in this case. They'd never go away. Sheriff Jennings said he was a terrible crime. In his 24 years on the job, he had a lot of murders. But this one getting worse. This is not a cool idea. And I've had it in my pocket ever since then. After this, I'll still keep it in my pocket. He said their case has changed how they look to crimes against children. In New Party, we deal a lot of cases of child abuse and neglect. Of course, the ultimate safety of children first. We get children homes, but we have to do it if there's no other choice. This event is always on here. Rowan's death still had an effect on many people in the neighborhood. A teacher in Todd Hall, who had testified at trial, said he couldn't clean up her desk for a while after she died. I think every teacher was that kind of kid. She didn't go to school, but it was all about work. It was all about what Ron could do to move up in life. Tyler runs his best friend. Tyler's mom would talk about times they spent together, and how Rowan's shyness helped keep Rosie's son going. The most losing my own I felt in a long time. He still talks about her. Some son couldn't sleep by himself. But here's still always remember and love Rowan. I am so proud of the one she became. When my sister died, a piece of me died. Thanks for watching. If this case left you shocked or heartbroken, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe and stay there. The detectives could said something was wrong, and some since they were terrified of the 9-year-old vanished overnight, leaving behind a trail of fear, confusion, and devastating questions. On May 2007, in Missouri, the child had not been seen or heard from in days. On November 3rd, a 9-year-old girl disappeared from her bedroom. A small town of Stella, where she was last seen, was really crazy. Or a lot of ends, and no one knew where she was or what happened until someone with them. People told police to go to Fox Cave in Mountain County. Fox Cave was said to be more like a pit than a cave. It was about 30 feet from the road and a very wooded area. Sheriff's Deputy Mike Hall and Jake Beast overlooked 20 feet below. They found a child's body on the ledge. Before you got here, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love hearing views around the world. If you're true crime stories this one, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit bell so you never miss an upload. Alright, let's get back to the case. In Stella, Missouri, not more than 200 people living. Rowan Ford was one of those who decided to call home. Rowan was born on April 11th, 1998, in the 9th year of life. In 4th grade, she worked hard and was happy. She enjoyed reading, drawing, and writing outside. She thoroughly enjoyed going to church, but organized early, just pastor and said no. When she came home, she was sitting, sad, and smiling. In addition to food miseries, she went to Sunday school. She was crazy about party, and her bedroom showed. But things were always easy for Rowan. She often had lice. Her hair would get tangled. And even though it was cold in Missouri winter, she somehow went to school without socks on. Even so, she worked very hard in school, and she loved having her in the class. She always did her best, even when she was having trouble with something like math. Once she said her, she's a little sunshine, and the sweetest girl you could ever meet. 2 older brothers, and one older sister raised Rowan because she was shy. He would sometimes hide behind her sister. But when she finally spoke up, her sister said them without Rowan, she was very special. No one did like her. Rowan lived with her 44-year-old mother, Colleen, and her 25-year-old stepfather, Abe Spears. In addition to being a husband, Abe was also a father. He was supposed to pay $29 in child support in 2005, but he wasn't able to get. Rowan would always be ready for Colleen when she got home from work. She would run out the driveway to see how shift had gone. Nevertheless, Rowan was there on November 2007. When Colleen was inside, he thought that Rowan might be in her bedroom, as she often did. Although she wasn't there, she wasn't even on land. While David was sleeping on the couch, she asked him where she was. He disclosed that she was at home with a friend, but he did not specify his friend. David told Colleen she had to be at a friend's house when she called the cops. Colleen waited with David for a few hours for a phone call, but they never know she was there. It was very quiet. They weren't getting a call. After that, they looked all over the area but couldn't find her. There was a tip that Rowan was missing. At 6:50 p.m., there was an air alert, and very quickly a huge shirt man. Man, people in Stella came to help. A lot of people in the neighborhood came out with her. There is a lot of time went out when a child goes missing, so they could find Rowan. They had to first figure out where she was the night before. Boom, and most importantly, the last person he was here. Rowan had been with stepfather, David, while her mother worked the overnight shift at Walmart. David told police he had been out all night to November to his friends, Christopher and Ethan. He had left her there by herself while slept on the floor of her bedroom. After getting home around midnight, he said he'd been shadowing, but things would change in the end. He told police that he had gone out a second time around 1:38 and had to take her SUV. He called his mom. His mom said she didn't check on while she waited for him to come back. She just watched TV. The one thing police didn't like about it, he didn't say where he had been at night or why he had been gone for hours. He admitted that he should not have left her alone and said he hadn't told police first because he was afraid that he was involved. Newton County Sheriff King said it was very strange that he would report her missing until 8 hours after she was last seen. They needed to talk to Nathan and Christopher to see their stories matched in order to get a better idea of what had happened. Police called Nathan and told him that he, Christopher, and David had been at the farm they were all working. After going to a bookstore, they went home to play pool. Around 8:30 p.m. Colleen to work. Later that night, Christopher asked Nathan to drive home and meet with him. When they was alone, they needed to drink and smoke pot. And got Christopher's hair in. They had bought more alcohol on the way there. After about an hour, Nathan and David left home. Nathan didn't want to pull over driving while drunk, so he took the back roads instead of the highway. After dropping David off, Nathan got home at midnight. Christopher Collins, David's friend, who was with Rowan when she was last seen, pulled off the same thing he did, but he had a about small dog. This happened on November 4th next day. He went to see his girlfriend as they stayed there. David hadn't talked, and he didn't know Rowan was missing. So the neighborhood had looking for her, and the FBI joined the investigation the next day. A lot of these officers, families, the experts, and the high patrol, and FBI agents all worked together to find her. While David was still questioning the base, the FBI agents put his car in his car. She had brought up that night. Around the same time, Newton found a officer with and asked him to answer a few questions. He stated his grid and went to the sheriff's office bar. He also read tape test and empirical test analysis, which checks on the voice to see if they're telling the truth. He told him he had no idea where was enough to help find her. Wheaton Police Chief Clint Clark was out on regular patrol that afternoon. Commissioner Clark had known Christopher for 17 years. Christopher believed in him, and when asked for help support, even after his life died. Chris pulled him over, told him that Ronnie gone missing, and he's helping to look for her. Clark, Chief, that Christopher was in himself and was excited. That's when Chief Clark told the FBI that Christopher had told the police. He thought Christopher might know something. The FBI told him to keep talking to Christopher because he said he'd help in any way he could. In addition, Christopher told the FBI he thought David had something to do with Rose's disappearance and offered her a wiretap with the rope. In fact, he told her they could look for Ron. The lawyer hit the small town very hard, and many people were scared and confused, which was natural. The day Rowan disappeared was the last time Marshall, a teacher at school, saw her. He saw Rowan hair needed to be brushed, so they brushed it and put it in a neat knot for minutes before class. Rowan was still there, but Teddy went her later that day. She was idle. She just by. She went by him skipping and looked so happy, like everything was fine with her. People were interested in her and because they were last ones to see her. Investigators studied Chris was helpful, worried, and polite. In the evening, he went to see Colleen to offer his help and find out how the search was going. Christopher and Nate had been friends for a long time. Chris actually lived in the basement with the family for a few months later. Rowan had to help with their schoolwork, and he called Chris. Christopher was dead. He had 3 kids, 10 years old, lived in Arkansas with their mom. Christopher owned his farm in October 2007 and lived in a caravan there. The search warrant was focused on David Spears' anonymous. 2 days after she was reported missing, a lot of people talking at the house. This was Chief Office in the evening. The telling the FBI about him and asked positions on where to look. Captain Clark thought Christopher was thinking of something and said, "Let's hear." It was Officer who looked into this. When Chief Clark called the FBI, told them about the dog. If Christopher was guilty and needed to confess, the FBI thought he would probably tell Chief Clark. That's why they asked Chief Clark to help the investigation, and Chief Clark agreed. Christopher met with the FBI at Newton County Sheriff's Department on November 7th, and a big tape swab saliva sample for DNA testing. He also gave Christopher's house and his safe at his house to be checked. The man told the FBI that they didn't say about having something else to do that Rowan missing. Not true. Christopher started getting nervous and emotional. He was asking about his child during the connection. He told the agents that he would not be able to talk to them anymore if they were going to say they had something to do with her going missing. He interviewed it there. Afterward, he went to Chief Clark and was very excited about the interview. There came anything else. He said climb up and had the might to take the election. Chief Clark told him that he could do what he wanted. Also told him that Christopher could help find one. He had no reason to stop being pro. Chief Clark ensured to tell Christopher his rights because he knew how it was without rules. Christopher said, "If I have anything else to say, I'll talk to you." Christopher agreed to turn to the police and talking. Chris Clark was feeling down, so Chief Clark asked him if he knew anything about what happened to Rowan. Christopher gave a told his son he was similar to her and that he loved her. Someone came and cut off. At this point, Chris left him. Chief Clark told the FBI, but having said that he thought Christopher was he thought soon about her. Chief Clark talked to the FBI in more detail and say Christopher Collins signed his with him. Christopher wanted to know something about what happened. He said, but he should first find right. When Rowan's body was found, the FBI said they wanted him to be the one to talk to Christopher. Another break would come the next day, confirming one of the worst fears. The next over to the business mortgages, coroner in Newton County. Christopher worked as a mechanic, and David has experienced cars and things, which is referred to himself as a jack of all trades. Mark said that David had called him for a time while he was on duty. Days was I guess he first thought he used to be sheriff. David told me we were over at the defense house. Mark said he looked for Rowan and David on November 8th. According to report, the FBI had him wired up and had a plane following him. It was David who went outside to look for him. And if Christopher was playing for everything, he asked David to be the devil's advocate. I said I would expect Chris to be involved with this. And if you were Chris, what would you do with his body? He pondered it. It was my suggestion that they go look, and they did. The first place he put me was the hole in the ground. What did the hole in the ground mean? Split us. I was afraid it brought some disputes to me, said Mark. I wasn't sure what they were. David and I conversation about it at the time. I definitely wanted to the cave, and I think subconsciously that David did too. He took me to the cave for a reason. After that, the FBI got me on County Sheriff's Department. On November 9th, around 8 a.m., Deputies Small and JDS went there to search. They found a child's body on 20 feet below the surface. Chris James, Sheriff of Newton County, said, I wasn't there when he was found, but I don't think anyone had any idea it was murder. Rowan admits she was by Potsy words. She died in Israel. There were small cuts and bruises on her body. They showed they had been hurt before she died. They also found serious wounds on her face, most likely from being thrown in the pit. Chief Clark heard Rowan's body had been found when he turned the news on November 9th. Later, his office told him Christopher there and wanted to talk to him. The FBI told Chief Clark to find Christopher and told him they found Rowan right away. But Chief Clark couldn't find Christopher. His phone rang and it was he was looking for. Chief Clark told him he didn't know anything about the plane. The police were following him and bringing him in. Christopher said he felt scared and threatened. They'd drive all over the area to get ready to feel him. Christopher wanted to meet him, but Chief Clark told him to go to the police station. He agreed by Chief Clark to the police station in Central Park when they met. Well, something told her, we found Rowan's body in the room. Best heroes wars, a Christopher's body and he said drops. Christopher knew what David done, and that was what the main person was thinking. He saw Booth, he begged him. Christopher was surprised when he saw her. Because there's so many people in the apartment, he wanted to talk to anyone else. So he went to which is only a few miles meeting. It's important for Chief Clark to let police know they were going. Christopher got his hands when they got to the bridge, ready to get handcuffed. People told him it wasn't necessary. He said, because of what I'm about to tell you, we will. As they sat on the spot bridge, Christopher told the same story all week, but he didn't get started. They used that road to avoid getting caught getting drunk. He seen a phone her, and he quickly assisted Rowan, and he didn't get before. He didn't get return. He got the land quickly, driving down the highway, just as fast as he could. After going to the toilet, he went to Rowan's room. He picked her up from the front, outside, and put her in his truck while she was there. She was still sleeping, and got to his cabin. In case she recognized his voice, he didn't see anything as he got her inside. He read her, and then said he was going to get Rowan home. As she looked, he held her arms and turned her face away from him so she didn't see him. While she was walking, she turned around and saw his face. They used to help her home, and she moved him. A man called Chris. He said freaked out and was looking at the I used this. He killed Rowan by finger. In bed shock, he put her body saying he was out of control. He said he was going to throw her body off the bridge, but changed his mind because he was afraid she'd be found quickly. He drove everything out of her body and then decided to escape. He threw her body in a single and tried to hold it in the bushes, but the hole was too big. Later, he drove her. On his bed, he discovered blood in his clothing in bed. He put her pants, pajamas, rope, and his own clothes in a wood stove, burned them, and got rid of the roof. He spent all the mattress and the drum. After thinking, now it's going to make hell better. Somebody's going to see it burning. He stated, from this, he took the drum to the barn and lit it on fire. The snow was awful. To find out how long it had hurt, but even more to think about. Christopher and Chief Clark went back to the police station so that her officers could hear what he had to say. He was ready to rise again, and he told detectives on Mary County and Newton County where there the FBI his story again. Also, cited papers saying that his body could be checked. After that, he was taken to the sheriff's department and gave a statement again. This time, in a court appeal. It was his fault, he said, and he had been crying like a baby all afternoon. The police were shocked when they heard this statement, and they thought it was true. David killed one. After learning more, they took to David again. This time, David guilt, which made things even more confusing. David said he checked out Owen and found that she was not there when he did. He told Colton that he knew Chris had taken her to the house. She was with Chris when he got there. She was also ready to buy him. Afterward, they believed they were in danger, so they killed her and threw her in a hole. He said he was just running around. Now we know that they were taking her body away from the scene of the crime. People told the cops that Christopher had given her up and they used it to kill Owen. I tried with it. I realized she's gone. She's really gone, said he. The treasure shows they talked to her again. I told him what David said. But Christopher was sure that David had nothing to do with the crime. Audience had followed. It involves two people. One from the night that he had anything to do with it. This already difficult case was hard to understand. The Mary County Sheriff Company said the lawyer said both of them had raped her, but not clear who killed her. It was based on what Christopher said. Steve Collins and David Spears were both charged with first-degree murder, statutory rape, and forcible rape. I believe Christopher would be charged with kidnapping, and David because David was a formal party. Mary jail both of them blood. Over time, his mother would talk to his son while he was in jail. He told him he had been involved in crime, but he had passed out, and was now rumored by heaven. He broke down in tears and said, "He's my only son." He said he couldn't believe it. He's so upset. He loved her so much. I can't believe he'd do something like this. He's got 3 years alone. 2 appeared in court in Evansville and Marietta, Missouri. 2 were arrested one day. 3 days after running for fight, started by 10 miles from home. According to investigators, both men had been taking part in the crime. By staying in court, entered Keys on guilty. Today, Spears and Conrad departed, wearing and leg shackles. Ford's mother, Colleen Spears, was also in court today, joined by several family members. While many curious thought continued to be no justice, it did not attend court proceedings this morning. I wanted to, but my heart wouldn't let me. Colleen said, I didn't want to go there and look at those guys. Colleen asked the reporters on November 20th. Bill, mayor of the town, said she was upset to talk to the press. She's not feeling anything. She had a lot of things to do. She's in there right now, using the sewing machine to make something for the funeral of her baby. Some people from her own school planted a pink dogwood tree in her honor the morning before the funeral. Her friends sent notes attached to them. There was also Angel there, her birthday, the day she was found. She was there at the Life Church, where people saw the old Red Cross. More than 300 people there. In the wake of Rose's death, the Mr. Told people with their hate and anger aside. Chris Collins and David Sears, they say they are not guilty. Chris was filed for trial, which means that the court feels a good reason to bring the case to the trial. David Sears asked the trial to move from Mary to Gloucester County because all he had done for the media. This was agreed upon. The court could be changed because he and Christopher were being tried separately. Because the case was so complicated, they went to court for a few years. Then it was some bad news. The charges of sneaking forcibly and first murder against David. Spears were brought to talk to consulted the Attorney General's office. A new crew came in from outside. Johnny Cox, the prosecutor, Attorney General County, and David came in a plea deal. David was given 4 years of obstructed justice and some years when David was a child. Both punishments were the harshest beginning for the crimes. And not an easy choice, prosecutor said. Only now that David had made the ever soon after he was arrested. The case is so soon resources of my office for the last 4 years and 5 months. He noted it has been long since this case was last heard. David Sears linked to the murder and rape from 4 candidates other than words of his thought. Since then, no new proof links to Spears' crime was found. He said that testing and analysis of the proof did not show that David was guilty. It results in not match beat 74. A weak test was part of the evidence. It was during the autopsy, and after we looked at what he didn't allow, the state police lab needed to get allowed. It matched what Christopher said at midnight. The results from the lab showed. Cops also pointed out that David claimed that he killed and wrote the evidence. The fact that there is no physical evidence that he used in court raises the uncertain question about David Sears told police. He said Christopher always denied that anyone else was involved in killing Rowan. This is what he said in both first and last interviews. Cox said Christopher Collins did this to Rowan forward after he took the police. Cox was worried he would have to defend Christopher on that night, but also defended the victim, which was against Christopher's. And worried it would be possible for David case to be thrown out if he was guilty of more 6 crimes and for Christopher's case thrown out too. Cox said the state would not accept the result. This type of crime should outrage everyone. He said, I felt terrible and I first heard about it. He said, prosecutor, I'm minister of justice. Must follow the law, the truth, and must err, must. R.M. Evan, the sheriff, thought that Cox had made the right choice. There was no physical evidence that would support David Spears, said the judge. So he knew it was hard for him. The prosecutor did what he had to do. He said, I didn't swore by himself. He eventually to Collins as the clerk. Some of the things were said in confession, but there were some problems to prove that Collins did, but he did all the questions. As asked, why would someone say it's a terrible thing? The public wants to know. There's no good answer for that either. I agree with what the lawyer said. I was really not sure if he was guilty. I was sure this would be bad. He could have been found not guilty. Chris Collins later moved to press, which meant the evidence all the things during the investigation, as well as the evidence from his party. Trailer, truck, and bike should not be used in trial. He didn't know. It would be weak to try Mr. Collins. Clifford's lawyer said in court, he had a lot of problems and couldn't insulate other people. His parents said they knew a lot. He was traumatized by being foster care. Christopher was the 6th kid against. All his siblings had been foster care because their parents were criminals and drug addicts. He became a father later on, but his drug and alcohol troubles would cause him a lot of trouble. His lawyer told the judge they had no plans to kill Rowan. They asked the jury to ignore the horrible crime. Scene shown in autopsy photographs and Rowan's age. Instead focus on the law and facts. But they said he had no plans to do this. She was taken outside. Still no clue on the waist down. How painful would the injury have been? Very painful, they noted. Colleen, Rowan's mother, was one of the people who would testify in court after they learned she had been killed. What kind of impact did that have on them at the time? Asked the judge. Totally validated myself and my children, she told him. Rowan said she fell to the floor when she heard just started She said the whole family became very sad. Last sermon trial was over. On which the jury gave the decision. We, the jury, wanted to defend Christopher Collins guilty murder in the first degree. It was possible to invest in this case, so the penalty phase became very important. During the question part of the case, the showed 6 comments from this about how the crime affected the victims. Christopher seemed witness said the men involved in killing Rowan. The person who used also said he had not meant to kill for it at all. The first months of his life, just like his growth. Experts said Christopher showed theory of how people are illegal. Because of this, he was diagnosed with serious or not treated attention disorder, convention explosive mind disorders. After the question part was over, the jury suggested the person be put to death. After that, there were a number of challenges. On July 23rd, 2012, Christopher's lawyers settled to the Missouri Supreme Court that they would repeat that sentence. They couldn't move the case in Missouri. These kinds of appeals are automatic. In 2014, his term turned down. Another appeal made to Christopher. This time, his term cut out to life in prison. This was turned down. He asked the Missouri Supreme Court for an order of habeas corpus. If this was approved, he would be able to show proof that the government didn't tell him one of their main witnesses. Witness Chief Clinton Clark had a criminal record when he was in Vietnam. The government said Chief Officer Rack be public would not change the results. What was going on with David Spears? Later on his He was free in 2015 after being caught for more than 7 years. He got a job at Missouri's public defender office. He was in his trial soon after he got out of jail and not before the end of his probation. He had to go there for 18 months before probation ended. Officer India had lawyers from the public defender office. Lawyers Christopher said Dave's job as a public defender being a conflict of interest that made him possible. But plead guilty on purpose. His lawyers sent papers that might be conflict, but because the other killings or free conflict would be the conflict, he didn't tell the court on his comments about it. The Collins himself did not claim. Until after his post-conviction processes were over, his share of it. Christopher's case was based on the fact that he had a brain disorder that made him operating from nowhere, make decisions, and think things through. He also said he had sexually abused his kid. Others said that this after the first and that any instructions on how to use one. The Peter Clinton said that David Spears admitted to killing Rowan. The transcript of the interview showed that he told the police that Christopher gave him the rope and he killed Rowan. The Missouri Supreme Court set an execution for a man accused of raping and murdering a 9-year-old girl in southwest Missouri. In 2012, a jury made Christopher Collins a 2007 abduction murder of known Ford, son of Missouri. Investigators called through the whole body to a single guilty. The Supreme Court today's execution was December 3rd. Christopher Collins was in from the start when his appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court was turned down, and his request for clemency was turned down by Governor Robertson. According to the sheriff, and had been in charge of 12 killings. He had never committed sentences of anyone. Christopher was said to have been deceased at Barbaro on December 3rd, 2024, and then killed. Newton County Sheriff Jennings was one of the people who worked on the investigation and said he thought killing had been coming for a long time. I hope this thing come while I was still in charge. I asked because of the execution. I thought the best thing for Rowan to do. He also told her that she'd never get full justice. I would have seen more done and seen it first dropped. If this all turned out, it's been a long time. I'm glad it's finally been said. Christopher was going to be put to death on December 3rd, 2024. At 5:54, the people who were on the execution stand were moving to the place. Among them were 4 members of the defense team, 4 members of the 8 state witnesses, and 2 members Rowan. Andrew Bailey, the Attorney General of Missouri, told the Department of Corrections at 6 p.m. that there were no legal problems with the execution. Christopher Collins was response at 9 minutes after that. Christopher wrote in a letter to read out after he was put to death. Right or wrong, accept the situation when it is. I'm sorry to anyone from this life. I hope you can put the behind you and move on. I'm outside your run. Would I pray for you? Look forward to seeing you in heaven one day. It was after Christopher Collins was put to death. The sheriff said he thought the system had thrown down. It's too bad it's never all. Even there were a lot of warrants on the decision. If we knew about that, I'd like to be here out of that decision. I guess the end of this case makes me some money. There is injustice, that's only little. I'll tell you what I can get. It's one of those cases that you never forget. Midro says the case in shockwaves to south of Missouri. Just terrible. And someone to take a life, throw them out to a cave fixed dirt. It's terrible. Do you feel like justice deserves this? I think yeah, it has. She didn't deserve any of this. It'll give some satisfaction to the family. Maybe that's what he deserved. There are so many people involved in this case, and it will never go away. Sheriff Jennings said it was a terrible crime. In his 24 years of job, he worked a lot of murders like so many artists. This is one school ID, and I've had it in my pocket ever since that happened. After this, I'll still keep it in my pocket. He said their case had changed when they looked at declines against children. In the county, we deal with a lot of cases of child abuse and neglect. Of course, we always say keep children first. We hate the game from our homes, but we have to do it. There's no other choice. This is always on our minds here. Rowan still had an effect on many people in her neighborhood. A teacher named Todd Hall, who testified at trial, said he couldn't clean up her desk for a while after she died. Think of a teacher wanted that on a kid. She didn't go to school. It's all about work. It was all about what God could do and move on in life. Tyler was Rowan's best friend. Tyler's mom would talk the times they spent together and go in silence of noisy song. It's the most like I felt in a long time. He still talks about her, so my son couldn't sleep by himself. Her bigger sister will always remember and love Rome. I'm so proud of them when she became. My sister died. Please die. Thanks for watching. If this is shot heartbroken, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts and comments below. Stay safe and stay aware. If I said something wrong anytime, it is terrifyingly right. A 9-year-old vanished overnight, leaving behind a few confusion and distinguishes. On November 9, 2007, in Missouri, China is seen or heard from in a few days. On November 3rd, a 9-year-old girl disappeared from her bedroom. The small town of Ella, where she was last seen, very crazy. There were dead ends, and no one knew where she was all the time until someone gave them a tip. People told police to go to Fox Cave in Macon County. Fox Cave was said to be more like a pit cave. It was about 30 feet from the road and a very wooded area. Sheriff's Deputy McCall and J.E.'s Overhill. 3 feet below, they found a child body in the ledge. Before we got here, let me know comments for your watching. I always love hearing viewers around the world. And if you're in true crimes or this one, make sure to subscribe and hit out so you never miss it below. Alright, let's get back to the case. In Stella, there were not more than 100 people living. Rome Ford was one of those who decided to call home. Rome was born on April 11th, 1998, in 9th year of life. It was great, people were and was happy. She enjoyed reading, drawing, and writing outside. She thoroughly enjoyed going to church and would often rise early to assist patrons and milk. When she came home, she was always sitting on steps, modeling. In addition to food industries, she went to school. She was crazy about party, and her people enjoyed it. The things were always easy for her. She often had lies. Her hair would get tangled. Even though it was cold and rainy in the winter, she sometimes went to school without socks on. Even so, she worked very hard at school, and teacher loved having her in class. She always did her best, even when she was having trouble something in math. One teacher said of her, she is a little sunshine, and the little Vietnamese, 2 brothers, and one younger sister was brown, because she was shy. She was sometimes thought of her sister, but when she finally stopped, her sister said, "Who the hell? Rowan?" She was asexual. No one loved her. Rowan lived with a 44-year-old mother, Colleen, and a 25-year-old stepfather, 8 years. In addition to being a husband, David was also a father. He was supposed to pay $29 in child support in 2005, and it was clear if he ever saw his kid. Rowan always waited for Colleen when she got home from work. She would run out into the driveway to see how she had gone. Nevertheless, Rowan was there on November 3rd, 2007. When Colleen went inside, she thought that Rowan might be in bed with me, as she often did, although she wasn't there. She wasn't eating on land. While David was sleeping on the couch, she asked him where she was. He discovered she was at home front, but he announced her friend. David told Colleen she had to be at his house when she called the cops. Colleen waited David for a few hours for a phone call and let her know she was there. It was very quiet. They were getting a call. After that, the call of the app couldn't find her. They said Rowan was missing. At 6:50 p.m., but everywhere, and frequently a huge search began. Many people in Stella came to help. A lot of people from the neighborhood came out to look for her. Their lifetime night out when trial was missing, so they could find Rowan. They had to figure out where she was the night before. And most importantly, who was the last person people see her. Rowan had a stepfather, Dick, a lawyer working on a shift at Walmart. Dick told police he had on the night over beside his friends, Christopher and Nathan. He had left her there by himself while she slept on the floor of her bedroom. After getting home around midnight, he said he didn't check on Rowan and was changing in. He told the police to get on a second time around 1:30 a.m. and attempt to take her to TV. He called his mom. His mom said she didn't check on Rowan. I'll wait for her to come back. She just watched TV. There was nothing that the police didn't like David. He wouldn't say where he had been that night or why he had gone to her house. He admitted he should not have left her alone and said he hadn't called police at first because he afraid Nathan was involved. Newton County Sheriff Chris Jennings was very strange, and he didn't report missing until 8 or 10 hours after she was last seen. They needed to talk to Nathan and Christopher to see if their stories matched, and it would get a better idea of what happened. The police talked to Nathan, and he told them he, Christopher, and David had that night before they were all working. After going to a blue stove, they went to the pool around 8:30 p.m. Colleen to work. They wrapped up. Christopher asked Nathan to drive him home, and Nathan with them. Rowan stayed at the house alone. They needed to drink and smoke pot. When they got to Christopher's caravan, they bought more alcohol on the way there. After about an hour, Nathan and David left to go home. Nathan didn't want to get pulled over by a grog, so he took the back roads instead of the highway. After dropping David off, he got home that night. Christopher calls David's friend, who was Rowan, and she was last seen. 12 officers, same thing Nathan did, but he left the park about smoking pot. This happened on November 4th the next day. He was sitting in his caravan as they stayed there. David hadn't talked, but he didn't know Rowan was missing. So they kept looking for her to the FBI joining the investigation the next day. A lot of police officers, 3 families, 50 experts, the Missouri Highway Patrol, and FBI agents all worked together to find her. While David was still being questioned by deputies, FBI agents took his car and saw her. She had already done it. Around the same time, David went to Christopher's place and asked him to answer a few more questions. He stated his feeling and went to the sheriff's office by bar. He also agreed to take a polygraph test and a computer stress analysis, which checked someone's voice to see if they truth. He told me he had no idea what Rowan was to offer help find her. Even police chief Clinton Clark said how Conrad Patrol that afternoon. Commissioner Clark had noticed her for 17 years. Christopher believed him and asked for help in support even after his mom died. Christopher told him more and told him Rowan had gone missing and he was looking for her. Clark, the chief, said Christopher was himself and was excited. That's when Chief Clark told the FBI that Christopher had told Rowan was lost. He thought Christopher might know something. The FBI told him to keep talking to Christopher because he said he'd help any way he could. In addition, Christopher told the FBI that he thought they had something to do with Rowan's disappearance and often required help with the boat. In fact, he told where they lived with Rowan. The loss of it all very hard, and then people were scared and confused. It was only natural. The day Rowan disappeared, the last time Penny Marshall, a teacher at school, saw her. She saw Rowan's hair needed to be brushed, so they brushed it and put it in a knot during people class. Rowan was still there, and Tanny to check on her later that day. When she was by herself, she stayed by. She went by and looked so happy, like everything was fine with her. People were interested in David, Christopher, and Nathan because they were last one to see her. Investigators said Christopher was worried and light. Nathan went to see Colleen after his and found out Christopher was Christopher and David had been friends for a long time. Chris had actually lived in the basement with the family for a few months that year. Rowan asked him to help with schoolwork, and he called him Chris. Christopher was also dead. He had 3 kids that were 10 years old and lived in Arkansas with their mom. Christopher was family's farm. In October 2007, he lived in a caravan there. Search for Rowan was focused on David's ears on November 6th, 3 days after she was missing. A lot of people left in and searched his house. Chris went to Chief Clark's office in the early evening, telling the FBI to and asked for suggestions on where to look. King Clark thought Christopher was sleeping outside and he looked scared. He probably Christopher would look him in the eyes. When Chief Clark told the FBI, he told them about the dog. If Christopher was guilty and needed to confess, the FBI thought he would probably tell Chief Clark. That's why they asked Chief Clark to help with the investigation, and Chief Clark agreed. Christopher met with the FBI and Newton County Sheriff Department November 7th, and he gave us a less sample for DNA testing. He also made a for his house because he had a Dave's house to check. The man told the FBI that Dave's already had something else to do that Rowan missing was not true. Christopher checked numerous and emotional and just asked about missing child during the conversation. He told the agent that he would be willing to talk to them anymore if they were going to say that he had something to do with her going missing. He interviewed there. Afterward, he went to see Chief Clark and very excited the agent. If it came to anything else, he said he'd climb up and had he might need to take legal action. Chief Clark told him to do what he wanted. Rowan told Christopher to do everything he could to help find Rowan. He had no reason to stop him with Rowan. Chief Clark made sure to tell Christopher's mind arrest because he knew how important it was to follow the rules. Christopher said, if I have anything else to say, I'll talk to you. Christopher read the person released and kept talking. Clark stood down. So Chief Clark asked him to do anything about what happened to Rowan. Christopher began to cry all of a sudden. It was his heart, he loved her, and he loved her. Someone came in and popped off. At this point, Squid got elected. Chief Clark told the FBI what happened and said he thought Christopher was wounded. He thought his entire lawyer. Chief Clark talked to the FBI in more detail than his day about Christopher Collins, his family, his next thing. Christopher might know something about what happened. He said, I first found body. When Rowan's body was found, the FBI said they wanted him to be the one about Christopher. Another break come next day, confirming it was Bruce. David and Christopher both worked in this from Bruce, coroner in the body. Christopher worked as in mechanic, and David had some experience with cars and still things. Bruce referred to himself as Jack of all trades. Watched David had called him the first time while he was on duty, they was working missing. I guess he first thought he was the sheriff. Hell, said he. David told me over and over this might be a friend's house. Clark said he looked for Dave on November 8th. According to reports, the FBI had wired up and plane following him. It was David who went outside to her. As Christopher's playing for everything, he asked David to be the outside. I said, Chris, why do you know this? I didn't know Chris. What would you do with Ron's body? He pondered a bit. It was my decision to go look, and they did. First base between the holding ground. I did the holding ground me. Spotted fox. I saw somebody that wants to speak to me. I just knew what they were. David and I conversation about it. I didn't want to cave. I think subconsciously David too. He took me to cave for a reason. After that, the FBI kept me down with the sheriff's band. On November 8th, around 8 a.m., deputies called JPS and their search. They discovered a child's body on the edge of feet of stress. Chris Jennings, Sheriff Newton Creek, said, I wasn't there when the body was found. I think anyone had any doubt it was murder. Rowan made it. Student, but afterwards. She had died from being strangled. There were small cuts and bruises on her body. They showed they had been hurt before she died. They also found serious wounds on her face, most likely being thrown into the pit. She caught her woman's body had been found. He turned on moves about a month later. His office told Christopher dinner and took it. The FBI told Chief Clark to find Christopher. He felt that they had found one right away, but Chief Clark couldn't find Christopher. His phone name was the man he was looking for. Chief Clark told him he didn't know anything about something, but he asked the police to follow him to the man. Christopher said he felt scared, threatened, and had been trying all the night to read the field. Christopher didn't, but Chief Clark told him to go to the police station. He agreed to drive Chief Clark to the police station to inspect Joel. Well, son, Christopher, we found those on his name. Just hear those words. Made Christopher's eyes well up, and his head broke. Christopher knew what David did, and that was what the main person was thinking. Please tell the truth. He let him. Christopher's eyes on what he saw. Because there were so many people in the department, Christopher didn't talk to anyone else, so they didn't really wish. It was only a few miles from Eden. It's important for Chief Clark to let police know where they were going. Christopher now says we got to the bridge. Ready to People told him it wasn't necessary, so he said, because I'm not going to you will. As they found the slope of the bridge, Christopher told the same story he'd been telling all week, and they David to the road. He had used back roads to avoid being caught by the road. He said he informed her that he couldn't sit wrong, and even area before, Nathan and David injured. He got the lane quickly, driving on the highway for the fastest way to get there. After going to the toilet, he went to the room. He turned off for a run, took her outside, and put her in the truck just there. She was still sleeping, not too scared of him. She realized his voice. He didn't say anything, they let her inside. He ripped her, and then she was going to take her on home. As she walked, he held arms and turned her away from him, so she wouldn't see him. While she was walking, she turned on his eyes. He used to have her phone. She wouldn't see him, but managed all Uncle Chris. He said he forgot his rope and rocket party. By using this, he killed Ron Ford by strangling her. And then struck, put her body after saying he was in a lot of trouble. He said that he would throw her body off the ledge, but changed his mind because he was afraid that she'd be found nearly. No runs came out where to put her body until he decided Fox cave. He threw her body in the snow and tried to hide the hole's opening bushes. The hole was too big. Ledger, he phoned. Upon his uncle, he discovered blood on his clothing bed. He convinced the chemist, his own bones himself, to burn them and give him proof. He plans to roll the mess up and put it on. Nothing now and make hell fire. Somebody's dead ring. He said, follow this. He took him to the barn and lit a fire. The story was awful. Finding out how it had her, and he forced to think about it. Christopher and Chief Clark back to the police station. The other officers he had to say. He was ready to arrest again. He told Detective Mary County and County, where they had the FBI history again. Also, he signed papers saying his property could be checked. After that, he was taken to the Mary County Sheriff's Department and he escaped again. This time, he was recorded on video. It was his fault, he said. They didn't find the baby in the afternoon. The police were shocked when they heard his statement. They thought it was removed. They didn't run. After learning more, they took to David again. And this time they didn't know, which makes things even more confusing. They said he checked out one and found that she's not there when he did. He told them that he requested to take her to his house. She was being raped by Chris Miller. She was also being pain. Afterward, they believed they were in danger, so they killed her and threw her in a hole. He said at first he was driving around, but now we know that they're taking her body away from the scene of the crime. They told the cops Christopher Lee and that he used to kill Rowan. I choked for a minute. I realized she's gone. She's really gone, said he. The transcript shows that they talked to Christopher again. They told him what David said, but Christopher was sure that David had nothing to do with the crime or the events that followed. It involved two people. One of them denied that he could have anything to do with it. This already difficult case would become even harder to understand. The deputy of the Mary County Sheriff and the family said until I said they both had been raped her. It's a clear we killed her. It was partly based on what Christopher said. Stephen Collins and David Spears were both charged first degree murder. After rape and forced rape. I really thought Christopher would charge with the other, but David is the answer for it. The Mary jail held him up for that long. Also, it's not recovered son while he was in jail. He told her that he had involved in the crime again, but that he had passed out and was only not remembering why it happened. She broke up in tears and said, he's my only only son. His brother back said he couldn't believe it. He's so upset. He loved her so much. I believe he could do something like this. He's got free of his own. The two appeared in ward in Casby County, Missouri. The two were still in the minute. 3 days after Ron Ford's body was found about 10 miles from home, according to investigators. Both men had been taken part in the crime. The day in court should plead not guilty. Today, Spears and Colorado Department learned those and the trials. Ford's dinner, Colleen Spears, was also in court today, joined by some families of many communities law and seems to be in justice. They denied in court proceedings this morning. I want to. My heart let me. Colleen said, I didn't want to go over there and look at those guys. Colleen asked David for a divorce on November 27th. Bill, mayor of town, said she's too upset to talk to press. She's not feeling anything. She has a lot of things to do. She's in there right now, using the cell machine to take some for the funeral of her baby. Some people from Rose School, talking about the tree and honor more than their funeral. Their friends and siblings with notes attached to them. There was also an angel there, marked her birthday, and the nation's found. She was very possible lighthouse church. Her favorite song, the old rugged cross song. More than 300 people live there. In the wake of Rome's death, and Mr. Old people put their hate and anxiety. Chris Collins and David Spears, the same, are guilty. Christopher was found over trial, which means that the court thought it was reason to bring the case to trial court. David's lawyers asked if the trial be moved from Wayne County to Pulaski County, but all the attention from media is that we want. The court could be changed to see Christopher being tried separately. Because the case is so complicated, it won't go to court for a few years. And it was bad news. The chief statutory forcible rape, forced murder, and Nathan Spears were brought to and consulted with the attorney general's office. Any proof made from outside Johnny Cox, prosecutor attorney for the county, and David gave an complete deal. David was in 4 years in prison for obstructing justice and 7 years for endangering the safety of the child. Both patients were charged to be guilty for crimes. That was not his choice, the prosecutor said. Only now they did admit raped him soon after he was arrested. This case almost consumed the use of someone else for the last 4 years and months. He waited that long. This case was necessary. David Spears linked the murder and rape of Ron Ford, but that is not his word inside. Since then, no new proof of Mr. Spears to the crime been found. He said that the testing analysis of the proof did not show that David was guilty and was also not actually before. A witness kept part of the evidence. It was taken away autopsy, and after a look at the independent lab, the state police lab, and the FBI lab, it matched what Christopher said had happened that night. But the results from the sample showed Fox also found David's claim that he had killed one didn't make sense. The fact that there is no evidence that he did the court makes me concerned questions about David Spears told police. He said Christopher always denied that anyone else was involved in killing Rowan. This is what he said in his first confession to Spears. Cox said that Chris Collins admitted to striking Ron Ford until he talked to police. Cox was worried to have to defend Christopher's part of what happened that night, while also giving David's account, which was against Christopher's. Another worry was that he could have made public for David's case to be thrown out and it's found to be the more serious crimes and Crooks' case to be thrown out too. Cox said the state would next be the result. That's a crime to outrage anyone. He stated, I felt terrible when I first heard about it. That being said, as prosecutor, I am a minister of justice and must follow the law, the truth, and the fair and us. Robert Evanson, sheriff, thought that Cox made the right choice. It was political evidence that would support him David Spears, the judge. So even though the prosecutor did what he had to do, he said, and they solely did it by himself. The evidence put Collins as the killer. The other things were his confession. There were some problems with the proof that Collins did it, but it didn't solve all questions. Evanson asked, why would someone say they did such a terrible thing? The people wants to know, and there's no evidence for that either. I agree with what said. I was really not sure he's ever guilty. I'm sure the case was bad. He could have been found not guilty. Chris Collins may put in notes of us. The evidence all his states during the investigation. And all the evidence from Trevor Truck and body should not be used in trial. He was told no. It made a weak to Christopher Collins. Christopher's lawyer said, quote, he had a lot of problems to connect mostly with other people because his parents didn't alive and he was struck by being in foster care. Christopher was 16, Davis. All this ended up in foster care because the parent criminals and road he would become father of Ron. He was drunk and alcohol balls caused no control. His lawyer told the judge that he had no plan to kill Ron. He asked the jury who ignored the whole crime. Seemed showing the autopsy lawyer and age and focused on the law and facts, which they said showed they had no plans to do this. She was taken back outside, still going on and was down. Painful that injury happened. Very painful. They noted. Colleen, Rose Hunter, was one of the people who testified for. They learned she had been killed. Coming back, did that happen to you at the time? Asked the judge. Told him about and children. She told him. Rose sister said she fell to the floor when she heard their sister had been killed. She said the whole family became very sad. At last, this dramatic trial was over. On March 20th, the jury gave a decision. We, the jury, find that Christopher Collins guilty of murder and first degree. It was little that sentence in this case. So the penalty case be very important. During the case, the state showed 6 signs from this about the crime of the victims. Christopher's team brought in 2 witnesses. David might have been involved in killing Ron. A person who's development also said he had not been medically cared for at all before he lost his life, which slowed his growth. Experts said Christopher had trouble figuring out how to connect with people. Because of this, you diagnosed serious organized dissociative attachment disorder and intimate and explosive personality disorders. After the punishment part was over, the jury suggested that the person be put to death. After that, there were a number of challenges. On July 23, 2012, Christopher's lawyer spent a letter to the Missouri Supreme Court. They were appealing the death sentence. When it comes to the family case in Missouri, these 5 appeals are automatically made. In 2014, expedition was turned turned down. Another appeal was made by Christopher. This time he is turned down to life in prison. This was turned down. He asked the Missouri Supreme Court for an order of habeas corpus. If this was moved, he'd be able to show proof that the government didn't tell him they would remain witnesses. Wheaton Chief Clinton Clark had a criminal record from when he was in Vietnam. The government said the Chief Clark's record being made public and not changed the result. What was going on in 8 years while the army went on? He was freed at 2015, having been locked up for more than 7 years. He got a job at the Missouri State Public Defender Office. His husband met his child alive soon after he got out of jail, but not before the end of his probation. He had to work there for 18 months before his probation ended. Both Christopher and Nick had lawyers from the public defender office. Lawyers for Christopher said his job as public defender created a conflict of interest that made it impossible, but claimed to keep guilty lower charges. His lawyer had never that there might be a conflict, but because they had misfeelings or afraid of Mr. Collins reaction to conflict, they didn't tell the court what Mr. Collins about it. Mr. Collins himself didn't know about the claim until after his post-conviction process was over, because it was shared with him. Christopher's case was unnecessary, but based on the fact that he had a brain disorder that made it hard for him to be aware, make decisions, and think things through. He also said he had sexually abused as a kid. Others said this left hurt and left instructions about how to become a useful adult. The life of Clancy said 8 years sentenced to kill Owen. The judge concluded his recent interview showed he told police that Christopher gave him up and they killed Rowan. The Missouri Supreme Court set an execution date for a man accused of raping and murdering a 9-year-old girl in Southwest Missouri. In 2012, a jury convicted Christopher Collins of 2007 abduction and murder of Rowan Ford Stella Miller. Investigators say Collins threw Ford's body to a sinkhole in Buffalo. The Supreme Court denied his execution. Christopher Collins was doomed from start. When his appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court was turned down, his Republican Clancy was turned down by Governor Mike Arson. Arson used the sheriff had been charged with 12 kills. They never been sentenced to anything. Christopher said he had been seized on December 3rd, 2024, and then killed. Newton County Sheriff's was one of the people in the investigation and said he thought killing him for a long time. I hope the state would still in charge. I have to be present at the execution. I thought the best thing for him to do. He also told her she would never get full justice. I thought to see more done and some of the charges dropped, but this is how it turned out. It's been a long time. I'm glad the date is finally been set. Christopher was going to death on December 3rd, 2024. At 5:54, the people around the execution stand were moved to this. One were four members of the defense team, from members of the media, 8 state witnesses, and 2 family members of Rome. Andrew Bailey, who was the attorney general of Missouri, told the corrections at 6 p.m. There were no legal officers attending the execution. Christopher Collins was was announced dead 9 minutes after that. Christopher wrote a letter and was read out loud after he was put to death. Right or wrong, I accept the situation for what it is. I'm sorry anyone ever in his life. I hope you guys move on. No matter what side you're on, we gotta pray and look forward to seeing him one day. It was that Mr. Collins was to death. The sheriff James said he thought the system had run down. It's too bad that the police weren't called, even though there were a lot of warnings on the position. If you know about that, I'd like to think we could take care of that decision. I guess in this case, this case is mine. But it's injustice, but it's only little. I'll take what I got. It's one of those cases that you never forget. Make a place that gaze at shockwaves, Southwest Missouri. Just terrible. And somebody take life and throw them down to a cave like a parent. It's terrible. Do you feel like justice is service? I think, yeah. I think it has. She deserves this. You give some satisfaction to the family. It may be that deserved. There are so many people involved in this case. They'll never go away. Sheriff James said he was a terrible crime. He's 24 years in the job. He had robbed murders. But they don't get hers. This is Rome's ID. And I've had it in my pocket ever since that happened. After this, I'll still be in my pocket. He said the case changed how they look at crimes against children. In the county, we deal with a lot of cases of child abuse and neglect. Of course, we always put safety of children first. We take kids from our homes, but we have to do it if there's no other choice. This event's always on our minds here. Rome still had that people in her neighborhood. A teacher we taught Paul would testify at trial. Said he can clean up a desk for a while after he died. I think a teacher from that kind of kid. She did go to school. It's all about work. It was all about what Rowan would do, move up in life. How it was Rowan's best friend. How his mom talk about how they spent together, and how Rowan's tries to keep Rosie's son calm. It's the most losing my own I felt in a long time. He still took her, so my son couldn't speak my health. But because to always remember and love him. I'm so proud of the one she became. When my sister died, he said, thanks for watching. If this case was chapter heartbroken, hopefully you like, subscribe, and share your thoughts and comments below. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware. Detectives got that something wrong, and it's not. His instincts are terrifying, right? A 9-year-old family overnight, leading trail of fear, confusion, and nothing questions. By November 2007, in Missouri, the child had not been seen or heard from in 50 days. On November 3rd, 9-year-old girl disappeared from her bedroom. The small town Stella, where she was last seen, was worried crazy. There were a lot of dads, and no one knew where he was or what happened until someone gave her a tip. People told police to go to Fox Cave in Untold County. Fox Cave was said to be one of a pit and cave. It was about 30 feet from the room and in a very wooded area. Sheriff's deputy Mike Ball and JP's went over to look. 20 feet low, they found a child body on the ledge. Before we dive deeper, we know Collins where he was from. I was out here in beautiful world. And if you're in true crime story like this one, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to never get out below. Alright, let's back to base. In Stella, Missouri, where not more than 200 people living. Rome 4 was one of those who decided to talk. Rome was born on April 11th, 1998, in 9 year life. In 5th grade, she was hard and happy. She enjoyed reading, drawing, and writing outside. She thoroughly enjoyed going to church. We were often early to assist Catherine setting up. When she came home, she would always sitting on the steps and smile. In addition to Documentaries, she went to Sunday school. She was crazy about writing, and her big bedroom enjoyed it. But things were always easy fun, and she often had ice. Her hair would get tangled. And even though it was cold and rainy in winter, she still had to go to school without socks on. Even so, she worked very hard at school, and teachers didn't have anger in their class. She always did her best, even when she was having trouble selling math. One teacher said of her, she's a little sunshine and the sweetest girl good for me. 2 older brothers who were no to raise money because she was shy. She was sometimes like a bigger sister. When she spoke up, her sister had moved out. She was very neutral. No one didn't let her. One day, their 44-year-old mother, Pauline, and her 25-year-old stepfather, Abe Spears. In addition to being a husband, Abe was also a father. He was supposed to pay $29 in child support in 2005. It wasn't clear if he ever saw his kid. Rowan also with Colleen, she got home from work. She ran up to the driveway to see how she was going. Nevertheless, Rowan was there on November 3rd, 2010. When Colleen went inside, she thought that Rowan might be in her bedroom reading, as she often did. Although she wasn't there, she wasn't even on the land. While David was on the couch, she asked him where she was. He supposed she was at home with a friend, but he did not testify with him. David told Colleen she had to be at a friend's house. She called the cops. Pauline went with him for flowers for a phone call, but let her know she was there. It was very quiet and didn't call. After that, they looked all over the area but couldn't find her. Rowan was missing. At 6:50 p.m., it was an alert, and very quickly a huge search began. Many people stopped and help. A lot of people from the neighborhood came out to look for her. There were a lot of crime out and found her missing. So they framed Rowan and first year out for just night for whom, and most importantly, who was the last girl police. Rowan and her stepfather, David, while her mother worked over a shift at Walmart. David told police that he had not members of his friends, Christopher and Nathan. He had left her there by herself while she slept on the floor of her bedroom. After being over one night, he didn't check her room. Things were changing again. He told police that he had gone a second time around 1:38 and attempted to take her SUV. He called his mom. He announced she didn't check her room while she waited for him to come back. She watched TV. But one thing that police did not believe it. He wouldn't say where he'd been that night or why he had been gone for hours. He admitted he should not have left her alone and said he had told police first because he was afraid they think he was involved. Wouldn't quite sure first. And he said it's very strange that he didn't report her missing until 8 hours after she was last seen. They needed to talk to Nathan and Christopher to see if their stories matched in order to get an idea of when it happened. Police talked to Nathan. He told him he, Christopher, and David met down at the farm where they were all looking. After going to the store, went home with the pool. Around 8:30 p.m. Pauline went to work. Later that night, Christopher asked Nathan to drive home, and Nathan went with him. Rose stayed at the house alone. They continued to drink and smoke pot. When he got to Christopher's area, they bought more alcohol on the way there. After about an hour, Nathan and David left to go home. Nathan didn't want to get pulled up for a driving alcohol, so he took back roads instead of the highway. After driving it off, they came out home at night. Christopher Collins, David's friend, who was with the night he was last seen, pulled off the same thing Nathan did. He got parked outside the lot. This happened on November 4th the next day. He went to sleep in his caravan, said he stayed there. David and he hadn't talked, and he didn't know that Ron was missing. Still, David kept getting word after the FBI joined the investigation the next day. Other police officers from 3 different bodies, 3 experts, and Missouri State Highway Patrol, and FBI agents all worked together to find her. While David was still being questioned by deputies, FBI agents took his car and his mother's car. She had borrowed the night. Around the same time, Boone County officers went to Christopher's place and asked him to answer a few more questions. He stated he had needed and went to the sheriff's office car. He also agreed to take their and a computer whistle which checks on the voice to see if they found the truth. He told that he had no idea when was the offer to find her. Wheaton Police Chief Clinton Clark was out on radio patrol that afternoon. Commissioner Clark had noticed her for 17 years. Christopher believed him and asked for help in support even after his mother died. Christopher pulled him over and told him that Rowan had gone missing and that he was going to look for her. Clark, the chief, said Christopher was himself and was inside. That's when Chief Clark told the FBI that Christopher had told him what was lost. He Christopher might know something. The FBI told him to keep Christopher because he said it anyway. In addition, Christopher told the FBI he thought David had something to do with Rowan's disappearance. Officer Wire told him to go. In fact, he told him where they could look for Rowan. The lost area is a small town very hard, and many people were scared and confused. It's so natural. They Rowan disappeared. Last time Ken Marshall, she at school, saw her. She saw Rowan's hair neatly brushed, so they pushed it and put it up for their full class. Rowan was still there, but 10 minutes younger hair later in the day. She was by herself. She just stayed by. She would finally escape to the society like everything was father. People were interested in David, Christopher, and Nathan because they were the last ones to see her. And then years, said Mr. Level, wait, delight. And the evening, he went seeking off his FBI house phone. Christopher Day had been all the time. Chris actually lived in the basement with them for a few months a year. Rowan had to go over school, and he called Christopher was also dad. He had 3 kids under 10 years old and lived in Arkansas with their mom. Christopher went to his family's farm in October 2007 and lived with a there. Search warrant for David Spears on November 6th. 3 days after he was reported missing. A lot of people talked to him. Search his house. Chris went to Chief Clark's office in the early evening. It sounded like the FBI talked to him and asked suspicious on where to look. Captain Clark thought he was thinking about something he looked there. It was Christopher looked in the house. When Chief Clark called the FBI, he told him about the talk. It was Thursday and he needed to confess. The FBI thought he would probably tell Chief Clark. That's why they asked Chief Clark to help with the investigation. Chief Clark agreed. Christopher met with the FBI and moved on to Sheriff's on November 7th. And agreed to give a swab personal laptop with DNA testing. He also made a house and see if he had his house to be checked. The man told the FBI that David's story about having something else to do that Rowan missing was not true. Christopher became nervous and emotional when he was asked about missing while during the conversation. He told David that he would not be willing to talk about anymore if they would say they had something to do with it when missing. They would do it there. Afterward, he went to see Chief Clark and was very sad about David. It came to anything else. He said he would time up and decided that he needed to take legal action. Chief Clark told him he could do it. And also told him Christopher should do everything he could to help find Rowan. He had no reason to stop with the road. Chief Clark made sure that Christopher was running rights because he knew how important it was to follow the rules. Christopher said, if I have anything else to say, I'll talk to you. Christopher agreed to terms of the lease and copy. Chris Clark was feeling down, so Chief Clark asked him if he knew anything about what happened to Rowan. Christopher began to cry all of a sudden. It was his word that he would not hurt, and then he loved her. Someone came in and cut him off. At this point, Chris quickly got up and left him. Chief Clark told the FBI what happened and said they thought Christopher was on the loose. He thought he was louder. Chief Clark talked to the FBI in more detail the next day about Chris Rollins' descendant and his connection with the thing. Christopher knows something about what happened, he said. But he should feel flattered by it. When Rollins' body was on, the FBI said they wanted him to be the one who called Christopher. Another break on the next day, confirming Rollins' tears. David and Christopher both worked in Carson's on bridges or in the Christopher worked in mechanic, and David had some experience with cars and buildings. Bridges were to tell his jack of all trades. Mark said David called him for the first time while he was on duty and the agents reported this. I guess he first thought I used to be sheriff and could help, said he. David took him over and over. She might be at a friend's house. Mark said he looked around the gate on number 8. According to reports, the FBI and environmental and everything following it. It was David who got time to look over. As if Christopher was paying for anything. He asked me to be the elevated. I said, I would suspect Chris might be involved with this. Eddie, Chris, what did you do from his mind? He turned it. It was a decision. They go look. And they did. The first place he took me to the hole in the ground. At the hole in the ground me. Spotted fox. I saw something that brought suspicious to me. So I wasn't sure what they were. David and I had a conversation about it at the time. I didn't want to search Dave. I think subconsciously they did too. He took to the cave for a reason. After that, the FBI got the McDonald County Sheriff's Department. On November 9th, around 8 a.m., deputies all called HBS went there to search. They discovered a child body on an edge 20 feet below surface. Chris Jennings, sheriff of Newton County, said, I wasn't there when the body was found, but I don't think anyone had any doubt it was her. Rowan had eggs, who was moved by autopsy reports. She had died from being strangled. There were small cuts and bruises on her body that showed they had been hurt before she died. They also found serious wounds on her face, most likely from the floor of the pit. Chief Clark heard Rowan's body had found. He turned on November 9th. Later, his office told him that Chris had been there and wanted to do. The FBI told Chief Clark to find Christopher and told him they had found Rowan right away, but Chief Clark couldn't find Christopher. His phone rang. It was the man he was looking for. Chief Clark told him he didn't know anything about swinging. He asked police for following him to Romania. Christopher said he felt scared and threatened. They didn't drive all the area. They could read the feeling. Christopher wanted to meet him, but Chief Clark told him to go to the police station. He agreed to drive Chief Clark to the police station in his car. And then, well, son, ignore. We found his body this way. Just came to the words, but Christopher eyes well, and his head dropped. Christopher knew what he had done, and that's what the main person was thinking. Please tell the truth. He begged him. Christopher was surprised by what he saw, because there were so many people in the apartment. Christopher didn't want to talk to anyone else, so they went to the bridge. She was only a few miles from him. It was important for Chief Clark to let the police know they were going. Christopher held out his hands and got to the bridge, ready to be head off. He told him it was necessary, so he said, that's what I'm about to tell you. He will. As his family slowed up the bridge, Christopher told the same story he had been telling all week until Nathan and David left his apartment. He used back roads to avoid the off-Brighton Road. He said he informed her that he could assist from in the area for Nathan and David. He got to them quickly, driving on the highway, which was the fastest to get there. After going to the toilet, he went into the room. He threw up on the rug, took her aside, and put her in his bra. She slept there. She was still sleeping when they got to scare him, in case she recognized his voice. He didn't see anything, so he let her die. He picked her, and then said he was going to take her home. As she walked, he held her arms and turned her face away from him, but she didn't see him. While she was walking, she turned around and saw his face. They just got over, and she knew it was him. A man called Uncle Chris. He said he freaked out and was broken to rock near property. Even this, he killed her around 4 by struggling her. In the bed of his truck, he put her body after saying he knew he was out logical. He said that he was only throwing her body from the ridge, but changed his mind because he was afraid she would fall down quickly. He drove around thinking about where to bury her body until he decided Fox Cave. He threw her body in the seal and tried high holes opening the ridges. The hole was too big. Later, he drove home. Upon his arrival, he discovered blood on his clothing bed. He put her pants, pajamas, wood, and his own clothes in the snow, burned them and made it proof. His flames rolled over himself, put him in the drum. I got them, now it's going to be a fire. Somebody's going to see it burning. He said, following this, he took the truth to the barn and lit it on fire. The story was awful. If I know how that woman had been hurt, made it even worse to think about. Christopher and Chief Clark went back to the police station, so now there are some people he had to say. He's ready to write again. He called his detectives Mary County, Newton County, where there, the FBI story in it. Also, he signed papers saying that his property project. After that, he was taken to Mary County's apartment and gave his name. This time, it was recorded on video. It was his fault, he said, and he gave the chronicle bay all afternoon. The police were shocked when they heard the statement, because they thought Christopher knew that David killed Rowan. After learning more, they thought they'd get him, and this time David killed. They could see more music. David said he shot Rowan, and from she was up there, he went in. He told Copeland he and Chris had to his house. She was escaped by Chris when they got there. She was also escaped by him. Afterward, they believed they were in danger, so they killed her and threw her in the hole. He said first that he was spreading around, but now we know that they taken her body away and seen it wrong. They told the cops Christopher being wrong, and they used it to kill Rowan. I shook him. I realized she's gone. She's really gone, said he. The transcript showed that they talked Christopher again. I told him what David said. Christopher was sure David had anything to do with the crime. The events that followed. It involved 2 people. One flew behind and the other had this audience was basically becoming hard to understand. The Mary County Sheriff Beverly sent the lawyers that both had ranger, and it was later who killed her. As part of the case, Christopher had died. The Collins and David were charged for 3 murder, statutory rape, and forcible rape. I really thought Christopher would shoot the but not David because they were learning. The Mary County Jail told them both without bond. Or David thought they would talk to her son while he was in jail. He told them that they had involved in the crime again, but they can't pass out. It was not rumor why it happened. She broke down in tears and said, he's not willing to stop. His brother Greg said he couldn't believe it. He's so upset. He loved her so much. I don't believe he can do something like this. He's 3 kids of his own. The 2 of you in court in Mary County, Missouri. The 2 were arrested on Monday. 3 days after going for a body was found about 10 miles from home, according to investigators. Both men had been taking part in the crime, but today in court and pleas and not guilty. Today, Spears called the trial but Chris and Ledgers. Ward's mother, Pauline Spears, was still today, joined several family members. While many in the community sought continued to be in justice, they did not take court proceedings this morning. I want to, but my heart wouldn't let me. Colleen said, I didn't want to go there. You look those guys. Colleen asked David for a divorce on November 27th. Bill, Mary Town, said she was so sad to talk to the press. She's not feeling anything. She has other things to do. She's in there right now. Using television to make something a funeral parade. Some people in school lighted a dogwood tree in her honor the morning before her and her festive balloon was attached to them. There was also a there to mark her birthday and the day she was founded. She was buried at Gospel Church. Her funeral song, The Old Red Cross, was sung. More than 3 people were there. Wade Rose, Steph, many people looked at their hate and names like Chris Collins and David Sears. Same thing from Nazi. Christopher found over for trial. It means that the court thought there was a good reason to bring the case to trial court. Dave's lawyers asked the trial move from Mary County to Boston County, because all the attention from India. This was agreed upon. The court rechanged because he and Christopher were being highly separated. But this case is so complicated, it won't go to court for 10 years. Then there was some bad news. The judges had to remain formally and pursue the murder statement. Spears were brought back to consult with the attorney general's office. A new proof came in from outside. Johnny Cox, the prosecuting attorney, and they came to a new plea deal. Dave was given 4 years in prison for justice, 7 years for danger in the trial. Both missions, the could be given for his crimes. That was not an easy choice. Prosecutor Ernie said, "We got the date and murder soon after he's arrested. This case has only consumed the research of my office for the last 4 years and 10 months. He knew it has been long since his last term. Dave Spears was linked to murder and Rowan Ford, but evidence still his life. Since then, no new proof of Mr. Spears' crime has been found. He said that testing and analysis of proof did not show Dave was guilty. It results in the match, he said before. A week past kid started his evidence. It was during autopsy, and after looked at by the lab, yes, they believe that. The lab. If that's what Christopher said happened that night, results from several lab joke. Cox also pointed out, David's claim he killed Rowan didn't make sense. The fact that there was no physical evidence could be used in court raised major concerns and questions about Dave Spears' motives. He said Christopher had always known that anyone else was involved in killing Rowan. He said he said in his first and last interviews. Cox said Christopher Cullen did describe before. Every time he called police, cops were worried he had to defend Christopher Cullen. What happened that night? Also defending his town, which was against Christopher's. Another was that it couldn't be possible for David's case to be found if he was found guilty of more state crimes and Christopher's case to be found out. 2. Cox said the state would accept either result. This type of crime should not be jury. He stated, I felt terrible when I first heard about it. That being said, as prosecutor, I am a minister of justice and must follow the law, the truth, and is fair and just. Rather than Benson, the sheriff, left Cox made a choice. Those physical evidence would support him against years to the judge. So even though it was hard for him, the prosecutor did what he had to do. He said, adding this only to himself. The evidence was caught as the blood. Some things were sent years. There were some problems with the proof the Collins did, but it didn't solve all the questions. Instead, while some say they did such a terrible thing, the public wants to know. There's no good answer for that either. I agree with the lawyer said. I was really not sure if he would admit it. I was sure the case would be bad. He could have been found not guilty. Chris Collins later put in move dismiss, which meant that the evidence would always stay as police during the investigation. As well as the evidence was reported. Jailer truck the body should not use in trial. He was told no. It took weeks to find Christopher Collins. Christopher's lawyer said in court that he had a lot of problems in there. Emotional other people because his parents lived in law and he was trust by being foster care. Christopher was a kid and this. All these things ended up in foster care because there was criminals and drug addicts. He became a father later on, but his drug and alcohol troubles would cause a lot of trouble. His lawyers told the judge that he had no plans to build up. They asked the jury to know the horrible crime. He was showing the cops photos and old age and sent folks on the law and facts, which they said that he had no plans to do this. She came back outside, still pulling off from the face down. Painful the injury had been. Very painful. They know it. Colleen, Rose's mother, was one of the people who testified after they heard she had killed. But nothing back didn't have one at the time. Asked the judge. Told me that myself and my children. She told him. Rose said that she flew the floor, but she heard their sister in build. She said that the whole family came very sad. At last, this crime was over. And lost teeth. They gave their decision. He, the jury, found the defendant Christopher Collins guilty of murder in first degree. If Collins did this case, so the case would be very important. During the punishment part of the case, the state showed 6 comments from witnesses about the crime affecting victims. Christopher Brian's witnesses said they didn't remain involved in the wrong. The person who was assumed about also said he had not been able to care for it all for 6 months of his life. This slowly growth. So it said Christopher Shelton gave out with other people. Because of this, we had a serious story serious attachment disorder and injury and explosive personality disorders. After the punishment part was over, the jury suggested the person be put to death. After that, there were no challenges. On July 23, 2012, Christopher's lawyers took the left in the Supreme Court. They were appealing the death sentence. When it comes to death by the case in Missouri, these kind of appeals are automatically made. In 2014, his decision was turned down. Another appeal was made by Christopher. This time, he was turned down life in prison. This was turned down. He asked Missouri Supreme Court for an order of habeas corpus. This was proof. He would be able to show proof. Government did not allow them and their maintenance. Waiting Chief Clinton Clark and Colonel Edward when he was in Vietnam. Government's chief Clark being able to change the result. This went on against years of Army War I. He was treated for 2015 and being locked up for more than 10 years. He got a job at the Missouri State Public Defender Office with husband and child soon after he got out of jail, but not before the end of probation. He had to go there for 18 months before his probation ended. Christopher and David had lawyers at the Public Defender Office. Lawyers for Christopher said David's job as a public defender being a conflict of interest making impossible for the Collins to plead guilty to those charges. His lawyers said in their papers there might be a conflict because they had feelings over faith with the Collins reacted to the conflict. They didn't tell the court Mr. Collins' side. Mr. Collins himself didn't know about the claim until after his post-conviction process was over because it wasn't shared with him. Christopher's case with Clemency was based on the fact that he had a brain disorder that made it hard for him to be aware of decisions and think things through. It also said he had been sexually abused again. The lawyer said this left further and without any instructions on how to use the But Clemency said David's beard admitted to killing Ryan. The transcript was showed he told the police that Christopher gave him a rope and he killed Ryan. The Missouri Supreme Court that executed for 9 years of raping and murdering a 9-year-old girl in Southwest Missouri. In 2012, the judge gave Christopher Collins a 2007 bad murder of Road for his son, Missouri. Investigators Collins was body was in cold in Bell County. The Supreme Court made his execution September 3rd. Christopher was doomed for a start. Appeal to the Supreme Court was turned down, and his Clemency was turned down by Governor Robertson. Person used to be sheriff and in charge of killings. He had never committed sentence of anyone. Christopher said to him the scene of on December 3rd, 2024, and that bill. New police sheriff James Paul appealed the investigation and he thought the killing had gone for a long time. I hope the state would come while I'm still in charge. I asked to do the execution. I thought it was the best thing for Owens to do. He also told her that she never get full justice. I'd like to see more done and some of the charges dropped. This is how it turned out. It's still a long time. I'm glad they get finally decided. Christopher was already pleaded that on December 24. 554. The people were executed and ruled place. Among them were 4 members of Fencing, 4 members of media, 8 witnesses, and 2 family members of Andrew Bay, the Attorney General of Missouri, Public Department corrections at 6 p.m. There were no legal problems and the application. Christopher Collins 49 was pronounced 9 minutes after that. Christopher wrote in a letter that was read out loud after he was put to death. Right or wrong, that's the situation for what it is. I'm sorry to anyone hurt in this stuff. I will put this beyond you and move on. No matter what side you're on, know what I pray for you and look forward to seeing you one day. If Christopher Collins was put to death, the sheriff James said he thought this thing would let down. It's too bad that police were all, even though there are a lot of money if you knew about that, I'd like to think you would care how that did. I to the end of the case, bring peace of mind. Earth and justice was little. Let's fight again. It's one of those cases that you never forget. Mick Cody says the case is shot says yourself in Missouri. Just terrible. It's only to life and throw them down into a cave and it's terrible. Do you feel justice and service? I think yeah, I think it has. She didn't there this. We'll give some satisfaction to the family. It may be not deserved. There are so many people who were involved in this case, they'll never go away. Sheriff Jennings said he was a terrible crime. In 44 years on the job, he had worked on murders, but this one made it hardest. This is on school lady. Now I didn't know that. After this, I'll tell you my luck. He said their case changed related to crimes against children. In the county, we deal with a lot of cases of child abuse and neglect. Of course, we hold that safety children first. He hated taking kids from their homes, but we have to do it if there's no choice. This event is over on here. Rose staff still infect many people in the neighborhood. Teacher named Todd Hall, who testified at trial, said he could clean up this for a while after she died. I think every teacher wanted that kind of kid. She'd go to school, but it was all about work. It was all about what I would do and what I would live. I was Rose's best friend. Tyler's mom would talk about time they stayed together. Now Rowan's stress, but even though he's on call. It's the most losing my own child I felt in a long time. He still talks about her, so my son couldn't by himself. Her bigger sister will always remember and love Rowan. I'm so proud of when she came. And my sister died. A piece of died. Thanks for watching. If it tastes like a shock or broken, over to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts and comments below. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware. Detectives got said something was wrong, and it's time. These things are surviving. And then eventually, leaving behind a trail of fear, confusion, and devastating questions. On November 9th, 2007, in Missouri, a child not been seen or heard from 8 days. On November 3rd, a 9-year-old girl disappeared from her small town spot, where she was last seen was really crazy. The world dead ends, and no one knew where she was or what happened. Someone gave them people told police to Fox Cave in Mountain County. Fox Cave was more than a bit in a cave. It was about 30 feet from the road and very area. Terrorists had my call into GPS where I look, 20 below, if I found body on the ledge. Before we leave her, no comments so you're watching home. I always love hearing viewers around the world. They read true crime stories like this one. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can miss another. Alright, let's the case. In South Missouri, we're not more 200 living. Going forward to one of those who decided to call home. Rome was one of the oldest and in her life. If we're afraid, she worked hard and was right. She enjoyed being growing and being outside. She really enjoyed going to church and nothing was pretty. This is the pastor saying no. When she came home, she was always sitting on the steps and smiling. And she was from Missouri. She went to Sunday school. She was pretty Barbie. And her bedroom showed. Things were always easy for women. She often had lice. Her hair would get tangled. And even though it was cold and winter, she sometimes went to school without socks on. Even so, she worked very hard at school. And teachers loved having her in class. She always did her best, even when she was having trouble with someone else. One teacher said of her, she is a little sunshine, and the sweetest girl you've ever met. Two older brothers and one younger sister raised Rowan because she's shy. She was sometimes hide under her bigger sister. When she finished up, her sister said the room lit up. Rowan, she was very special. No one did like her. Rowan lived with her 44-year-old mother, Colleen, and her 49-year-old stepfather, David Spears. In addition to being a husband, David was also a father. He was supposed to be in the child support in 2005. And it was a year if he ever saw his kid. Rowan also be there for Colleen when she got home from work. She would not use the doorway, so she fit home. Nevertheless, Rowan wasn't there on November 2010. When Colleen went inside, he thought Rowan made her bedroom. She did. Although she was there, she wasn't even on the land. While David was on the couch, she asked him where she was. He disclosed she was at home with a friend, but he insisted on her friend. David told Colleen she had to be at his house, and she called the cops. Colleen waited to think that for a few hours for a phone call, but then she was there. It was very quiet, and nobody came to call. After that, they thought, oh yeah, I couldn't find her. Rowan was sick. At 6:50 p.m., it was a murder alert, and very quickly a huge story began. Many people inside came help. A lot of people in the neighborhood came out to look for her. There's a lot of time running out to find Colleen. When they found her, they had to figure out who she was the night before. With whom, and most importantly, who was the last person people to see her. Rowan had been with her stepfather. David, while Rowan worked equal night shift at Walmart. David told police he had on the night before with his friends, Christopher and Nathan. He had left her by herself. She slept in the floor of her bedroom. After he called her around midnight, he didn't check on her, but things changed again. He told police that he had gone outside around 38 and attempted to take his feet. He called his mom. His mom said he didn't check on her. I'll shut the come back. She just watched TV. There was one thing police didn't like about David. He didn't say where he had been that night or how he had been gone for hours. He should not have left her alone and said he had told police first. Because he's afraid they think he was involved. Moving from Shippers. Jennings said very strange that he didn't report missing until 8 hours after she was last seen. Then he just talked to Christopher to see if the story matched in order to get a better idea of what happened. Police talked to David. He told them that he, Christopher, and David, and that night before they were all working. After Christopher was gone, they went home to play pool. Around 8:30 p.m. Colleen went to work. Later that night, Christopher asked David to drive him home, and David went with him. Rowan stayed at home alone. They continued to drink the salt pot, and the customers hearing him. They bought more alcohol on the way there. After about an hour, Nathan and David left the Nathan wanted to pull over for driving drunk, so he took back roads instead of the highway. After putting David off, Nathan got home Monday. Christopher calls David's friend, who was from the night she last seen, told officers the same thing Nathan did. He left the parked parking lot. This happened November 4th the next day. He wants to meet Mr. M, Mr. Nader. David and Nathan talked, and he knew that no one was missing. Tells Nader, W. The FBI joined the investigation the next day. A lot of police officers from 3 different counties, the Missouri State Highway Patrol, and FBI agents all worked together to find her. While David was still being questioned by the days, FBI agents used car as a squad, she had around the same time, moving officers went to Christopher's workplace and asked him if there were questions. He stayed his minute and went to the sheriff's car. He also went to the office and appeared voice analysis, which checked on his voice to see if it had the truth. He told me he had no idea where was offered to help find her. We police chief Clark went out on regular patrol that afternoon. Him Clark had known Christopher for 17 years. Christopher believed in him and when asked for help with his boat, even after his life died. Christopher pulled over and told him that Roy Fonzie and he was helping the Lord. Clark, chief, so Christopher was himself and excited. After when Chief Clark told the FBI that Christopher had been lost, he thought Christopher might know something. The FBI had told him to talk because he said he thought maybe he could. In addition, Christopher told the FBI if David had something to do with Roy's appearance and offered Roy to help the boat. In fact, he told him where he could look for one. Lost her small on their hard, and many people stared confused. It was unusual. The day Rowan disappeared was the last time Tam Marshall, the teacher at the school, saw her. She saw Rowan's hair needed to be brushed, so they put it in the pot during the full class. Rowan was still there, and Tam looked to check her hair late at the day. When she was herself, she just stayed by. She let me see look so happy, everything was fine with her. People interested in Dave, Christopher, and then he had the last ones this year. Investigators said Christopher was helpful, worried, and polite. In the evening, he went to the police office and find out Christopher was Christopher David for a long time. Chris actually lived in the basement with the family for a few months later. Rowan asked him to come to their school, and he called Chris. Christopher was also dead. He had 3 kids that were 10 years old, and lived in Arkansas with their mom. Christopher went to his friend's farm in October 2007 and lived near there. His sister Rowan was refocused on Dave's years on November 6th, 3 days after she was missing. A lot of people talked to him. His sister's house. They went to Chief Clark's office in the early evening. They told him FBI talked to him and asked suggestions on where to look. King Clark thought Christopher was thinking about something and said he looked sure. So I think Christopher was giving advice. When Chief called the FBI, he told them about Clark. If Christopher was guilty and he needed to confess, the FBI thought he probably told Chief Clark. That's why they asked Chief Clark to help the investigation, and Chief Clark agreed. Christopher met with the FBI, they moved to Sheriff's on November 7th, and they agreed David's mom was allowed to settle for the investigation. He also gave Christopher's house, and the safety at David's house to get. The men told the FBI that David's story about everything else to do that Rowan was not true. Christopher kept nervous and neutral. He was asked about the trial during the conversation. He told the agents that he would have talked to any more if they were going today. He had something to do with their going missing. He gave him there. After, he went to see Chief Clark and was very bad about the issue. If it came to anything else, taking time off and had the money to take legal action. Chief Clark told him to do what he wanted. He also told him Christopher should do everything he could to help find out. He had no reason to stop happening wrong. Chief Clark made sure to tell Christopher his men advice. He asked him how important it was to follow the rules. Christopher said, if I have anything else to say, I'll help you. Christopher agreed to terms of release and kept talking. Chris Clark sealed down. So Chief Clark asked him if he knew anything about the room. Christopher began to cry all of a sudden. It was his word, he might have heard her, and he loved her. Someone came in and cut off. And so Chris quickly got devastated. Chief Clark told the FBI what happened and said he thought Christopher was he thought it soon louder. Chief Clark talked to the FBI in more detail and said about Christopher calling his family and his connection to them. Christopher might know something about what happened. He said that they should report everybody. When nobody was found, the FBI said they wanted to be the one who talked to Christopher. Another break between the next day. And from later in the years. David and Christopher both worked in the cars and Bridges, corner of Newton County. Christopher was a mechanic, and he had some experience cars and sold things. Bridges referred to himself as a jack of all trades. Mark said David helped him for the first time, while he was on the day she was reported missing. I asked for Saw used to be the sheriff, and helped David. David told me over that she might be at his house. Mark said he looked for Rowan on November 8th. According to reports, the FBI had wired up and playing for him. He was sleeping outside the door. As if Christopher was playing everything, he asked David to be held at it. I said I would suspect Chris might involve this. And if you were this, what would you do with Rowan's body? He pondered it. It was a suggestion that they would look, and they did. The police took his hole in the ground. What the hole in the ground? Spotted Fox. I saw hide and sponsors to me. Said Mark. Wasn't sure if they were. David and I had a conversation about it at the time. I definitely wanted to search the cave, and I think subconsciously David did too. He told me the cave for a reason. After that, the FBI agents and the metal capture department. On November 9th, around 8 a.m., that he's called from JDS and search. They started on the body on alleged feet of the stress. Proceedings, Sheriff of the said, I wasn't there when the body's found, but I don't think anyone had any murder. Rowan had been naked, was proved by the vegetables. She died from being drowned. There was all cuts and bruises on her body. They showed they had been hurt before he died. They also found serious wounds on his face, most likely from being thrown into it. Chief Clark heard that Rowan's body had been found and turned on the news on another night. There, his son told him that Christopher had dinner and wanted to talk to him. The FBI told Chief Clark to find Christopher and tell him they found Rowan right away, but Chief Clark couldn't find Christopher. His phone rang, and his name was before. Chief Clark told him he didn't know anything about his wife when he asked if the police were following him in the rain. Christopher said he was scared and shaken and tried all the area and didn't read the thing. Christopher wanted to win, but Chief Clark told him to go to the police station. He agreed with Chief Clark to the police station's patrol car and they met. Well, son, we found Rowan's body. Just here in those words, and Christopher's eyes went up and his head dropped. Christopher knew David gun, and that was the main person thinking. Please tell the truth. He didn't. Christopher was surprised by what he saw because there were so many people in the apartment. Christopher didn't want to talk to anyone else, so they didn't bridge. The only few miles from Sweden. It was important for Chief Clark to let the police know where they were going. Christopher held his hands when they got to the bridge, ready to be handcuffed. People told him it wasn't necessary, so he said, because when I'm about to tell you, you will. But they sat on the side of the bridge. Christopher told the same story in the Valley until he had ended with his mirror. They used that girl so he got Brian drunk. He said he informed her that he couldn't assist on it, and he didn't care before, making the day mature. He got the land quickly right down the highway, just fast as he could. After going to the gun, he went into his room. He took from the ground, took her inside, and put her instructions up there. She was still sleeping when he was staring at her. In case she recognized this, he didn't say anything as they were inside. He read to her, and said he was going to run home. As she walked, he held her arms and turned her face away from him so she couldn't see him. While she was walking, she turned around and saw his face. They just held her home, and he didn't see him. And she called over Chris. He said he freaked out, and it was open to pick up from his property. By using this, he killed one for the trailer, and put in a truck for body after thinking he knew he didn't let her go. He said he was going to throw her body on the bridge, and changed his mind as he was afraid she'd be found with it. He drove around thinking about where her body until he decided on Fox Cave. He threw her body in this hole, and by the time the hole made the hole was too big. There, he drove home, calling his bell, he realized he was on the bed. He went to bed, he just broke. His own clothes were in the roof. His friends rolled their eyes up and put it in the wrong. I got to think out from the fire. Somebody's going to see the room. He said, following this, he took the drum to the bar and lit the fire. This was awful. Found out how drunk and hurt. He didn't worse than hurt. Christopher and Chief Clark back to the police station, so they allowed us to hear what he had to say. He read his rights again. They told the detectives very county in Newton County. Who were there, the I saw again. Also, he cited saying his body could check. After that, he was taken to the very county just parted, and he was taken again. This time, it was recorded video. It was his fault, he said, and he declined the baby all afternoon. The police shocked when they heard the statement because they thought Christopher knew that David killed Rowan. After learning more, they talked to David again and decided he didn't to make things even more confused. David said he checked Rowan, found she was there when he went in. He told Colton he knew Chris had taken her to his house. She was being raped by Chris there. She was also running. Afterward, they believed David in danger, so they killed her and threw her in a hole. He said at first he was driving around, and now we know that they were taking her away as he was running. David told the cops Christopher gave him up and used it to kill a boy. I talked to him. I realized she's gone. She's really gone, said he. They tried to show that they got Christopher again and told him what David said. Christopher was sure that David had nothing to do with the crime, but events followed. It involved 2 people. One from 9 and the other had nothing to do with it. This story no case was becoming harder to understand. I knew that very sheriff Nick said the lawyer said they both had been it was later charged. It was part of the case on what Christopher had said. Tim Collins and David Spears both charged for murder, actual rape, and false murder. Every thought Christopher would be charged with kidnapping and not David because they were learning. Mary got to jail of both without bond. Whole time, David told son while he was in jail. He told her he had been with the crime again, but that he had passed out. He was only now remembering what had happened. She broke in tears and said he loved one all the time. His brother Brett said he couldn't believe it. He so upset. He loved her so much. I believe he could do something like this. He's got 3 kids of his own. The 2 appeared in court in Casio and Mary Derry. 2 arrested on Monday. 3 days after her body was found by Taylor's According to investigators, both men didn't come out, but in court could please not guilty. Today, Susan Constable Martin, Lawyer Chris Nichols, Ford's mother, Pauline Spears, was also in court today, joined by several family members. While Ian meets up, he could be able to justice. They invited court proceedings this morning. I want you. I'm not hurt. He said, they didn't want to go there. And the 2 guys. Colleen asked David for divorce on November 27th. Bill, Mira found, said he was still upset about his arrest. She's not doing anything. She has a lot of things to do. She's there right now, using smoking and for the funeral on her baby. Some people from her school, I said, probably in her aunt, more than funeral, and her friend said wounds was most attached to them. There's also Amy there, Mark's birthday, the day she was found. She buried last year. Her faith song, the old white bus, was up. More than 300 people were there. In the Crown's death, the minister will be paid and their side. Chris Collins and David Spears, but say they were not guilty. Christopher was bound over trial, which means the court thought it was a good reason to bring the case to trial court. David's lawyers asked the trial move from Fairview to Lost County because all the attention from media. This is agreed upon. The court could be changed as he and Christopher being tried separately because this case is so complicated. They opened court for a few years. And it was bad news. The charges had been false and first degree murder and David. Spears were dropped to talk to and consulted the attorney general's office. And new proof in front of Johnny Cox, the prosecuting attorney for guilty, and David came from a plea deal. David's been 4 years in prison for justice and 7 years from being in the state of the trial. Both punishments were harshest to begin those crimes. That's not an easy choice, the prosecutor said. Quickly updated him to debate and resume Freeman's first arrested. This case has consumed the resources of analysts for the last 4 years and 10 months. He noted it's been long since the case last heard. It is serious since the murder of Room 4, but that's his murder is fine. Since then, no new proof linking Mr. Spears to the crime had been found. He said that testing and analysis of proof did not show that David was guilty, and himself as he had said before. I would test it's hard to say. It's same during autopsy. Not for look at the event, not the same not that it matched what Mr. said happened. The results from this actual cops also pointed out that David's name he killed it makes sense. The fact that there is no physical evidence that he used in court, we essentially concerned questions about David Spears' all police. He said Chris always lied and also involved in killing Rome. This is what he said in his first and last interviews. Cops said that Chris had admitted to trying to move forward. Every time he told police, cops were he had to defend Chris what happened that night, while also defending David's house. Joy David's source. Another was that it would be possible for David's case to be thrown out, being found guilty of more crimes, and for Chris to be thrown out too. Cops said the same thing that he result. This type of crime should outrage everyone. He said, I felt terrible when I first heard about it. Then he said, as prosecutor, I'm a minister of justice and follow the law, the truth, and understand just. Robert Adamson, sheriff, thought that cops had made the right choice. There was no physical evidence, but it was supported being experienced, said judge. So he was hard for him. Prosecutor did he had to do. He said, and before he did it by himself, he had his crimes as killer. Similar things were said in Spears' confession, but there were some problems with what the police did. But it didn't solve all the questions. Adamson asked, why was I saying this was a terrible thing? The public wants to know. And there's no way to find out. I agree with what the lawyer said. I was really not sure if he was guilty. I'm sure the case we had. He could have been found not guilty. Quick Collins later quickly moved to us, which meant the evidence for only saying some during the investigation, as well as the evidence recovery. Trailer, truck, and body should not be used in trial. He was told no. It would take Christopher Collins. Christopher's lawyer said, but he had a lot of problems to connect emotionally with people. That's very law. He was traumatized by being scared. Christopher was scared, needless. All his siblings had false care. He had girls and drugs. He would become father later on. He was drunk and alcohol, but not trouble. His lawyer told the judge he had no plans to build money. He asked her to ignore her. He was showing the autopsy photographs, no age, and instead focus on the law and facts. She said Joe, they had no plans to do this. She was taken back outside. Still pulling on the face down. How painful the injury had been. Very painful. Colleen, Rowan's mother, was one of the people who testified in court. They learned she had killed. What kind of impact did that have on you at home? Asked the judge. Totally as myself and published on. She told him. Rowan said that she fell to the floor, but she heard her killed. She said that the whole family came very sad. Last Mr. trial was over. March 20th, the jury gave a decision. The jury finally defended Chris Collins. If the murder of the jury was possible to give the death sentence in this case, so the penalty phase would be very important. During punishment per case, the state showed comments from witnesses about how the crime affected the victims. Christopher seen by 2 witnesses who stated by Bethel in 2009. Christopher's police involvement also said he had not been prepared for it at all at first considered love, which had some of his growth. After said Christopher speaking about it with people. Because this, he was diagnosed with serious domestic social disorder, continuing mental personal disorders. After the part of the resort, the jury suggested the person be put to death. And that, there were changes. On July 23rd, 2012, Christopher's lawyers said the letter was that they're appealing the death sentence. When it comes to the cases, these kinds of appeals are automatically made. In 2014, his decision was turned down. Other appeals made by Clifford. This time, he is certified life in prison. This was now. He asked the Supreme Court for order to have his office. If this was true, he would be able to show proof that the government didn't tell him that main witnesses. We believe Lindsay Clark and criminal record when he was down. Collins said chief was being made. We have to change the result. What was going on with the 8 years? Authorities know. He was in 2015 after being locked up for 7 years. He got a job in the state public defender office. The hospital trial was soon after he got out of jail. But before the information, he had worked there for 8 months before his probation ended. Both Christopher and David had lawyers in the public defender office. Lawyers for Christopher said his job as a public defender created a conflict of interest in the main but applied to guilty charges. His lawyers said in their papers there might be conflict, but because he admits he has over failed to collect the conflict, it didn't tell the court on his own side. Mr. Collins himself knew about until after his post-conviction process was over. His position of Christopher's state cleansing was based on the fact that he had means order and encountering the make decisions as they think so. He also said that he was sexually abused as a kid. The lawyer said this not for Christopher, but that any instructions how to become a youthful adult. The life cleansing to the David Spears admitted killing Rowan. The transcript was so easy. Should he told police 6 days and they killed Rowan. The Missouri Supreme Court set that Supreme Court for 19 for a 9-year-old in Southwest Missouri. In 2012, a jury convicted Christopher Collins of 2007 abduction and murder of Rowan Ford in Southwest Missouri. Investigators Collins moved body in a single front body. The Supreme Court today says his execution December 3rd. Christopher Collins was doomed for the start, but his appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court was thrown out, and his wife Lindsay was now back in the White Horse. Washington State Sheriff had been in charge of 12 plus. He had never commuted since his available. Griffin said to him to sleep at Arnold on December 3rd, 2024, and then killed. Newton County Sheriff Chris James was one of the people who were in the investigation, and he thought killing had been done for a long time. I have to state above on in charge. I asked to present the execution. I thought it was the best thing for Rowan to do. He also told her that she never get full justice. I'd like to see more done in some of the charges brought, but this is how it turned out. It's been a long time. I'm glad they could finally set. Christopher was going to be put to death on December 2024. July 54, the people around the execution moved to place. Among them were 4 members of his defense team, 4 members of the media, 8 state witnesses, and 2 family members who went. And Betty, the attorney general of Missouri, told the department corrected at 6 p.m. that there were no problems in the execution. Christopher Collins told no. Somebody else said 9 days after that. Christopher wrote that there was a dialogue after he was put to death. After Ron, I accept the situation for what it is. I'm sorry anyone ever hurt his life. I hope you can behind you move on. No matter what time you're on, know that I pray you look forward to seeing you in heaven one day. Was after Christopher Collins was put to death. Sheriff James said he thought this that Rowan. It's too bad the police were never called. You know, we're on one side like you know, I don't think you hear about that decision. Because at the end of this case, it's a piece of mind. There's justice. It's only a little. It's like, yeah, it's one of those cases that you never forget. Make up a list of cases in Chaco, Southwest Missouri. It's terrible. It's someone's life that's been down for days. It's terrible. Do you feel justice deserves this? I think yeah. I think it has. She didn't deserve it. It gives some satisfaction to the family. And maybe not deserved. There are so many people involved in this case. They will never go away. Sheriff James said it's a terrible crime. Never years ago, he wrote numbers, but this is only This is from school ID. And I've had in my pocket since that happened. After this, I'll still keep it in my pocket. He said that her case has changed how they look at crimes against children. In Newton County, we deal with a lot of cases of child abuse and neglect. Of course, we always investigate children first. We have to engage in our homes, but we have to do it in no choice. This event's always in our minds here. Rowan's death still had an effect on many people in our neighborhood. A teacher named Todd Hall, who had testified at the trial, said he couldn't never death for a while after he died. I think every teacher would want that out of a kid. She didn't go to school. It was all about homework. It was all about what Rowan could do, move up enough. I was Rowan's friend. Tyler's mom would talk about the time they spent together and how much chance helped keep Rosie's son gone. He said, well, this is my own job. I felt it a long time. He still looked at her, so my son didn't sleep by himself. But your sister will always remember and love Rowan. I'm so proud of the woman she became. When my sister died, my kids died. Thanks for watching. In this case, she shot her heartburn. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe and stay there. The detectives found something wrong. And this time, it's a six right. And I know Vanisher, leading by internal fear, confusion, and asking questions. November 9th, 2007, in Missouri, the child had not been seen or heard from in 50 days. On November 3rd, a 9-year-old girl is being from Her small town style, where she was last seen, was very crazy. There were locked hands, and no one knew where she was when it happened. Until someone gave her a tip. People told police to go to Fox Cave in Montgomery County. Fox Cave was said to be more in a cave. Will 33 from the road, and everybody buried. Sheriff said he might call and JP's go to look. Look below, they might try body on the ledge. Before we got here, and no comments where you're watching from. I always love hearing from viewers around the world. And if you're into true crime stories like this one, be sure to like, subscribe, and now you never said alone. Okay, back to the case. It's not Missouri. There were no 200 people living. Rowan Ford was one of those who decided to go home. Rowan was born on April 11th, 1998, in the 9th year of her life. In 4th grade, she worked hard and anxiety. He enjoyed reading, drawing, and writing by his side. She thoroughly enjoyed going to church, but probably wisely, because the pastor and setting up. When she came home, she was always sitting on the steps and smiling. In addition to angel food ministries, she went to Sunday school. She went crazy at a party, and her big band shorts, but things were always easy for her. She got lies. Her pain tangled. And even though it was cold Missouri weather, she sometimes went to school without socks on. Even so, she worked very hard in school, and she loved having her class. She owns her best, even when she's had trouble in studying math. One teacher said of her, she is a little sunshine, the sweetest girl you could ever meet. 2 older brothers, and one younger sister, grade 1. She was shy. She was tied behind her bigger sister. When we finally spoke up, her sister moved out. Rowan, she was very strong, and later. Rowan lived with her 44-year-old mother, Colleen, and her 45-year-old stepfather, 8 years. In addition to being a husband, David was also a father. He was supposed to pay for $9 score in 2005. It isn't clear if he had something. Rowan would also Colleen when she got to work. She would run out of the driveway to see how she had gone. Nevertheless, Rowan was there on October 3rd, 2007. When Colleen went in, she thought Rowan might be doing it, as she often did. Although she wasn't there, she must be on the land. While David was sleeping on the couch, she asked him where she was. He supposed she was at home with a friend, but he did not specify the friend. David told Colleen she had been at a friend's house when she called the cops. Colleen waited for 8 hours for a phone call, but let her know she was there. It was very quiet. They were being called. After that, they would go in the area and would find her. It was a tip that Rowan was missing. 6:50 now. was hammered and very quickly a huge search began. Many people inside came to help. A lot of people from the neighborhood came out to look for her. There's a lot of finding out when Chronicles was missing, so they find Ronan. They had first figured out where she was the night before. Who was the most important? Who was the last person before the police here? Ronan had been Chris's father, David, while her mother went home that shift at the moment. David told police that he had known the night of the events. Christopher, David, he had left her by himself while she slept on the floor of her bedroom. After getting home one night, he said he didn't check on Ronan, but things changed again. He told the police that he'd gone out risking time around 11 a.m. and then picked her TV. He calls mom. His mom said she didn't check on Ronan. I'll bring back. He just watched TV. But one thing that the police didn't like about Dave, he didn't say where he had that night or why he had known for hours. He admitted he should not have left her alone and said he had told the police first. But it seems like David thinks he's involved. Doing no share of Chris. Jennings said it was very strange that he didn't report to police until 8 or 10 hours after she was last seen. David just talked to Nathan and Christopher to see if the stories matched in order to get their idea of what happened. The police talked to him and they told him to keep Christopher and David and at that night the farm where they all were. I don't know who's they went to people right 3 p.m. pulling into her. Later night, Christopher asked David to drive home and David with him. Ronan stayed at the house alone. They continued to drink and smoke pot and they got Christopher human. They had more alcohol on the way there. After about an hour, and then David left to go home. Nathan didn't want to be pulled over for driving while drunk, so he took the back roads instead of the highway. After trying to get off, and then got home that night. Christopher Collins, David's friend, who was with Ronan that she was last seen, told us the same thing Nathan did, but he felt part of the house. This happened November 4th the next day. He was sleeping in his caravan and then he stayed there. David and he hadn't talked and he didn't know that Ronan was missing. Some of his neighborhood people were having the joined the station the next day. A lot of police officers from 3 counties, 50 experts, and the state highway patrol, and FBI agents all worked together to find her. While they stood being questioned by ladies, the agents took his car and his car, which he had brought with him. Ronan stayed calm, moving on boxes in Christopher's workplace and asked him to answer a few more questions. He saved his minutes and went to sheriff's office that car. He also read the polygraph test and computer stress analysis. Checks someone's voice, see if they're telling the truth. He told him he had no idea, but Ronan was an offer and find her. Wheaton Police Chief Clifton Clark knocked on a regular patrol that afternoon. Commissioner Clark had known Christopher for 17 years. Christopher believed in it and asked for help with her. Even after Christopher died. Christopher told him fully Ronan missing and they decided to look for her. Clark, the chief, took Christopher himself and was decided. As the chief, Clark told the FBI that Christopher told Ronan was lost. He thought Christopher knows her. The FBI told Chief talking to Christopher because he said he'd help in any way he could. In addition, Christopher told the FBI that he thought he had something to do with Ronan's disappearance and offered where a wire to help them go. In fact, he told them where they could look for Ronan. The lost story hit the small town very hard, and many people were scared and confused, which resulted in that. They Ronan disappeared was last time Tam Marshall, the teacher at school, saw her. She saw Rowan's hair neatly brushed, so they brushed it, put it in the eye, put it in full cause. Rowan's still there, until they check her hair later that day. When she looked at herself, she just seemed fine. She didn't buy his game to look so happy, like everything was fine with her. People were interested in Dave, Christopher, and Nathan because they were the last ones to see her. Investigators said he served himself, burning and polite. In the evening, he went to see Colleen offer his help and find out how the search was going. Christopher and Dave had been friends for a long time. Chris actually lived in Lincoln with their family for a few months here. Rowan asked him to help him in school. He didn't call Chris. Christopher was like that. He had 3 kids at 10 years old. He lived in Arkansas with their mom. Christopher went to his parents' farm in October 2007 and lived in a caravan there. Search for Rowan was refocused on 8 years in November 6th. 3 days after his reporting, a lot of people talked in and searched his house. Chris went to Chief Clark's office in the evening, telling the FBI he talked to him and asked suggestions where to look. Captain Clark thought Christopher was outside and said he looked scared. It was obvious that Rowan looked in the eyes. When Chief Clark called the FBI, he told them not to talk. If Christopher was guilty and needed to confess, the FBI thought he would tell Chief Clark. That's why they asked Chief Clark to help with the investigation, and Chief Clark agreed. Christopher met with the FBI and the Lincoln Sheriff's Department on November 7th, and immediately saw some live sample from DNA testing. He also gave permission for his house, as if he had anything else to check. The man told the FBI that they sorted out something else to be like Ronan missing was not true. Christopher became nervous and emotional, and he was asked about the missing file during the conversation. He told the agents that he wouldn't be able to talk to them anymore if the girls say it had something to do with her going missing. He agreed to there. After, he went to Chief Clark and was very upset about the interview. If it came to anything else, he said he would tell and how he might need to take legal action. Chief Clark told him he was lost, but also told Christopher to do everything he could to help find Ronan. He had no reason to help him pro. Chief Clark made sure to tell Christopher around limits because he knew how important it was to follow the rules. Christopher said, if I have anything else to say, I'll talk to you. Christopher read the terms of the lease and Chris Clark down. So Chief Clark asked him if he knew anything about happening to Ronan. Christopher began crying all the time. He considered he would not hurt her and that he loved her. So he didn't off. At this point, Chris left again. Chief Clark told the FBI and said he thought Christopher was about to lose him. He thought he'd soon find another. Chief Clark talked to the FBI in more detail the next day about Christopher Collins' examination with him. Christopher knew something would happen. He said that they should find her body. When Rowan's body was found, the FBI said he didn't do the woman who talked to Christopher. Another big break would come the next day. The firm was fears. He and Christopher reported carpets on March's corner of New Mechanic. Christopher worked in mechanic, and David had experience with consulting, which is referred to himself as a jack of all trades. March said that David called him for the first time while he was on duty at Nations One. I guess he thought he used to be the sheriff and could help. Say, David told him over and over she might be a defense. March said he told him that David on the grave. According to reports, the FBI and Martin and the plan following him. He was able to outside to look for her. As if Christopher was to blame for anything. He asked David to do the devil's advocate. They decided to suspect Chris might be in office. But if you Chris, what would you do in Rowan's body? He pondered it. It was necessary they could look, and they did. The first place took him to the hole in the ground. The hole in the ground me. Spotty Fox. I saw something that brought suspicions to me. Said, I wasn't sure what they were. David and I had a conversation about it at the time. I definitely searched Dave, and I got precious like David did too. He took Dave for a reason. After that, the FBI had to become the sheriff's department. On November 9th, around 8 a.m., deputies might call in GPS on the research. They discovered Child's body, a leg and feet below the surface. Chris Jennings, sheriff of Newton County, said, I wasn't there when the body was found. I don't think anyone had any doubt that it was murder. Rowan admits, which proved by the was. She died of being strangled. There were small cuts and bruises on her body. Showed they hit her before he died. Also, serious wounds on her face, most likely from the pit. Chief Clark heard that Rowan body had been found, and he started losing on November 9th. Later, the officer told Christopher Bennett what his mom. The FBI told Chief Clark to find Christopher and tell him that they found Rowan anyway. But Chief Clark couldn't find Christopher. His phone rang, and it was the name he was looking for. Chief Clark told him he didn't know anything else when. He asked if police were following him and bringing him here. Christopher said he felt scared and threatened, and had been called the area, get rid of the field. Christopher wanted to meet him. Chief Clark told him to go to the police station. He agreed to drive Chief Clark to the police station, special car in the head. On some disorder, before it was this morning. Just reading his words, made Christopher's body well up, and his head drop. Christopher knew what David had done, and that was the main person's name. Please tell the truth, he begged him. Christopher replied what he saw, because there were so many people in his car. Christopher didn't want to talk to anyone else, so he went to the bridge, which was only a few miles from him. It was important for Chief Clark to let police know where they were going. Christopher probably said when they got to the bridge, make the hand go. People told him it was necessary. He said, because I'm not about to tell, you will. As they stand still by the bridge, Christopher told the same story David told all week, which Nathan and David left his friend. They used the back roads to avoid getting caught driving drunk. He said he informed her that he quickly assisted Rowan, leaving area 4, and David returned. Got to the land quickly, running down the highway, so fast as he could get her. By going to the foot, he made the road room. He broke the road, turned outside, and put her in his car, she slept there. She was still sleeping when they turned him. In case she recognized his voice, he didn't say anything until they were inside. He raped her, and then said he was going to take her home. As she walked, he held her arms and showed her face later, so she couldn't see him. While she was walking, she turned around and saw his face. Then she saw her homework. She witnessed him, and she called Chris. He said he forgot, and he hoped to be a big company Friday. Using this, he killed Rowan 4 by shouting her, and then he took his body after 17 years in a lot of trouble. He said he was going to throw a body off the bridge, but changed his mind because he was afraid she would be found everything. He drove over thinking about where he might until the Fox cave. He threw the body in the seal and tried to hide the holes along the frames, but the holes too big. Later, he drove home. On his arrival, he started blood and exploding in bed. He wore pants, pajamas broke. They all clothes and whistle. He burned them and the roof. He then was rolling herself and put it in the drum. I got thinking, now it's going to make a hell of a fire. Somebody's going to see that burning, he said. Following this, he took the barn and lit on fire. The story was awful. They found out how much Rowan had hurt, and even worse they got. Christopher and Chief Clark went to the police station, so that officers could hear what he had to say. He was right again, and he told the package very in the county. Were there at the FBI, he saw it again. Also, signed papers saying his property could be checked. For that, he takes it to every sheriff's department and gave a statement again. This time, it was quoted on video. It was his fault, he said, and he'd been caught on video all afternoon. The police were shocked when they heard his statement. It's not just new, they didn't get killed. After learning more, they talked to David again. Chris had David killed, which made things more confusing. David said check on the room. If she was not there, he went in. He told Oakland and knew Chris had taken her to his house. She was being raped by Chris when he got there. She was also raped by him. After, they believed they were in danger, so they killed her, threw her in the hole. He had first decided around, but no, they appeared right away from the scene of the crime. David told gossips for being wrong, and he used to kill Rowan. I choked her with it. I'm glad she's gone. She's really gone, said he. The transfer proposed that they caught Christopher again. He told him what David said, but Christopher was sure that David had nothing to do with the crime, only had to follow. It involved 2 people, one from the 9th, other had anything to do with it. This all made the whole case become even harder to understand. The document very sheriff Nickerly said that the law said that both of them raped her, but it was clear which one. The document based on Christopher had said, Stephen Collins and David Spear were both charged with first degree murder, statute rape, and forcible rape. Everybody that Christopher was charged with kidnapping, but not David, because David was from Oregon. Very clear of both now on. Over time, David's lawyer called her son while he was in jail. He told her that he had been involved in the crime, but that he had passed out and was not remembering what happened. She broke down in tears and said, he's going to get only son. They said he couldn't believe it. He's so sad. He loved her so much. I can't believe he was doing this. He's creepy to his own. He'll be in court because of the County, Missouri. You were arrested on Monday. 3 days after Rowan body, so I cannot for long. According to investigators, both men had been part of the crime, but they court took these not guilty. Today, Spear Collins were indicted, but first and Charles. Ford's Clean Years was also reported today, joined by 7 family members. Albanian community of Star continued to be in health justice. The United States proceedings. I went to, but my heart and let me. Colleen said, "I'm I'm gonna go over there. Look, you guys. Colleen asked David for divorce on November 27th. Bill, the neighbor found that she was so sad, told the press. She's not feeling anything. She has a lot of things to do. She's in there right now. She's in the same meeting, doing something on TV. Some people are going to school, like a pink dogwood tree in her heart the morning before the funeral. And her friends said no touchdown. There's also in there, Mark Day, the day she was found. She was married to gospel pastors. Her favorite song, the old Ruby Cross, the song. More than 300 people were there. In the wake of Roman's death, the minister told people to liberate, and they were not. Stalin did tears, but they were guilty. Christopher was out over trial. She went to the court for the good reason to the case of the trial. David asked the trial be moved from their county to Alaska, but all the from the deal. This was a new one. The court re-engaged because he and Christopher were being tried separately, because this case is so complicated. They went to court for a few years. And then the bad news. Charges back force rate, different murder and statement. Sears were dropped, to and consulted with the attorney general's office. And proved in Nebraska, Johnny Cox prosecuted her for county, and they came to appeal. It's been 4 years in civil justice, and 7 years for endangerment of a child. Both plaintiffs were harshly convicted for those crimes. That was not an easy choice, that's what the attorney said. We all did admit to be and were soon happy with her justice. This case was assumed to reach the office for the last 4 years and 10 months. He knows and then wants the case was after. These cases was murder for more. That is probably his words inside. Since then, no proof of Mr. Spears' crime been found. He said that testing and analysis proof did not show David's guilty, and it's just not national yet for. We asked the evidence. It's taken during autopsy. We filled the back lab. The state and the FBI lab. The bachelor percent of it. The results from this lab show. Cox also pointed out that David's claim became true. It made sense. The fact that there were physical in court. He says there are intentions, not against the police. He said Christopher knows not that anyone else involved later on. This is what he said in the first and last years. Cox said that Christopher Collins and Nick Strang were for every time he talked police. Cox was waiting to have to defend Christopher's account. Rather than me. Also defend David's account. The way against Christopher's. Another said he could make all of David's cases for now. It was found to be more serious crimes. And Christopher's case for now too. Cox said the state would not accept the result. This time of crime should not reject anyone. He said, I felt terrible on that first night. That being said, his prosecutor, I'm Mr. Justice, and must follow the law, the truth, and I'm saying just. Robert M. said, the sheriff thought Cox made a choice. There was no physical evidence, but it's worth keeping David Spears, said the judge. So you know what was Robert M. Did do? He said, I so he did it by himself. The evidence would Collins as killer. Similar things were said in Spears' confession. There were some problems with proof Collins did, but didn't solve all the questions. Vincent asked, why someone saying he did such a thing? He wants to know, and if no answer for that matter, I read what others said. I was really sure of the guilty. I'm sure the case would be bad. He could have been found guilty. Chris Collins never moved his press. She meant that evidence for all this is at least during investigation, as well as the first trailer truck dead body should not be used in trial. He was told no. It would take him to try Mr. Collins. Christopher's lawyer said, quote, they had a lot of problems they couldn't protect. He was able to as his parents didn't law, and he was traumatized by being foster care. Christopher was 6 kid and the youngest. All these things ended up foster care because their parents criminals and kids. He would become father later on. But his drug and alcohol troubles would cause him a lot of trouble. His lawyer told the judge that he had no plans to kill women. He asked the jury to ignore the horrible crime. Seeing showing autopsy photographs of Collins' age and instead focus on law and facts, which they said showed he had no plans to do this. She was taken back inside, still no cooling on from the next hour. How painful would the injury have been? Very painful, they noted. Colleen, Will's mother, was one of the people who testified in court that they heard she had been killed. But Colleen came back to that home at the time, asked the judge. Told me this myself and my children. She told him. Rowan's sister said that she fell to the floor when she heard their sister had been killed. She said the whole family became very sad. At last, this night trial was over. On March 20th, the jury gave a decision. We, the jury, find defendant Christopher Collins guilty of murder in the first degree. It was possible to give that sentence in this case. The penalty phase would be very low. During the punished part of the case, St. Joseph's comments from witnesses about how crime affected victims. Christopher seen brought in 2 witnesses, said David might have been involved in killing one. A person studying human also said that he had not been cared for at all for the first 6 months of his life, which is slow growth. Experts said Christopher had trouble figuring out how to act without appeal. Because of this, he was diagnosed with serious organized associated action disorder and inmate explosive personality disorders. After the punishment was over, the jury suggested that the person be put to death. After that, there were another challenges. On July 23rd, 2012, Christopher's lawyers sent a letter to the Missouri Supreme Court. They were appealing the death sentence. It comes with the fact that the case in Missouri. These kinds of appeals are automatic today. In 54 his appeal was turned down. Other appeals made by Christopher. This time, to get his term cut down to life in prison. His term down. He asked the Missouri Supreme Court for an order of habeas corpus. If this was approved, he would be able to show proof that the government didn't tell them one of their main witnesses. Wheaton Chief Clinton Clark had a record from when he was in Vietnam. The government said Chief Clark's record being made public did not change the result. What was going on with David Spears? The argument went on. He was treated at 2018 after being locked up more than 7 years. He got a job in the Missouri State Public Defender Office. His husband trial lawyer soon after he got out of jail, but not for the end of probation. He had to work there for 8 months before the probation ended. Both Christopher and David had lawyers at the Public Defender Office. Lawyers Christopher said David's job as a public defender created a conflict of interest, making it impossible for the client to plead guilty to all charges. The lawyer said in papers there might be conflict, but because they had mixed feelings or were afraid how Mr. Collins would react to conflict, they didn't tell the court or Mr. Collins about it. Mr. Collins himself didn't know about the claim until after his post-conviction process was over. He said legitimate. Christopher's case Wednesday, but based on the fact he had a wings order that made it hard for him to be aware, make decisions, I think things too. He also said that he had been sexually abused as a kid. Others said this left the person hurt and without instructions on how to use someone else. The life of Clancy said that David Spears and David killed Rowan. The transcript of the interview showed he told the police that Christopher gave it all and that he killed Rowan. The Missouri Supreme Court set this Tuesday for an accused of murder. 9-year-old girl in South Missouri. In 2012, reviewing Christopher Collins' 2007 murder of Rowan Falls, Missouri. Investigators said Collins was the full body with a single independent found. The Supreme Court today's execution is on the 3rd. Christopher Collins was doomed from the start, but his appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court was turned down, and his wife Clancy was turned down by Governor Matt Parson. Parson used to be a sheriff and had been in charge of 12 kills. He had never commuted sentences of any. Christopher was said to have put to sleep for the marble on December 3rd, 2024, and then killed. Newton Township Jennings was one killed on the investigation and said he thought killing had been coming for a long time. I hope the state got Collins in charge. I asked him to press the execution. I thought it was the best thing for Rowan to do. He also told her she would never get full justice. I'd like to have seen Rowan and then the other charge dropped, but this is how it turned out. It's been a long time. I'm glad the date is finally set. Christopher will be put to death on December 3rd, 2024. 5 before, Bill Rowan and the execution stand were moved to place. On the 4 members of the defense team, 4 members of the media, 8 state witnesses, and 2 family members of Rowan. Andrew Day, who was the attorney general of Missouri, told the Department of Corrections at 6 p.m. there were no legal problems with the execution. Christopher Collins 29. So no man admitted to that. Christopher wrote a letter that is allowed for peaceful death. Fight will I accept the situation for what it is. I'm sorry anyone hurt in his life. I hope you get this how you move on. No matter how you're on, know that I pray you and forward to see you on Canada Day. After Christopher Collins took death, the church said he thought this event rolled down. It's too bad that the police were involved. You know, we're all on the position. If we deal with that, I think we would defend our election. I think the end of this brings peace of mind. British ministers, but so little. I think I can get. It's one of the cases they never forget. Mid says the case she claims that was doing. Just trouble. 17 life, until now to get peace of mind. It's terrible. Do you feel like justice is with this? I think it has. She did their end of this. It gives satisfaction to the family. Maybe not easier. There are so many people involved in this case. They'll never go away. Judge Jennings said he was their crime. He spent 4 years in the job. He wrote letters, but this made him artist. This is from school ID. There had been my ever since then. After this, I was guilty in the pocket. He said that case had changed how they look at crimes against children. In the county, we deal with a lot of cases of child abuse and neglect. Of course, we always put the children first. We hate taking children homes, but we have to do it if they have no choice. The Senate told me here. Rowan's death still had many people in the neighborhood. A teacher named Tyler who testified at trial said he couldn't come out of death for a while. She died. I think every teacher would that I'm a kid. He didn't go to school. It was all about work. It was all about what I wanted to do to move in life. Tyler was Rowan's best friend. Tyler's mom would talk about the times they were together. And Rowan's shyness of keeping his son calm. It's most likely no child I've had in a long time. He still talks about her, so I still himself. Her pictures will always remember love Rowan. I'm so proud of when she became. When my mother died, a piece of me died. Thanks for watching. If this case is shot or broken, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts and comments below. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware. The detectives got something wrong, and this time, since things were finally right. 9-year-old bad word or not, leading down trail of fear, confusion, and distinct questions. On November 2007, in Missouri, a child had not been seen or heard from in a few days. On November 3rd, a 9-year-old girl disappeared from her room. A small two-stop. She was last seen. It was very crazy. There were a lot of evidence, and no one realized what happened until Sunday. People took police to the Fox Cave during the county. Fox Cave was said to be more like a pit than a cave. It was a free from the road, and everything was clear. Here's the wall, and east, look. 20 below, they found a child laying on the ledge. Before we got deeper, let me know the comments to watch from. I also hear viewers around the world. And if it's true, I'm sorry, this one. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit bell so you never miss an upload. Alright, let's get back to this. It's not Missouri. There were more than 2 people living. Rowan Ford was one of those decided to call home. Rowan was born on April 11th, 1998, in Abbeville for life. In 4th grade, she worked in she enjoyed reading, drawing, and writing by outside. She early enjoyed going to church. Her father was early, assistant pastor in San Diego. When she came home, she always sitting on the steps, smiling. In addition, she was fluent in English. She went to Sunday school. She was crazy about partying and bedroom chilling. If things weren't always easy, Rowan, she often had this. Prayer detail. Even though it was cold in Missouri winter, she sometimes went to school at this time. Even so, she worked very hard in school. She just loved her in class. She was their best, even when she was in trouble studying like math. Once she said her, she is a little sunshine and a sweet girl you could ever meet. 2 older brothers and one younger sister, Rowan, because she was shy. She was sometimes hide behind her sister. When she finally stood up, her sister said to Rowan, no, she was very special. No one didn't let her. Rowan lived with her 44-year-old mother, Ollie, and her 25-year-old father, David Spears. In addition to being a husband, David also a father. He was supposed to pay $89 in child support in 2005. It wasn't clear if he ever saw a kid. Rowan was ready for
Sunny when she got to work. She would run into the driveway to see how her shift had gone. Nevertheless, Rome was there on November 3rd, 2007. When Colleen went inside, she thought Rome being in bed already. She often did. Although she wasn't there, she wasn't even on land. While David sleeping on the couch, she asked him where she was. He supposed she was at home with He did not tell his friend. David told Colleen she had to be at a friend's house when she called the cops. Colleen waited for a few hours for a phone call, but let her know he was there. It was very quiet. They weren't getting the call. After that, they looked all over the area and couldn't find her. They tipped that Rome was missing. At 6:50 p.m. with a hamburger and very quick search began. And people stopped a lot of people from the neighborhood came up to her. There's a lot of time running out when her house was missing, so he found Roman and first figured out where she was the night before. With whom? And most quickly, who was the last person or he was here. Roman didn't first fire. David, on the overnight shift and more. David told police that he had found a night missing. He had there by himself while sleeping on the floor of the bedroom. After getting home around midnight, he said he didn't check on him, but things were changing again. He told the police he'd gone out sometime around 1:38 and had taken his TV. He called his mom. His mom said she could check on Roman. She waited for him to come back. She just watched TV. There was something that the police didn't know. Police said Mary had been that night, probably even phone calls. He admitted he shot the left her alone, as he had told police first, because he was afraid they'd think him involved. Didn't talk to Chris. James said it was very strange that he told police that he worked 10 hours after the scene. They needed to talk to Nathan Christopher. The scene was still smashed. There would be a better idea of what had happened. The police Nathan, and he told them to meet Christopher and David, that at that night the farm made all working. After one to a blue store, went home to play pool. Around 3 p.m. Colleen went to work. David that night, Chris arrested Nathan, brought him home, and Nathan with them. Roman stayed at the house alone. They continued to drink and smoke. When he got to Christopher, they bought more alcohol by later. After about an hour, Nathan and David left to go home. Nathan wanted to pull over for a truck, so he took back roads instead of the highway. To drive Nathan off, Nathan got home midnight. Christopher Collins, Nathan's friend, who was with Roman when she was seen, told him the same thing Nathan did, and he left the park about 20 miles. This happened on November 4th. The next day, he went to Smith's and as he stayed there, David didn't have to talk, and he didn't know they were on missing. Sales agent looking order after the FBI joined the investigation the next day. A lot of police officers from 3 different counties, 50 experts, and the Missouri State Highway Patrol, and FBI agents all worked together to find her. While David was still being questioned communities, FBI agents took his car and his mother. She had already died. Around the same time, Newton officers met with the workplace and asked him to answer a few more questions. He said he was and then the sheriff's office car. He also agreed to take a polygraph test and computer voice analysis to check some voice to see if it had proof. He told them he had no idea Roman was then for help fighter. Even police chief Litz's car was out on regular patrol that afternoon. Commissioner Clark had known Christopher for 17 years. Christopher believed in him and asked for help in sport, even after his mother died. Christopher pulled him over and told him Roman was missing and he was going to look for her. Clark, chief, Christopher was himself and was his side. That's when Chief Clark told the FBI that Christopher told him Roman was lost. He thought Christopher might know something. The FBI told him to keep talking to Christopher, as he said he would help any way he could. In addition, Christopher told the FBI that he had something to do with Roman's disappearance and where are to help him. In fact, he told him where to get the Roman. The loss of a small town very hard, and many people stared and confused, which was natural. They Roman disappeared. Last time, Tam Marshall, a teacher in school, thought she saw Roman's hair needed to be brushed, so they brushed it, put it in the knot 30 minutes before class. Roman was still there, even though to check on her hair that day. She by herself, she just slipped by. He went by and looked so happy, like everything was fine with her. Ulrich didn't Christopher, and then he last was here. Investigators said Christopher was awful, worried, hold on. In the evening, he went to see Colleen out for himself and find out Christopher was old. Christopher had been friends for a long time. Chris actually lived in the family for a few months a year. Roman had to have a tour, and he called him Chris. Christopher was also dead. He had 3 kids, 13 years old, who lived in his house with their mom. Christopher family farm. In October 2007, he lived in there. The search warrant was refilled on David's years and others. Today's actually reported missing. A lot of people talked to him, searched his house. Chris went to Chief Clark's office early evening to tell him the FBI talked to him and asked for suspicions on their look. Kim Clark thought Christopher was thinking about something executive here. It's odd Christopher would give him the advice. When Chief Clark called the FBI, he pulled him out the fuck. If Christopher was late and meeting the press, the FBI thought he probably told Clark. That's why they asked Chief Clark to help the investigation, and Chief Clark agreed. Christopher met with the FBI at the Newton County Sheriff's Department on November 7th, and agreed to swallow saliva sample with DNA testing. He also gave a for his house and he had his house leaked. And told the FBI that they story about something else that Roman missing was not true. Christopher kept being nervous and emotional. He was asking to be trial during the conversation. Told the agents they wouldn't be able to talk to him anymore if they were to say he had something to do with missing. The interview ended there. Afterward, he went to see Chief Clark and was very sad about the interview. When it came to anything else, he said he would and how he might need to take legal action. Chief Clark told him he knew what, but also told him that Christopher could do could help find one. He had no reason to stop him at all. Chief Clark made sure to tell his brothers release because he knew how important it was to follow the rules. Christopher's find anything else to say, I'll talk to you. Christopher reached the terms of the release and talking. Chris Clark feeling down, so Chief Clark asked him if he knew anything about the room. Christopher began to lie while listening. Close in, they went out first, and they left her. Someone went and cut the talk off. At this point, Christopher got up and left again. Chief Clark told the FBI what happened and said that Christopher was losing. He thought he soon had earlier. Chief Clark talked to the FBI in Mobile the next day about Christopher's incident and discussion with him. Christopher knows something about what happened. He said, they should first let everybody. When Roman was on, the FBI said they wanted to one to talk with Christopher. Another break come the next day, confirming those worst years. He and Christopher both worked in the carbons for Marches, corner of Newton County. Christopher worked as a mechanic, and David had some serious tolerance to insolence, which is referred to as jack all trades. Mark said that David called him the first time while he was on duty at the Nation of Princeton. They asked for advice to the sheriff and help, said he. David told me over and over that she might be at his house. Mark said he looked for one on November 5th. According to reports, the FBI had her up and plane following him. He was David outside of the fort. As if Christopher was looking for anything, he asked David to be full I said I suspect Chris might be involved with this. But if you were Chris, I'm going to do it on body. He commented, but it was my decision to take a look, and I did. The first place he looked was the hole in the ground. The hole in the ground me. Spot Fox. That's how I brought this to me, said Mark. I was sure what they were. David and I had come to stop at the time. They had to leave Dave, and it's supposed to David did too. He took me to Dave for a reason. After that, the FBI continued to the sheriff's department. On November 9th, around 8 a.m., we got a call and GPS and a search. He started Kyle's body on a ledge 50 feet on the surface. Chris Jennings, sheriff of Newton County, said, I wasn't there when the body was found, but I don't think anyone had any knowledge of her. Roman had been raped, which was proven by observers. She died from being strangled. There was small possibilities in the body that showed they had hurt before she died. They also found a serious wound on her face, most likely fleeing from his bed. Chief Clark, that Roman body had been found, he turned on the news on November 9th. Later, his office told him Christopher had been there and wanted to talk to him. The FBI told Chief Clark about Christopher and told him they had found Roman right away, but Chief Clark couldn't find Christopher. His phone rang, and it was a man he was looking for. Chief Clark told him he didn't know anything about this when he asked the police following him and Christopher said he felt scared and jumped and had to ride all the way there and didn't feel it. Christopher was meeting, but Chief Clark told him to go to the police station. He agreed to drive Chief Clark to the police station in the patrol car when they met. That was on it's over. We found Roman's body this morning. Just few those words. Christopher saw him up and his head hurts. Christopher moved to but that's what main person was doing. Please tell the truth. He begged him. Christopher was spying on what he saw. Because there were so many people in the car. Christopher didn't want to anyone else, so he was to the bridge. She was only a file meeting. It was important for Chief Clark to the police know where they're going. Christopher thought he said so he got the bridge. Needs to be handled. People told him it was necessary, so he said, he doesn't know what to tell you. You will. By the sounds of the bridge, Christopher told the same story about all the David left started. They used the back to avoid the private car. He's being informed that he could quickly assist him in leaving area 4 and then get insured. He got the lead quickly and riding down the highway to the fastest to get there. After going to the good, he went into the room. He picked her up in the room, took her outside, and put her truck while she was there. She was still sleeping when he got to her in case she realized his voice. He didn't say anything as they were inside. He read her, and then he was going to take her home. As she walked, he held her arms and turned facing from him so she wouldn't see him. While she was walking, he turned around and saw his face. He used to have her over, and she didn't see him, and matched all Chris. He said he freaked out, and then opened the pickup in the pocket. I'm using this. He killed her on best friend here. In the bed of his truck, he put her body after they needed him in a lot of trouble. He said he was going to throw her body from the bridge, but changed his mind because he was afraid that she would be found quickly. He drove her thinking about where her body until he decided Fox gate. He threw her body in the seal and tried to hide the holes opening with Chris. The hole was too big. Later, he drove home. Calls her out. He started buttons going to bed. Put her pants, pajamas, no. His own clothes himself. Burned them, gave him proof. His pen was rolled back up. He put it in the trunk. I'm thinking, I was going to get hell of a liar. Somebody's going to see the burning. He said. Following this, he took the jar of the barn and lit it on fire. The story was all. And finding out how the phone had been hurt, it never stayed up. Christopher Chief Clark went back to the police station so the officers could hear what he had to say. He was right again. And he pulled the package of very heavy and there, the FBI story again. Also, he signed a paper saying his body rejected. After that, he was taken to the very sheriff's department and he was again. This time, it was a real deal. It was his fault, he said. He'd been finding a baby left him. The police were shocked and they were mistaken. They thought it was from that David killed him. To learn more, they found David again. And this time, they didn't, which made things even more amusing. They said he shot her and thought she was up there and he went in. He told Copeland that he knew Chris had taken her to his house. He was being raped by Chris and he was also raped by him. After, they believed they were in there. Killed her and threw her in a hole. He said first he was spying on her, and now we know that they made her run away from the crime. David told cops Christopher gave him up and he used it to kill her. I'm sure I realize she's the one. She's really the one, said he. They Christopher chose to talk to Christopher again and told him what David said. Christopher was sure that David had nothing to do with the crime, but he has to follow. It involved 2 people. One woman and I never had anything to do with it. It's already a difficult case, so it can be hard to understand. The documentary county sheriff said that the lawyer said it both of the victim, but it wasn't clear for sure. He was talking based on what the friend said. Even Collins and David both charged first degree murder, statutory rape, and first lawyer. I really thought Christopher would be charged with that, but he did because David deserved 40. And he came to jail, held both of them one. For a time, David let Parker's son out of jail. He told her he had been involved in the crime yet, but he had passed out and told me now remember what happened. She got tears and said, he's my one and only son. He's by the right, said he couldn't leave. He's so upset. He loved her so much. I believe he can something like this. He's got 3 kids of his own. 2 appeared in court and he has to be in Marion County, Missouri. 2 arrested on Monday. 3 days after law enforcement Today, in court, entered these not guilty. Today, Spears and Collins are highly guarded. One of the most recent nutshells. Full mother, Ellen Spears, but also today, joined by several family members. While me and community saw if we could read out justice, they did not attend court proceedings this morning. I wanted to, but I heart my Collins said. I didn't go there, and those two guys. Colleen asked Dave for divorce on November 27th. Bill, mayor of town, said she was so sad to talk to the press. She's not feeling anything. She has a lot of things to do. She's in there right now. Using she makes out at the funeral of her baby. Some people from school, like how good treat in her honor, mourning for the funeral, and her friends balloons when attached to them. There was also Angel there for her birthday, and the age she's on. She was very docile last her favorite song, the old red cross song. More than 500 people were there. In the week of Death, Mr. People took and their side. Chris Collins and David Spears would say they company. Chris was on over trial. We went to the court for the reason they trial board. Dave's lawyers asked the trial move from Mary County to County because all the attention from the media is still on. The court could be changed as he was being tried because the case is complicated. In open court for a few years. And then bad news. Charges said children forcibly and first murder state. Spears rocked after 2 weeks with the Attorney General's office. New profanity around John Cox prosecuted to be very and they came to a deal. He was in 4 years in service for US, 7 years for engaging in the city trial. Both violations were charged with being for those crimes. That was not an easy choice, prosecuting said. Pointing out David had been pursued having such the case almost consumed research in my office for the last 4 years in 10 months. He noted that David Spears David Spears was linked to murder in April 4. Evidence of the case since then, no new proof linked to Spears' crime had been found. He said the testing and analysis of proof not sure that David was guilty and also not national ESA 4. Retest kits part of this evidence. It was in their autopsy and after the lab, as David said, the lab. Connection research said it happened. The results of several labs. Cox also pointed out David's claim he killed Rowan didn't make sense. The fact that there is no physical evidence could use in court. He said he concerns and questions about David Spears told police. He said David always denied that anyone else was involved in the murder. This is what he said in both first and last interviews. Cox said David Collins did strike for it every time called police. Cox was worried that he had to defend his account and that night, while also defending his account, which was against Christopher's. Another worry was the equipment involved for David case to be thrown out. He was on guilty in more crimes. If Christopher's case to be thrown out too. Cox said the state not accept the result. This time of crime should not be issue. See, I felt terrible when I first heard about it. That being said, as a prosecutor, I'm a manager of justice and must follow the law, the truth, and one's favorite interests. Robert M. Emerson, sheriff, thought Cox had made the right choice. It was always Collins that was important to be David Spears as a judge. So even though it was hard for him, the prosecutor did need to. He said that he swore he did by himself. The evidence pointed to Collins as the letter. Some things were said Spears' nature, but there were some problems that proved that Collins did it, but it didn't solve all the questions. Pence asked, why was Collins say they did such a terrible thing? Other courts, no. There's no way after that either. I agree with what I was really not sure if he was guilty. I was sure the case would be bad. He could have been found not guilty. Because all the can move discuss. Those are the evidence of all the mistakes of the investigation. As well as the evidence for discovery. Trailer, truck, and body should not be used in the trial. Even though no, it take a week to try to close. Christopher's lawyer said court, they had a lot of problems and couldn't connect emotionally with people because parents didn't know a lot and he's traumatized by the foster care. Christopher was 6 kid, they asked, all of his siblings did in foster care because parents were criminals and druggies. He would be confounded on. But he felt people called and caused him a lot of trouble. His lawyer told the judge that he had no plans to kill Rowan. He asked the jury to move the world on. Seen showing the photographs of Rowan's age and his focus on law and facts. With the essential, he had no plans to do this. She came back outside, still clothing on, noticed down. How painful the injury had been. Very painful. Nothing. Colleen, Rowan's mother, someone told him to testify in court after they learned she had been killed. What kind of feedback did it have you at the time? Asked the judge. Totally devastated myself and my children. She told it. Rowan's sister said she fell to the floor when she heard her sister had been killed. She said the whole family gave us head. At last, the dramatic trial was over. On March 20th, jury gave the decision. We, jury, defended Christopher Collins guilty of murder of the first degree. It was supposed to be a death sentence in this case, so the penalty phase would be very important. Bring the case. The state showed 6 witnesses about how the crime affected this. Christopher seen 2 witnesses, which they didn't know had been involved in the run. The person who studied human development also said he had not been fully cared for at all the first 6 months of his life, which had slowed his growth. Experts said Christopher had both figuring out to connect with other people. Because of this, he was diagnosed with serious disorganized dissociative attachment disorder and injury and explosive personality disorders. After the punishment part was over, the jury suggested the person be put to death. After that, there were a number of challenges. On July 23rd, 2012, Christopher's lawyers sent a letter to the Missouri Supreme Court that they were repeating the death sentence. They promised to announce the case in Missouri. He signed an appeal for automatic made. In 2014, his petition turned down. Another appeal was made by Clifford. This time, he gets turned cut out of life sentence. This was turned down. Asked the Missouri Supreme Court for an order of habeas corpus. If this is proved, he would be able to show proof that the cover didn't tell them by the main witnesses. We, Chief Clinton Clark, had no record when he was in Vietnam. The government said Chief Clark being able would not have changed the results. All going on against Chief's body against He was treated at 15 for being locked up for 7 years. He got a job in the state public defender office. To his trial lawyers after he got out of jail and not before the end of his probation. He had to work there for 80 months before his brain ended. Christopher and David had lawyers in the public defender office. Lawyers for Christopher said David's job as a public defender created a conflict of interest, anything possible. But their claims could be legal charges. His lawyers said there might be a conflict, but because the evidence were afraid of consequences of conflict, in public court, Collins himself didn't know anything until after his prosecution process was over. But then sheriff Christopher's case was cleansing. The fact that he had a ring in the water made it hard for him to make decisions and things through. He also said that he had intentionally abused the kid. But then said this left further and that any instructions on how he could use the law. Life said David Spears killed Rowan. The judge conducted interview showed that he told the police Christopher gave him and he killed Rowan. The Missouri Supreme Court set next May for an end to the rape and murdering a 9-year-old girl in Southwest Missouri. In 2012, a jury convicted Christopher Collins in 2007 after the murder of Rowan Forest, Missouri. He was Collins body in single County. The Supreme Court today's execution is Senator. Christopher Collins was doomed to start, but his appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court was turned down. As Beth Lindsay was turned down by Governor Mike Wilson. Carson used to be a sheriff and then in charge of 12 killings. He had never given the sentence to anyone. Christopher was said to have been physically vulnerable on September 3rd, 2024 and that killed. New Sheriff Jennings was one of the people who worked on the investigation and said he thought killing the a long time. I hope state Collins is in charge. I asked Beth the execution. I thought it was the best thing for Rowan too. He also told her she didn't get full justice. Lecture seemed to be done, and so the charge dropped. This is how it turned out. It's been a long time. I'm glad David Spears said Christopher will be put to death on December 3rd, 2024. At 5:54, people on the execution's hand moved his place. Among them were 4 members of the defense team, 4 members of the media, 8 state witnesses, and 2 family members of Rowan. Andrew Bailey, who was the attorney general of Missouri, told the Department of Corrections at 6 p.m. that there were no legal problems with any execution. Christopher Collins, 49, was arrested 9 minutes after that. Christopher wrote a letter read out loud after he was to death. I will like to see what it is. I'm sorry anyone for his life. I hope you live one. I will tell you on. No happy for you. Look forward to seeing you having one day. It was Christopher Collins put to death. The sheriff said he thought this man that rolled down. It's too bad. Please don't call. Even though a lot of sides of our position. If he knew that, I left the people in favor of that position. I guess in this case, there's some peace of mind. There is some justice, and it's only a little. I'll take what I get. Some of those cases that you never fit. Make out said shockwaves to Missouri. Just terrible. And somebody take life and throw them down a piece of dirt. It's terrible. Do you feel like justice deserves this? I think yeah. I guess she didn't deserve any of this. It leaves a satisfaction to the family. It may be not what he deserved. There are so many people involved in this case. They all murder away. Sheriff Banks said he was a terrible crime. In his 44 years on the job, he worked a lot of murders, but this made the hardest. This is old school indeed. I've had it in my pocket ever since time. After this, I'll still get it in my pocket. He said their case has changed and they live crimes against children. In Newton County, we deal with a lot of cases of child abuse and neglect. Of course, we always take children first. We hate to get from their homes, but we have to do it if there's no other choice. This is always in our minds here. Rowan theft still had effect on many people in our A teacher named Paul, who testified trial, so he couldn't do this for a while after she died. I think every teacher will want that kid. She knows school, but it's all about work. It was all about what we do, moving life. Time was Rowan's best friend. Time's mom and papa at the time they got together, and how we're in China's helped keep Rosie's son calm. It's the most I do my own child for a long time. He still walks on her, sometimes I couldn't see my health. But dear sister will always remember and love Rowan. I'm so proud of the woman she became. When my sister died, a piece of me died. Thanks for watching. If this case left you shock your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it off to the comment below. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware. If you said something wrong, and this time, since it's your right, and then you'll pay for the night, leaving behind a trail of fear, confusion, and devastating questions. On November 9th, 2007, in Missouri, the trial had been seen from in a few days. On November 3rd, 9-year-old girl disappeared from her room. Her small town Stella, where she was last seen, was buried crazy. There were a lot of dead ends, and no one knew where she was going to happen until someone gave them a tip. People told police to go to Fox Cave from Mountain County. Fox Cave was said to be more like a cave. It was about 30 feet from the road and very wooded area. Sheriff's deputy called the JD's. People look, 20 people below, they found out body on the ledge. Before we got here, let no one come through your I hope that hearing from viewers around the world. If you're into crimes or next one, make sure to like, subscribe, and now, so you never miss a load. Alright, let's get back to the case. In Stella, Missouri, we're not more than 200 people there. 0 and 4 is one of those who died to Rowan was born April 11th, 1998, in 1905. He was afraid, grew hard, and happy. She adored being growing, having right outside. He thoroughly enjoyed going to church. He would always early, because his pastor saying, would you came home? She liked sitting on the as well. He did Angel Ministries. She went to Sunday school. She was crazy about Harvey. Her pink and short. The thing was easy for her. She wanted less. Her parents tangle, and he always scolds her there. She sometimes goes to school without socks on. He so she worked very hard at school, and teachers laughed at her in their class. She always did her best, even when she was having trouble in Sunday math. Once she said her, she had a little sunshine, and squeezed her own ever me. She told her daughters, and one of them was wrong because she was shy. She was sucked tied behind her dear sister, but when she finally spoke up, her sister said, Rowan, she was saying so. No one liked her. Rowan lived with a 44-year-old mother, Pauline, and her 25-year-old stepfather, aged years. In addition to being a husband, David was also father. He was supposed to be trying to child support in 2005. It wasn't clear if he had a kid. Rowan was ready for Colleen, which was out of work. She went out to the driveway to see how shift had gone. Nevertheless, Rowan was there on November 3rd, 2010. When Colleen moved inside, she thought Rowan may be in her room, and she couldn't be. Although she was there, she was on land. A big sleeping on the couch. She asked him where she was. He supposed that she was at home with a friend, but he left us by a friend. David told Colleen she had to be at a friend's house when she called the house. Colleen waited David for a few hours for a phone call, but let her know she was there. It was very quiet. Work being called. After that, they were all in the air, couldn't find her. There was a tip, Rowan was missing. At 6:50 p.m., it was Emerald, and very quickly, huge started to get. And people inside came to help. A lot of people from the neighborhood came out to look for her. There's a lot of time running out when John goes missing, so they finally run. They had to figure out where she was the night before, with whom, and most importantly, who was the last person wanting to see her. Rowan had been with her stepfather, David, on her way to go and she had worked. David told police that he had out the night when his friends, Christopher and Nathan. He had left her by herself while she was on the floor of her bedroom. After getting her around, he said he checked her room, and things would change again. He told police that he wanted sometime around 1 a.m. and to recipe all his mom. His mom she didn't check her room while she went for a night back. She was on TV. He was hoping that police didn't let him. He even said when he had been that night, brought him home from house. He admitted he shot the room as he had told police first. He seemed afraid he was involved. When he shot she said very strange that he reported missing for 24 hours after his last scene. Then he talked to Nathan Christopher, see their story smashed, and ordered their idea of what happened. Then he talked to Nathan, and he told him that he, Christopher, and David, and that night they farm when they were working. After going to the store, they went home to play pool around 8:30 p.m. home from work. Late at night, Christopher asked Nathan to drive home, and Nathan went with him. Rowan stayed in the house alone. They ate drink and smoked. When they took Christopher's car, they bought more alcohol on the way there. After about an hour, Nathan and David had to go home. Nathan didn't want to be told her for driving the road, so he took that road instead of the highway. After getting it off, Nathan went home at midnight. Christopher Collins, David's friend, who was with Rowan the night he last seen, told us the same thing Nathan did, but he left that car out of the This happened on November 4th the next day. He went to see his parent and said he stayed there. David and he hadn't talked, and he didn't know that Rowan was missing. Sal's neighbor looking for her after the FBI joined the investigation the next day. A lot of the officers from 3 different counties, city experts, and the Missouri Highway Patrol, and FBI agents all worked together to find her. While David was still being questioned by deputies, FBI agents took his car and his luggage car, which he had brought David. Around the same time, Newton County officers led his purpose and asked him to answer a few questions. He stayed his unit and went to the sheriff's office by car. He also needed to polygraph test and a pure voice analysis, which checked on his voice to see if he was telling the truth. He told him he had no idea what Rowan would come up with. Cleveland Police Chief Clinton Clark was out on a regular patrol that afternoon. Commissioner Clark had known Christopher for 17 years. Chris told him and asked for his support even after he died. Christopher told Moore, told him that Rowan gone missing and he was going to look for her. Clark, the chief, said Christopher himself and was excited. That's when Chief Clark told the FBI that Rowan was lost. He thought Christopher wasn't there. The FBI told him to talk to Christopher because he said he felt anything he could. In addition, Christopher told the FBI that he thought David had found his disappearance and offered where to help him go. In fact, he told them where to look for Rowan. The lost rate small town very hard, and many people are scared and confused, which is only natural. The day Rowan disappeared, the last night Marshall, teacher at school, saw her. She saw Rowan here and needed to rush. They rushed it and couldn't end by 3 minutes before class. Rowan was still there when Tammy was checking on her later that day. She was by herself. She just stayed by. She went back escaping and looked so happy. Everything was fine. People were David, Christopher, and Nathan because the last one was here. Investigators said it could herself. Very important. In the evening, he might see Colleen offer his help and find out how the circus go. Christopher gave him for a long time. Chris actually did the basement with the family for a few months that year. Rowan asked him to help with school. He even called him Uncle Chris. Christopher knows that. He had 3 kids that are 10 years old who lived in Arkansas with their mom. Christopher opened his family farm in October 2007 and lived in there. The search warrant was revoked on David's ears on November 6th, 3 days after she reported missing. A lot of people had walked in and searched his house. Chris went to Chief Clark's office early evening. They found the FBI called him and asked for suggestions on where to look. Kevin Clark thought Christopher was thinking about something that he looked scared. He led Christopher over the eyes. When Chief Clark called the FBI, he told him about the talk. If Chris was guilty, and he confessed. The FBI body probably told Chief Clark. That's why Chief Clark helped the investigation, and Chief Clark agreed. Christopher met the FBI and the Sheriff's Department November 7th, and they saw Solana cell to be against. He also made Commissioner's house and said he had David's house to be checked. The man told the FBI that David's story about his something else to do that Rowan went missing was not true. Christopher became nervous and emotional, and he was asked by during the conversation. He told the agents that he might be able to talk to them. Anymore, they were missing. He had something to do that Rowan missing. The interview ended there. Afterward, he went to see Chief Clark in a very excited interview. If it came to anything else, he said he'd put him up and he might take legal action. Chief Clark told him he would do what he wanted. Rowan told him that Christopher should do anything he could to help find one. He had no reason to stop helping Rowan. Chief Clark made sure Christopher was on rights because he knew how important it was to follow rules. Christopher said, I have handfuls to say. I'll talk to you. Christopher agreed to terminate release and kept talking. Christopher was feeling down, so Chief Clark asked if he knew anything about what happened to Rowan. Christopher began to cry all of a sudden. It was his birthday left her and they left her. Someone again and cut off. At this point, Christopher left bed. Chief Clark told the FBI what happened and said he thought Christopher was out losing. He thought he'd survive louder. Chief Clark talked to the FBI in detail and that day Christopher is sending his name with him. Christopher might know something about that. He said, but the ship was found. When Rowan's body was found, FBI said wanting to deliver Christopher. Another big break would come next day. If her name was worth years. They get Christopher over to the Kansas Farmers Corner in County. Christopher works in They had some experience calling things. Bridges himself has tracked all traits. Mark said they called him the first time while he was on duty the nation was missing. I guess he was thought usually sheriff Bill said he told me over and over that she might be at a friend's house. Mark said he looked for a date on my roof. According to us, the FBI inquired up and a plane found him. It was dated outside the door. As if Christopher was blamed for everything. He has to do the inside. I said I would expect Chris to be involved with us. If you were Chris, you do it body. He pondered it. It was my suggestion they go look. And he did. The first place he took me was the hole in the run. Where the hole in the run mean? Spotty Fox. I saw some items that looked suspicious to me. Said Mark. I wasn't sure if they were. David and I had a conversation about it. I definitely wanted to investigate, and I think it's David too. He took me to pay for a reason. After that, the FBI contacted the County Sheriff's Department. On November 9th, around 8 a.m., deputies might call JPS and their search. They discovered a child's body. Now they told people of this. James, Sheriff of Newton County, said, wasn't there a body found? But I don't think they made it. Rowan had been with different costumes. She died from being There were small cuts and bruises on her body. They showed her when she died. They also found shoes on her face. It was like for being thrown into the pit. Chief Clark heard the body had been found when he was on the Later, the officer told him there and wanted to do it. The FBI told Chief Clark to find Christopher. They told him that they had Rowan right away, but Chief Clark couldn't find Christopher. His phone rang. It was a man before. Chief Clark told him he didn't know anything about someone. He asked police for following him. Christopher said he got scared and threatened. They drive all in the area. They made a Christopher would meet him. Chief Clark told him to go to the police station. He agreed to Chief Clark to the police station and patrol car. They met. Well done, Peter. Found Rowan's body this morning. Just 3 minutes. He put his eyes well up and his head dropped. Christopher knew what David had done. That no the main person thinking. He told truth. He him. Christopher was surprised by what he saw because there were some people in the department. Christopher didn't want to talk to anyone else, so they met Money Bridge, which was only a few miles from me. It was important for Chief Clark to let the police know they were going. Christopher felt very sad when they got to the bridge, ready to be handcuffed. He told him it was necessary, so he said, because of what I want to tell you, you know. I just tell the slow bridge. Christopher told the same story to Paul, and then he left his department. He headed to that road to avoid the car Bravo. He said he informed her he could assist Rowan in the evening before making the day return. He got to the quickly, driving down the way, just as fast as he could. After going to the hood, he went into Rowan's room. He picked her up from the bed, put her outside, and put her in his rock while she sat there. He was still sleeping when they got to her in case she recognized his voice. He didn't see anything, they let her inside. He raped her, and as he was going to take Rowan home. As she walked, he held her arms and turned her face away from him so she couldn't see him. While she was talking, she turned around and saw his face. He used to help her with her work, and he was in, and she called Chris. He said he ripped out, and he was working at the truck in the party. By using this, he killed Rowan for a bus driver. In the bed of his truck, he provided her saying he was in a lot of trouble. He said that he was going to throw the body off the bridge, but changed his mind because he was afraid she would be found quickly. He told her thinking about repairing the body until he found Foxgate. He threw her body into the bowl and tried to hide the hole with torches, but the hole was too big. Later, he drove home. Along his way home, he discovered blood in his clothing and bed. After pants, pajamas, robe, his own clothes and wood soap, burned them into his roof. Plan was to roll them up, put them on. I got to think as we made hell fire. Somebody was going to see that burning, he said. Following this, he put the barn and lit it on fire. The story was awful. Finding out how much Rowan had hurt made it even worse to think about. Christopher and Chief Clark went back to the police station so that others could hear what he had to say. He was raised again. They told detectives from Bear County and Newton County were there at the FBI story again. Also, he signed papers saying his story could be checked. After that, he was taken to the Bear County Sheriff's Department and gave his statement again. This time, it was a court reveal. It was his fault, he said. David brought the baby all afternoon. The police rocked and heard his statement. If they thought it was new, David killed Rowan. After learning more, they talked to David again, and this time he had been killed, which made things even more confusing. David said he checked on Rowan and found he was not there anywhere. He told Coleman he noticed taken to his house. She was being raped by somebody out there. She was also raped by him. Afterward, they believed they were in danger, so they healed her and threw her in the hole. He said at first he was just riding around. Now we know that they took her body away and sent the front. They told the cops to get him, and they used to kill Rowan. I dropped her in it. realized she's gone. Betty. The trust shows that they took Christopher in. Told him what David said, but Christopher showed that David had nothing to do with the crime or the events of the flood. It involves two people. Both of them denied the had anything to do with it. This already tall case is not even hard to understand. Documented that County Sheriff Beverly, the lawyer said that both of them were. It wasn't clear whether. It was unclear Christopher had said. Steve Collins and these were both charged for murder. Secret rape and forcible rape. Everyone thought that Christopher would be charged with kidnapping. Now David stated himself for the Barry got jail, but both were bond. Over time, David talked to her son while he was in jail. He told her that he'd been involved in the crime, but that he had passed out and was only now remembering what happened. She broke down tears and said, he's not involved in the crime. He's regret, said he couldn't leave. He's so upset. He loved her so much. I don't believe he can do nothing like this. He's had 3 days of his own. The two appeared in court because he lived in Berry County, Missouri. Two were arrested on Monday. 3 days after one body was found about 10 miles from her home. According to investigators, both men had been to take part in the crime. By staying in court, entered pleas and not guilty. Today, Spears and Collins were held guarded, one of the first elections. Ford's mother, Pauline Spears, was also today, joined by several family members. While many communities stopped with the justice, they did not attend court meeting this morning. I want to. My heart let me. Colleen said, I didn't want to go over there. Look at those guys. Colleen asked David for the first on November 7th. Bill, the mayor of town, said she's too upset to talk to the press. She's not feeling anything. She has nothing to do. She's in there right now, using something to make the funeral parade. Some people from school decided to keep out tree in her morning for her funeral, and her friends moved to dispatch them. There was also Angel there to mark her birthday, and the day she was found. She was buried at Gospel Church, where her favorite song, the old rugged cross, was sung. More than 300 people were there. They awaited Rome's death. Mr. Goldie put their 8 commanders on. Chris Collins and Dean Sears said they were not guilty. Christopher was bound for trial, which means the court filed a good reason to bring the case to the trial court. David's lawyers asked the trial be moved from Berry County to Boston because all the attention on the media. This is a bond. The court could be changed because he and Christopher were being tried separately. Because this case is so complicated, they woke up court for a few years, and then it was bad news. The charges of second rape, forcible rape, and first degree murder instead. Spear dropped after he talked to insulted the channel office, and proof came from time by the cops, prosecutor, and Berry County, and David agreed to David was given 4 years in prison for justice and 7 years for an justice. All punishments harsh to the first crime. That's not an easy choice, the prosecutor said. Well, David had been soon after his first arrest. This case has almost consumed the resources of my office for the last 4 years and 10 months. He would have been involved in this case for David Spears was murdered of but his other days were inside. Since then, no proof against Christopher's crime that they found. He said that testing analysis of proof not showing David guilty. And results that should be said before. Probably test kits for the evidence. If taken during the autopsy, after it was after the state police and the FBI now. And Master said that happened that night. But results from that vote. Cops also voted. They explained that he killed Rowan didn't make sense. In fact, there is no single evidence that he was murdered. Basically, considered the questions about what David Spears told police. He said Christopher had always denied that anyone else was involved in killing Rowan. This is what he said in his first messengers. Cops said that Christopher Collins made a friend of the Rowan. He talked to police. Cops was ready to have defense Christopher's account. What happened that night? Also defended the account. But against Christopher's. Another word, but they couldn't be possible. His face to thrown out. He was found guilty of serious crimes. And Christopher's case thrown out too. Cops said that they didn't accept the result. This type of should help everyone. He said it felt terrible at first. That being said, as a prosecutor, I'm a minister of justice and must follow the law, truth, and fair and just. Robert Evanson, the sheriff, thought the cops had made the right choice. They would go for the evidence that would support David Spears to the judge. So he knew it was hard for him. Everybody here did what he had to do. He said, I made sworn to himself. The evidence spoke to Collins as the clerk. Similar thing was said in Spears' confession. There were some problems that proved that Collins did, but he solved all the questions. Evanson asked, why did someone say he did such a terrible thing? The public wants to know. There's no good answer for that either. I agree with what Collins said. I'm really not sure if they were guilty. I was sure the case was bad. He could have been found not guilty. Quick Collins led the book in a move to suppress, which meant that the evidence for all statements released during the investigation, as well as the evidence of the target, trailer, truck, and body, would not be used in the trial. He was told no. It would take a week to try Christopher Collins. Christopher's lawyers said court, they had a lot of problems and couldn't connect. He actually felt experienced with him, and he was traumatized by the influence of fear. Christopher was a kid, the youngest. All of this evidence said foster care, because there's criminals and drugs. He would be confined later on, but he's talking alcohol troubles caused a lot of trouble. His lawyers told the judge that he had no plans to kill Rowan. They asked the jury to move forward. Seemed to show many autopsy photos at one stage, instead focus on all the facts, which they said showed that he had no plans to do this. She came back outside, still clothing on nobody's down. How painful anything had been. Very painful, they noted. Colleen, Rowan's murder, but people who testified in court after they learned she had killed. How did that did happen with time? Asked the judge. Totally devastated himself and her children. She told him. Rowan's sister said she fell to the floor. She heard justice had been killed. She said the whole family named their head. At last, this trial trial was over. On March 20th, the jury gave their suit. We, the jury, find defendant Christopher Collins guilty of murder first degree. It was supposed to be the best evidence in this case, so the guilty case would be very important. We're going to case. This each shows Collins' references about how the crime affected victims. Critters seen Robin doing this, said they didn't have been involved in Rowan. A person's human blind, so that he had not been cared for at all. The first 6 months of his life, which slowed his growth. Experts said Christopher viewing a house and without a because this, with no serious story associated with disorder. Condition close to personal disorders. After the body part was over, the jury said that the person put to death. After that, there were a number of charges. On July 4th, Christopher's lawyer said that the serious pain, they were dealing with accidents. When it comes to the Collins case in Missouri, these kinds of appeals are not made. In 2014, institutions turned down. Unreal named Christopher. This time, David turned down life in prison. This was turned down. He asked Missouri Supreme Court for an order to have his If this was moved, he'd be able to show proof that government didn't have been involved in witnesses. Waiting chief Clinton Carter had criminal record from when he was in Vietnam. The government said that Chief Clark's record being made public, not a change result. What is going on with David Sears while arguing with Rowan? He was 2 years to 15, after being locked up for more than 7 years. He got a job in the Missouri State Public Defender Office. He was trial lawyer soon after he got out of jail, and before the end of probation, he had to wait for 18 months before information hit. Most certain lawyers from the Public Defender Office. Lawyers for Christopher said Dave's job as a public defender would be a conflict of interest that made it impossible. But according to the legal charges, his lawyer said that there might be a conflict. Because they explains more faith on Collins and the conflict. He didn't tell the court when they called about it. Mr. Evans himself knew nothing until after his post-game process was over. His last sheriff, Christopher's case for cleansing, so the fact that he had been in order and made hard for him to made decisions and think things through. He also said that he had been sexually abused as a kid. The letter said that this method for hurt, and that any instructions how to become involved. The plaintiff said that David Sears had been Illinois. The professor at this interview showed that he told police that Christopher gave him and he killed Rowan. Missouri Supreme Court set execution for a man accused of murder a 9-year-old girl in South Missouri. In 2012, a jury convicted Collins of 2007 murder of no more in South Missouri. Investigators say Collins was body in a single wing body. Supreme Court today says execution is third. Christopher Collins was doomed for the was appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, turned down. The trial cleansing was turned down by Governor Martin. Prosecutor sheriff had been charged with 12 kills. He had never committed sins as anyone. Christopher was said when he was and Arnold, but December 3rd, 2004, and then killed. Moving Sheriff Chris James, one of the people running the investigation, and said he thought killing him come for a long time. I hope the state will not insist charge. I asked to take the execution. I thought it was the best thing for Rowan to do. He also told her she would never get full justice. I could have seen Rowan and some of the other charge drop, but this is how it turned out. It's been a long time. I'm glad the day is finally decided. Christopher was going to death on December 3rd, 2024. At 5:54, the people were on the execution stand, moved his place. Among them were former investing, former of media, 8 state business, and 2 family members of Rowan. Andrew Gray, who was the attorney general of Missouri, told the Department of Corrections at 6 p.m. that there were no legal problems with the execution. Mr. Collins was so 10 minutes after that, Christopher wrote a letter out after his death. 21. I said this issue of ideas. I'm sorry to anyone hurt in his life. I hope you have this to move on. No, let's have you on. No, I pray for you and look forward to seeing you in heaven one day. It was after Christopher Collins was to death. Sheriff James said, he felt his friend right now. It's too bad if police are called, even though a lot of wings are considered. If you know that, I'm waiting for you to take her out of the position. Because at the end of this case, please be somebody. There is some justice, but it's unbelievable. I'll take my idea. It's one of those cases that you never forget. And Beverly said he sexual abuse himself in Missouri. Just terrible. And someone take a life and throw him down into a cave like a piece of dirt. It's terrible. Do you feel that justice can serve this? I think yeah. Faith has. She deserves any of this. It gives a satisfaction to the family, maybe not what he deserved. There are so many people involved in this case, they will never go away. Sheriff James said it's a terrible crime. It's 44 year old job. He had worked on murders, but this one murders. This is from school ID. Now I have in my pocket everything that happened. After this, I also keep it in my pocket. He said their case changed after the crime against children. In New Point, he deal a lot of cases of child abuse and neglect. Of course, we always put safety to the first. We hate taking kids from our homes, but we have to do it if there's no choice. This time souls are around here. Rowan's death still had effect on many people in the neighborhood. A teacher named Todd Hall, who testified at trial, said he couldn't come up her desk for a while after she died. I think every teacher wanted that kind of kid. She didn't go to school. It was all about work. It was all about what Rowan could do. It was not enough. Todd was Rowan's best friend. Tyler's mom talked about the time they spent together, and how shyness helped keep her noisy son calm. It's the most loving my own child felt in a long time. He still loves her, so I couldn't sleep by himself. Her sister will always remember and love one. I'm so proud of the woman she became. My sister died. Please be Thanks for watching. This case like a shock to our room. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware. Because that said something wrong, and this time, it's easy to from the right. A 9-year-old vanished overnight, leaving behind a trail of fear, confusion, and devastating questions. On November 2007, in Missouri, filed not missing or heard from in a few days. On November 3rd, a 9-year-old girl disappeared from her bedroom. Salt Thomas, where she last seen was very gray. There were a lot of dead ends, and no one knew where she was or what happened until someone gave a tip. People told police to go to Fox Cave in Mountain County. Fox Cave was sitting overnight in a cave. It was about 30 feet from the road, and a heavily area. Sheriff's deputy called JD's report look. 20 feet below, they found a child body on the ledge. Before we dive, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I always love hearing from viewers around the world. And if you're into true crime stories like this one, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an upload. Alright, let's get back back to case. In Stella, Missouri, there were more than 200 people living. One of those who died called home, around April 11, 1998, and 19th life. In 4th grade, she worked hard and happy. She enjoyed reading, drawing, and writing outside. She thoroughly enjoyed going to church. We were often early to assist the pastor and send note. When she came home, she would always sing sex and smile. In addition to angel food mysteries, she went to sex school. She was crazy about party, and her people enjoyed it. Things weren't always easy for one. She often had less. Her hair would tingle, and even though it was cold and snowy in winter, she sometimes went to school without socks on. Even so, she worked very hard in school, and teachers loved her in her class. She always did her best, even when she was having trouble with something like math. One teacher said of her, she is a little sunshine, and squeezed her own play of meat. Two older brothers, and one younger sister raised one, because she was shy. She would sometimes hide behind her big sister. When she finally spoke up, her sister said they moved out. One, she was very special. One, Brenda, with her 3-4-year-old daughter, Colleen, and her 25-year-old stepfather, aged 2 years. In addition to being a husband, David was also a father. He was supposed to be 29 after child support in 2005. It was clear that he ever saw his skin. Rome would all be ready for Colleen when she got home from work. She would run to the driveway, salvage the calm. Nevertheless, Rome was there on November 3rd, 2007. Colleen went inside. She thought Rome might be in her bedroom reading, as she often did. Although she wasn't there, she wasn't even on the lamp. While David was sleeping on the couch, she asked him where she was. He discovered she was at home with a friend, but he left to a friend. David told Colleen she had to be at the friend's house. She called the cops. Colleen waited David for a few hours for a phone call. They let her know she was there. It was very quiet. They weren't getting called. After that, they were all in the area to find her. They went to Rome missing. At 6 p.m. It was a hammer, and very huge church began. Many people still not again. A lot of people in the neighborhood came out to her. There's a lot of crime right now in Chicago missing. So they could find Rome. They had first figured out where she was the night before. With whom, most importantly, who was the last person before people see her. Rome had been first spotted. Dave, but more people reached Walmart. They told police he had not been second friends, Christopher, Nathan. He had left her there by herself. She slept on the floor over there. After getting home around midnight, he stayed in Chicago. Things changed then. He told police he had gone out sometime around 38 and had to take her to TV. He calls his mom. His mom mentioned he didn't check her while she waited for him to come back. She just watched TV. There was one thing police didn't like about David. He wouldn't say that he had been that night or why he had been home for hours. He admitted he should not have left her alone and said he had told police first because he was afraid they would think he was involved. Newton County Sheriff Chris Jane said it was strange that he would crimson and 8 hours after his last scene. They needed to talk to Nathan and Christopher to see if their stories matched. They would get a better idea of what had happened. The police talked to Nathan and he told them that he, Christopher, and David and at that night to the farm they were all away. After going to a booze bar, they went to play pool. Around 8 p.m. Colleen went to work. Later that night, Christopher asked Nathan to drive him home and David went with him. Rome stayed at the house alone. They continued to drink no pop. When they got to the first caravan, they had a alcohol on the way there. After about an hour, Nathan and David left to go home. David didn't want to pull over her driving on the road, so he took the back road instead of the highway. After David off, Nathan home by midnight. Christopher Collins, David's friend, who was Rome in the last scene, told officers the same thing Nathan did, but he left the park crossing line, tapping on the 4th the next day. He went to see this caravan and said he stayed there. David and Nathan talked, and he didn't know that Ron was missing. Suddenly, they were looking for her after the FBI joined the investigation the next day. A lot of police officers from 3 departments, 50 experts, Missouri State Highway Patrol, and FBI agents all together to find her. While David pursued the question identities, FBI agents took his car and his car, which he had bought at night. Around the same time, Newton County officers met to the workplace and asked him to answer a few questions. He stated his agreement and went to sheriff's office car. He also agreed to take a polygraph test and a computer voice analysis, which checks the voice to see if you're telling the truth. He told he had no idea where Ron was and how to help find her. Newton Police Chief Clinton Clark was out on regular patrol that afternoon. Commissioner Clark had known Christopher for 17 years. Christopher believed him and asked for help and support even after his mother died. Christopher pulled over and told him that Ron had gone missing and that he was out to look for him. Clark, the chief, took Christopher himself and decided. That's when Chief Clark told the FBI Christopher had told him Ron was lost. He thought Christopher might know something. The FBI told him to keep talking to Christopher because he said he helped anybody could. In addition, Christopher told the FBI that he thought David had something to do with Ron's disappearance and offered where a wire to help with the boat. In fact, he told them where they could ruin. Lost her at this small town very hard, and many people stayed confused. Completely natural. The day Ron disappeared was the last time Marshall, she sure saw her. She saw Ron's hair needed to be brushed, so they brushed it quickly about 30 minutes before class. Ron was there. Many of them checked on her later that day. When she was by herself, she just stayed by. She went by his skin and looked so happy, and everything was fine with her. People were interested in David, Christopher, and then he had the last ones to hear. Investigators said that Christopher was awful, worried, and glad. In the evening, he went to see Colleen to offer his help and find out how the service was going. Christopher, David, and friends for a long time. Chris actually lived in Lincoln with family for a few months that year. Ron asked him how the school worked, and he called him Chris. Chris was also that. He had 3 kids that were 2 years old, lived in his house with their mom. Christopher expanded his farm in October 2007 and lived in caravan there. Search for Ron was focused on 8 years, November 6th, 3 days after he was reported missing. A lot of people left and searched his house. Chris, with the Chief Clark office before leaving, telling the FBI about him and asked suggestions for him. Captain Clark, Christopher's female something saying look there. Glad that Christopher looked very nice. When Chief Clark called the FBI, he told them about the talk. Christopher was guilty and needed to be fast. The FBI thought he would tell Chief Clark. That's why he asked Chief Clark to help the investigation, and Chief Clark agreed. Christopher with the FBI at the Newton County Sheriff's Department on November 7th, and immediately saw a slide vessel with DNA. He also gave version of the house to say he had 8 houses to check, and told the FBI the story of having something else to do with that Rome, but this was not true. Christopher kept being nervous and neutral when he was asked about the trial during the conversation. He told the agents that he would not be able to talk to them anymore than he would say that he had something to do with their going missing. He had to be there. Afterward, he went to see Chief Clark and was very upset about the interview. If he did anything else, he said he would file and had to be money into the legal action. Chief Clark told him he could do anything. Also told him that Christopher could everything and find Ron. He had no reason to stop him with the girl. Chief Clark made sure that Christopher was right. He has any problem with follow the rules. Christopher said, if I have anything else today, I'll talk to you. Christopher read it during the release and talking. Christopher was down. When Chief Clark asked him if he knew anything about what happened to Ron, Christopher began crying. Listen, was smart. He went after her and he left her. Someone came and took off. At this point, Christopher got left again. Chief Clark told the FBI it happened and that he thought Christopher was about to lose it. He thought he was lying about her. Chief Clark talked to the FBI in more detail and next day Christopher Collins is defended and is with him. Christopher might know something about what happened. He said they should have everybody. When Ron's body was found, the FBI said they wanted him to be the one to talk to Christopher. Another big wreck come next day, confirming it was worse tears. He and Christopher both wrote the cards from bridges, the corner of Newton County. Christopher worked as a mechanic, and Dave has experience with problem solving, which is referred to himself as a jack of all trades. Mark said David called him the first time while he was on duty at Nations Organization. I guess he responded to the sheriff. Could help, said he. Dave told me over and over, she might be at a friend's house. Mark said he looked for Ron and Dave on November 8th. According to reports, the FBI had him wired up and plane following them. He didn't have to look for, as if Christopher was paying for everything. He asked Dave to be the devil's advocate. They said I would expect Chris would be involved with this. If you were Chris, what would you do with Ron's body? 100 bit. It was my suggestion. They looked and did. The first place looking was the hole in the ground. What the hole in the ground? Spot Fox. I saw some items that lost suspicious to me, said Mark. I wasn't sure what they were. David and I conversated on it at the time. I definitely wanted to search the cave, and I guess subconsciously David did too. He took me to the cave for a reason. After that, the FBI contacted the Untold True Crimes department. On November 9th, around 8 a.m., police called GPS and their search. They discovered a child body on a ledge 20 feet below the surface. Chris Jennings, sheriff of Newton County, said, I wasn't there when the body was found, but I don't think anyone had him down. It was murder. Rowan had raped, which was proven by autopsy reports. He had died from disrepute. There were small cuts and bruises on the body, showing they had been hurt before she died. They also found serious wounds on her wrist, most likely from being thrown into the pit. Chief Clark heard that Rowan's body had been found when he heard the news on November 9th. Later, his office called Christopher in there and to talk to him. The FBI told Chief Clark about Christopher. They thought they found Rowan right away. Chief Clark couldn't find Christopher. His phone rang, and it was managed before. Chief Clark told him he didn't know anything was fine, but he asked the police to follow him to bring him in. Christopher said he felt scared and frightened, and had been right all in the area that he was feeling. Christopher wanted him in, but Chief Clark told him to go to the police station. He agreed to drive Chief Clark to the police station in Untold Clark when they met. Well, some weeks over. Following his body listening, just hear those words, and Christopher's eyes lit up, and his head dropped. Christopher knew what he had done, and that was one main person saying, he saw truth, he met him. Christopher was surprised by what he saw, because there were so many people in that part. Christopher didn't want to talk to anyone else, so they went to the bridge, which was only a few miles from me. It was important for Chief Clark to let the police know where we were going. Christopher held his hands when we got to the bridge, ready to be handcuffed. People told him it wasn't necessary, so he said, because of what I'm about to tell you, you will. I sound this by the bridge. Christopher told the same story he'd been telling all week until Nathan and David left his apartment. They had used the back roads of a game called Pride Hook. He had informed that he could assist Rowan in the evening here before he didn't take a turn. He got to the land quickly and riding down the highway was the fastest way to get there. After going to the toilet, he went to the room. He picked her up from the ground, took her outside, and put her in his truck. She slept there. She was still sleeping when he came to the apartment, and she made a nice voice. He didn't say anything inside. He picked her and then said he was going to take her home. As she walked, he held her arms and turned her face away from him, but she didn't see him. While she was walking, she turned around and saw his face. He used to have her phone. She knew the match called Uncles. He said he freaked out and told her to pick up near the body. By using this, he killed her on full by striking her. And then he provided her saying he was out of trouble. He said he was waiting for her body off the image. But changed his mind as he was escaping. She would be killed quickly. He drove around thinking about her buried body until he decided on Fox Day. He threw her body in single and tried to kill those owning bridges. The hole was too big. Later, he drove home. Upon his arrival, he discovered blood was clothing in bed. He put her pants, pajamas, robe, and his clothes into himself, burned them, and get rid of the roof. He planned to roll the mess up and put it in the He got the thing out so he made a hell of a fire. Somebody went to see that burning. He said, following this, he took it from his barn and lit it on fire. The story was told, and finding out how he burned in her made it worse to think about. Christopher and Chief Clark back to the police station, so that her officers could hear what he had to say. He was ready to write in and told the detective in Berry County in Illinois were there at the other obvious story then. Also, he said the neighbor saying his property could be checked. After that, he was taken to the Berry County Sheriff's Department and gave his statement again. This time, it was recorded on video. It was his fault, he said. He had been crying to the baby all afternoon. The police were shocked when heard the statement. They thought it was removed the day they killed him running. After learning more, they talked to it again. And this time he made a deal, which made things even more confusing. They said check out a note. If she was not there, he told Coleman that he knew Chris had taken her to his house. She was being raped by there. She was also raped by him. Afterward, they linked them later, so killed her and threw her in a hole. Except for the was trying out. But now we know they have taken her away in the scene of the crime. They told cops that Christopher Gabriel and that he killed her. I got to it. I realized she's gone. She's laid on that he. The judge chose to Christopher again and told him what they had said. Christopher was sure that they had nothing to do with crime or the events of thought. It involved two people. One of whom denied that the other had anything to do with it. This already difficult case was finding hard to understand. The time that the sheriff made clearly, several liars said they both had been it was later with her. He was not Christopher. Two Collins names were both charged for murder, sexual rape, forced rape. Every logic story charged with kidnapping, but not did because they had formal rape. The Berry County jail held them both without bond. For the time, he told them about her son while he was in jail. He told her that he had been involved in crime yet, but that he had passed on. He only now remembered what had happened. She broke down in tears and said, "He's my only son." It's right. They couldn't believe it. He's so sad. He loved her so much. I don't believe he could do something like this. His three kids alone. Two appearing in court in Berry County, Missouri. The two were arrested on Monday. Three got run for a bite was found about 10 miles from her home. According to investigators, both men had been convicted for the crime. Today in court, Mr. B is not guilty. Today, Sears and Colin County are lost and shackles. Ford mother, Colleen Sears, was also court today, joined by several family members. While many communities continue to be held for justice, they did not attend court since this morning. I went to, and heart and Colleen said, "They didn't want to go over there and look at those guys." Colleen asked Dave for divorce on November 27th. Bill, the neighbor found, said she's too sad to talk to the press. She's not feeling anything. She has a lot of things to do. She's in there right now, using Slim Shady, doing something for her baby. Some people from school, I had a big tree here under, more before food, and her food said balloon with no catch them. There was also an there to my birthday, and the day she was done. He was very upset by her song, the old Ruby Cross, the song. More than 300 people were there. In the wake of Rose's death, Minister told people to put her hate on their side. Chris Collins and Spears, they say they were guilty. Christopher got away with trial. Means that the court thought it was good to bring the case to the trial court. Dave's lawyers asked the trial to move from Berry County to Austin County because of all the attention from me. This is where you want. The court could be changed if he and Christopher were being tried separately. Because this case is so complicated, it will go to court for a few years. And there's some bad news. Charges of statutory rape, forcible rape, and first degree murder against Spears were dropped after he filed 2 cases with the Attorney General's office. And proof came in from outside that. John Cox, that's the Attorney County. They came to a meeting about Dave was given 4 years in prison for justice and 7 years for danger and safety of trial. Both punishments were the hardest to be given of those crimes. And not an easy choice, as the attorney said. Pointing out that David had been murdered after he was first arrested. This case almost consumed the resources of my office for the last 4 years and 10 months. He wanted to spend how long this case lasted. David's speech was murder from Ford. Evidence of his murder inside. Since then, no new evidence was used to the crime that they found. He said that testing analysis improved. Now show that David was guilty and results did not match what he said before. But we tested the evidence. It was during the autopsy. And after we looked at the independent lab, see police lab, we got the lab. And that's what we decided to have that night. But the results were several that showed. Cox also revealed that David claimed that he killed Roy in the says. The fact that there's no physical evidence that he used in court makes the issue concerns and questions about what Spears told police. He said Christopher had always denied that anyone else was involved in killing Roy. This is what he said in both first and last years. Cox said Christopher Collins admitted to trying to and calling out police. Cox was worried that he had to conclude the start. That night, also investigated Spears. Before against Christopher's. Another was he could make people believe he's found out. He was found to 6 months. If Christopher's case is found out, Cox said it's the next result. This type of approach everyone. He said, if that's our lawyer for right. That being said, as prosecutor, I am a minister of justice. We must follow the law, truth, and what is fair and just. Rather than the sheriff, but Cox made righteous. There was no physical evidence that was supported to be Spears to the judge. So even though it was hard for him, prosecutor did what he had to. He said, and he swore he had by himself. He happens to Cox as clear. Similar things were sentenced to special. There were some problems with the proof that Collins did, but didn't solve all questions. But it says, why would some say it's a terrible thing? The public wants to know. There's no good answer for that. I agree with what Collins said. Those are the things that were guilty. I'm sure the case would be bad. He couldn't have found him guilty. Chris Collins led the book in a move to suppress, which meant the evidence for all the statements to release during the allegation, as well as evidence for his trailer truck and body could not be used in the trial. He was told no. It took a week to try Christopher Collins. Christopher's lawyers say in court that he had a lot of problems and couldn't connect emotionally with other people because his parents believed in him a lot and he was traumatized by being in foster care. Christopher, the 6th kid, and the youngest. All the siblings had been foster care because their parents and relatives. He would become father later on, but he drug and alcohol troubles caused him a lot of trouble. His lawyer told the judge that he had no plan to kill Roy. They asked the jury to report horrible crime. Seen showing positive photographs and Roy's age, and they focused on the law and facts. They said show that he had no plans to do this. She was taken back outside. Still no clothing line from the police yard. How painful would that injury have been? Very painful. No. Colleen, Roy's mother, was one of the people who testified in court after they learned she had been killed. What kind of impact did that have on them at the time? Asked the judge. Totally insane myself and my other children. She told him. Roy's sister said she fell to the floor. We heard their sister had been killed. He said that the whole family became very sad. At last, the dramatic trial was over. On March 20th, the jury gave a decision. We, the jury, find the defendant, Mr. Collins, guilty of murder in the first degree. It's possible to be a death sentence in this case, so the penalty phase will be very important. During the part of the case, the state showed 6 comments on this about how crime felt ridiculous. Christopher Team brought 2 witnesses to David had been involved with the first of 22 all said that he had not been able to care at all for the first 6 months of his life, which had slowed his growth. After sex, Christopher figured out how to connect with people. Because of this, he was diagnosed with serious disorganized dissociative attachment disorder and he became exposed to personal disorders. After the punishment part was over, the jury suggested that the person be put to death. After that, there were challenges. On July 23rd, 2012, Christopher lawyers selected the murders in court that they were appealing death sentence. When it comes to this case in Missouri, these kinds of appeals are not made. In 2014, his petition was turned down. Another appeal was made by Christopher. This time, he was turned down to life prison. This was turned down. He asked the Missouri Supreme Court for murder habits course. If this was proved, he'd be able to show proof. The government did nothing by main witnesses. We believe Clinton Park, a criminal record when he was in Vietnam. The government said the chief prosecutor being public would not finish results. What was going on with Dave Spears? The arguments went on. He was freed in 2015 after being locked up for more than 11 years. He got a job at the Missouri State Public Defender Office. Due to the holiday of his trial, soon after he got out of jail. Not before he had his information. He had worked there for 15 months before he was brain-handed. Both Christopher and David had lawyers from the Public Defender Office. Lawyers Christopher said that David's job as a public defender created a conflict of interest that made it impossible for their clients to plead guilty on charges. His lawyer said in that there might be a conflict, but because they had mixed things or were afraid of Collins would read the conflict, they didn't tell the court Collins about it. Mr. Collins himself didn't know that until after his investigation processes were over. He said he shared with him. Christopher's case for clemency was the fact that he had a brain disorder and made it hard for him to be aware, make decisions, and think things through. He also said that he had truly used his kid. The letter said this left for hurt, and without any instructions on how to become useful adults. The claim of clemency said that David Spears admitted to killing Roy. The transcript of the police interview showed they told the police Christopher gave him a and he killed Roy. Missouri Supreme Court set an execution date for a man accused of raiding and murdering a 9-year-old girl in Southwest Missouri. In 2012, a jury convicted Christopher Collins of the 2007 abduction and murder of known Florence, Missouri. Investigators laid Collins' full body in a single Untold County. The Supreme Court today says execution was third. Christopher Collins was moved from charge. His appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court was turned down, and his request for clemency was turned down by Governor Parson. Parson used to be a sheriff and had been charged 12 felonies. He had never been sentenced to anyone. Christopher was settled with the state on December 3rd, 2024, and then killed. Newton County Sheriff's James wanted people to look at the investigation and said he thought the killing had been done for a long time. I hope the state will not in charge. I asked Chris that he execution. I thought it was the best thing for Rowan to do. He also told her that she would full justice. I'd love to see more of them and some of the charges up, but it's not turned out. It's been a long time. I'm glad they finally been set. Christopher was going to be put to death on December 3rd, 2024. At 5:54, people were execution were moved in place. Among them were 4 members of the state, former leading 8 state witnesses, and 2 family members Rowan. And Ray, the General Officer, told the Department of Crimes at 6 p.m. and then moved the process of ending the execution. Christopher claimed 49. With no 9 minutes after that, Christopher wrote a letter that was read aloud after he was put to death. They move on and took the situation for what it is. I'm sorry to anyone who heard this life. I hope this will move on. No matter what side you're on, no good for you. I look forward to seeing you again one day. If Christopher Collins put to death, the sheriff said he specifically wrote him down. It's too bad that he's going to call. He had a lot of warning signs on our vision. If we knew about that, I'd have to think we would take care of that decision. But at the end of this case, things will be fine. There is injustice, but it's little. I'll take it out again. It's no cases I can't forget. Nick says the case shocked me to Southwest Missouri. It's terrible. And someone to keep left and thrown down completely after It's terrible. Do you feel like justice been served this? I think, yeah. I think it has. She didn't deserve this. It will give satisfaction to the family. Maybe not deserve. There are so many people involved in this case. They will never go away. Sheriff Haynes said that terrible crime. It's 24 years on top. He had broken arms. This made it hardest. This is on school ID. And I did my parents that happened. After this, I'll still keep it in law. He said that her case changed how they did the crime against children. In Newton County, we deal with a lot of cases of child abuse and neglect. Of course, we hope the safety of children first. We hate taking kids from homes, but we have to do it. There's no other choice. This is always on our minds here. Rome's death still had an effect on many people in the neighborhood. A teacher named Paul could testify trial. He couldn't think of best for a while after she died. I think every teacher will have a kind kid. She didn't go to school, but it's all about work. It was all about what Ron could do, move on in life. Time was Rose's best friend. Time was mom talk about how they spent together. And Rome's strengths, upbeat Rose's son calm. It's not losing my child all the time. He still looks at her, so son couldn't see by himself. Her bears were over and love Rome. probably won't cheat you. My sister died. A piece of me died. Thanks for watching. If this case left you shocked or broken, don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware. The detectives thought that something was wrong. And time, his instincts were terrifying right. A 9-year-old back overnight, leading behind a trail of fear, confusion, and missing questions. On November 9, 2007, in Missouri, the child had been seen for 8 days. On November 3rd, a 9-year-old girl disappeared from a small town south, where she was last seen was very crazy. There were a lot of bands, and no one knew who she was or what happened. When someone gave it, people told the police to Fox Cave in Montgomery County. Fox Cave was situated over in a cave. It was about 30 feet on the road in a very wooded area. Sheriff's Deputy Michael J. East over the 20 below, found a child body on there. Before we dive deep, let me know in the comments where you're from. I always love hearing from viewers around the world. And if you're into true crime stories like this one, hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss out below. Alright, let's get back to the case. In Stella, Missouri, there were not more than 200 people living. Rowan Ford was one of those who decided to call home. Rowan was born on April 11th, 1998 in 1945. In 4th grade, she was born and was happy. She enjoyed reading, drawing, and writing by that time. She thoroughly enjoyed going to church and would always early, just as best friend Daniel. When she came home, she always seen on the steps as well. In addition to age food mysteries, she went to Sunday school. She was crazy about money and couldn't bedroom shit. Things weren't always easy for Rowan. She always had lies. Her hair would be tangled. And even though it was cold in Missouri winter, he sometimes went to school with socks on. Even so, she worked very hard in school, and she loved having her in her class. She always did her best, even though she was having trouble studying math. One teacher said of her, she is a little sunshine in the sweetest world of enemies. Two older brothers, and one younger sister named Rowan because she was shy. He would sometimes hide behind her sister. When she found his cup, her sister said, "Well, Rowan, she's very special." Rowan, Rowan had a 44-year-old mother, Colleen, and a 23-year-old son, 8 years. In addition to being a husband, David was also a he was paid $29 in child support in 2005. It wasn't clear if her son did. Rowan had always been Colleen, for work. She went out to the driveway to see how her ship had gone. Nevertheless, Rowan was there on November 3rd, 2007. When Colleen went inside, she thought that Rowan might be in a bedroom, and she often did. Although she was there, she wasn't even on land. While David was sitting on the couch, she asked him where she was. He disclosed he was at home with a friend, but he did not specify which friend. David told Colleen she had to be at a friend's house when she called cops. Colleen went to David for a few hours for a phone call, and let her know she was there. It was very quiet. They booked him all. And that, they all over the air with the phone. It was said Rowan was missing. At 6:50 p.m. was an neighbor, and very huge search began. Many people in the came out. A lot of people in the neighborhood came out to look for her. There's no part of the neighborhood the child was missing, so they found Rowan and first figured out where she was the night before, with whom, and most importantly, was the last person people see her. Rowan had been with David on one work overnight shift at Walmart. David told police that he had been out on the night when his friends, Christopher and David. He had left her there by herself. She slept on the floor of the bedroom. After getting home around midnight, said he didn't show Things changed again. He told police that he phoned out second time around 1:38 and attempted to get to SUV. He called his mom. His mom said she didn't show Rowan while she waited for him to come back. She watched TV. But told David police didn't like David. He wouldn't say where he had been that night or why he had been gone for hours. He admitted that he shouldn't have left her alone. He said he had told police first because he was afraid they think he was involved. Newton County Sheriff Chris Giddings said it was very strange. They didn't report missing until 8 hours after she was at the scene. He needed to come in with her to see if stories matched and work with their idea of what had happened. Police talked to Nate. They told him that he, Christopher, and David met at the farm. They were all working. After going to a blue store, they went home to play pool. Around 8:30 p.m., Colleen went to work. Later that night, Christopher asked Nathan to drive him home. David went down. Woman stayed at the house alone. 18th Street, and so on. Without a him. They bought alcohol on the way there. After about an hour, Nathan and David left home. Nathan didn't want to get pulled over for driving alone, so he took the back roads instead of the highway. After dropping Nathan off, Nathan got home at midnight. Christopher called his main friend, who was the road that she was last seen, told officers the same thing Nathan did, but he left the apartment not This happened on November 4th the next day. He went to feed his servant and said he's there. David and he hadn't talked, but he didn't know Rowan was missing. So they wrote heavily for her at the FBI joined the institution the next day. A lot of police officers from 50 experts with the safety highway patrol and FBI agents all prepared to find her. While David was still being questioned by deputies, FBI agents took his car and then locked his car, which had borrowed that night. Around the same time, Newton was willing to report this and asked him to answer some questions. He stayed his meeting and went to the sheriff's car. He told her to take polygraph and appear voice analysis, which checks someone's voice, see if they have told the truth. He told him he had no idea Rowan was not a outfitter. Even police chief Clifton Clark was out on regular patrol afternoon. Commissioner Clark, known for 17 years. Christopher believed it and asked for his report and after his alibi. Christopher pulled over and told him that Rowan was missing and they told him to look for her. Clark, chief, Christopher was himself and decided. That's when Chief Clark told the FBI Christopher had told him Rowan was lost. He thought Christopher meant something. The FBI told him to keep talking to Christopher because he said he got away with it. In addition, Christopher told the FBI they thought David had something to do with Rowan's disappearance and often required help to pro. In fact, he told them where they looked for Rowan while Lost Salt Town by heart and made people scared and confused because of the the day of his funeral, the last time Marshall, a teacher at school, saw her. She saw Rowan's hair and needed to be brushed, so they brushed it, put it in a knot, buried it in the glass. Rowan was still there when 10 minutes checked on her later in the day. When she was by herself, she just died. She went by Thanksgiving and so happy, like everything fine with her. People were visiting David, Christopher, and then they went out to see her. In his ears, said it was so simple, worried and polite. In the evening, he went to Colleen for his help and find out how Christopher was doing. Christopher and David had been friends for a long time. Chris actually lived in the basement with Fed for months that year. Rowan asked him to help her with support. He even called him Uncle Chris. Christopher was so bad. He had 3 kids, 10 years old, lived in Arkansas with their mom. Christopher moved to Sally's farm in October 2007 and lived later in there. Search for Rowan was on David's ears on November 6th. 2 days after she reported this, a lot of people popped in and searched his house. Chris went to Chief Clark in the early evening, telling him that the FBI had popped in and asked for suggestions on where to look. Captain Clark thought Christopher was thinking about something and he looked scared. It was like Christopher would look in the eyes. When Chief Clark called the FBI, he told them about to talk. If Christopher was guilty and needed to confess, the FBI thought he would probably tell Chief Clark. That's why they asked Chief Clark to help the investigation, and Chief Clark agreed. Christopher went to the FBI and Newton County Sheriff's Department on November 7th. And they gave David's personal vessel for DNA testing. He also gave permission to the house and to say he had David's house to check. The man told the FBI that David had something else to do the night Rowan went missing was not true. Christopher kept getting nervous and emotional when he was asked missing child during the conversation. He told the he would not be allowed to talk to them anymore if they were going to say that he had something to do with Rowan missing. The interview ended there. After he went to see Chief Clark and was very sad about the interview. If it came to anything else, he said he would climb up and he might need to leave the ladder. Chief Clark told him he would do what he wanted. Also told him that Christopher should do everything he could to help Rowan. He had no reason to stop helping with the patrol. Chief Clark made sure to tell Christopher as no matter because he knew how important it was to follow the rules. Christopher said, "If I have anything to say, I'll talk to you." Christopher agreed to the police and kept talking. Clark was feeling down. Chief Clark asked him if he knew anything about what happened to Rowan. Christopher began to cry all of a sudden. But his word, they left her and then he left her. Someone came in and cut the talk off. At this point, Chris screwed up and left again. Chief Clark told the FBI what happened and said he thought Christopher was not losing. He thought it somehow louder. Chief Clark talked to the FBI in more detail next day about Christopher Collins' sending his connection with it. Christopher had no something about what happened. He said, "But the sheriff was trying to when Rowan's body was found, the FBI